Terrified person lunges forward, begging as golden light engulfs everything. An armed attacker looms over a woman, forcing her to beg. Now, he stares ahead, gathering crackling energy to unleash his power. The enemy swings a glowing blade down in a finishing strike. He stands alone, confronting a massive fiery presence rising from below. The lone survivor steels himself and prepares to face the challenge ahead. A white-haired man sits quietly by the campfire, thinking. He lifts a glowing device, finally revealing it. The white-haired man lights his cigar, looking resolved. The resolute figure extends his hand as a surge of mysterious energy begins to manifest. A devastating burst of flames and energy erupts around a lone sword. Meanwhile, a lone observer surveys the burning wreckage and collapsing ruins. A hooded watcher scans the area cautiously amid drifting embers. The battered fighter stops, struggling to catch his breath. A lone scout moves silently through the dark forest, avoiding detection. Finally, two allies stand back to back, briefly resting after the clash. The weary swordsman leans against a tree, contemplating his fatigue and deciding to request reinforcements after reporting his progress. The trembling man recoils, frozen before an overwhelming presence. An agile fighter barely dodges a lethal sweep from the glowing blade. The protagonist freezes, shaken by a sudden terrifying realization. The survivor stands before the ruined tree, fists clenched. Meanwhile, an enemy bears glowing fangs in a snarl. A colossal one-eyed monster emerges from the shadows. The beast roars, releasing a wave of purple energy. Then the survivor wonders if this enemy is truly animal-like. An observer identifies the cursed blade as a dangerous demonic sword. Next, a fighter unleashes energy, sending spectral copies rushing ahead. A massive beast charges forward, red eyes blazing. A defender braces for impact, energy crackling around him. The charging monster is blasted backward by a powerful strike. Afterward, the cloaked caster thrusts his hand, channeling purple power. The menacing warrior releases a devastating surge of violet energy, shaking the battlefield. A determined fighter endures the blinding attack within dark energy. The anxious onlooker recoils as the sword's sinister energy tears through the trees. The monstrous creature staggers backward as a searing purple slash strikes its chest. A relentless attacker launches a high-speed, energy-trailing charge. His gaze hardens, one eye glinting with resolve. Suddenly, the white-haired intruder smashes through the massive logs. A towering stone-skinned giant appears, radiating overwhelming threat. The swordsman calmly deflects the incoming blazing strike. A raging fighter releases energy that shakes the battlefield. The swordsman slashes, blasting his opponent violently backward. A wary observer locks eyes with a sinister figure whose ominous presence is reflected in his gaze. He studies the unstable rift, unsure his last attack worked. A monstrous aura erupts, releasing a surge of dark power. The disgruntled man stands beneath the eerie purple glow, grumbling about the mission's hardships and plotting to demand double pay. Then the armored warrior braces as the shadowy foe charges. With fierce determination, the resolute figure unleashes a hidden power as energy bursts from his glowing eye. Suddenly, yellow and purple energies collide, rattling the battlefield. Steel crashes against claw as the combatant fends off the monstrous adversary in a violent collision. A violent force collides with the barrier, causing it to crack and release a burst of sparks. The swordsman seizes his weapon with unwavering determination, preparing for action. The lone fighter and the massive orc collide in a fierce, magical clash of weapons. The lone figure stands tall above the monstrous adversary, victory radiating in the aftermath of battle. With a surge of energy, the fierce gaze burns brighter as newfound power is unleashed. The swordsman drives his blade into the ground beside the defeated. The wounded swordsman sits and stares at his broken blade. A swirling vortex of dark energy intensifies as an unknown force is summoned. A scarred summoner reaches out and calls forth that force. Finally, someone realizes the demonic sword is causing a critical problem. He confronts the cursed sword moments before forbidden power overwhelms him. Bathed in a sinister glow, the lone figure issues a powerful summons within the pulsating magical barrier. Boots hit the grass, marking an unexpected arrival. The tormented man recoils, resisting the cursed sword's pull. The desperate figure battles to regain control as his body moves against his will. Meanwhile, he reveals a radiant cursed sword as energy whirls. Cornered, he lunges to stop the glowing weapon's escape. He unleashes dark energy, brandishing the glowing weapon. Elsewhere, a man studies a swirling dark orb, confused. A lone figure pauses on the grassy path as a frantic voice urgently calls out from behind. The warrior raises his cursed blade to deliver a heavy strike. A desperate voice suddenly shouts, trying to stop the attack. The brute hefts a massive axe and launches it across the river with overwhelming force. The lone figure smirks by the lake as a powerful force crashes into the water. A solitary blade descends further into the murky depths. The weary man exhales, clearly frustrated. Then, an angry elder accuses the youth of lying about the orc and demands proof. The frustrated young man throws up his hands, complaining to his companion about not having enough money to buy a sword. A resolute woman stands over her foe, staring him down. The suspicious woman confronts the silent figure standing beside her in the dimly lit room. Someone grabs the other's wrist, stopping them from moving. The incredulous woman harshly confronts the exhausted man about his shocking act of betrayal. The young man nervously denies being the one she seeks. The girl is suddenly stopped as she tries to leave. Meanwhile, he warns them that his power is immense. A furious woman confronts a stunned youth, publicly accusing him. The panicked fighter recoils, shouting in disbelief at the silent opponent. Nearby, an uneasy onlooker sweats as alarming rumors spread. The furious woman points accusingly at her stoic adversary, demanding to know why she was thrown into the lake without warning. The stunned survivor processes the shocking possibility, his mind racing with the new implication. Then he points ahead in shock after realizing the truth. A triumphant voice shouts, declaring unwavering resolve. The black-clad girl reveals she is the discarded demonic sword. The smug girl explains the discarded blade is actually a demonic sword. The assertive woman reprimands her subordinate with a sharp gesture. However, a ghostly figure is cut off mid-command, shocking the woman. A lone runner flees down the street after escaping a pursuer. The tense companion demands an explanation with a pointed question. The man recoils on realizing their escape route is a dead end. Finally, the confident woman tells the puzzled man she is a demonic sword. First, the monarch claims she can instantly travel anywhere she wants. The figure declares owning the queen makes the other his servant. Angered, the man demands an explanation for being called a servant. In reply, she insists serving under her is natural order. One man storms out of the building as the other yells. The annoyed man orders the protesting girl to leave and stop wasting time. The irritated figure confronts the adversary, eyes blazing and energy swirling, calling out the other's rudeness. The regal woman reveals her identity with a confident, ominous smile. The triumphant figure reveals her radiant, magical sword, unleashing a surge of power. The protagonist's eyes widen in shock as he stares ahead, visibly overwhelmed. The self-assured figure stands tall and commands those before her to kneel and show respect. The determined youth grabs the startled companion's hand and pulls her quickly down the sunlit village street. A heated confrontation erupts off-screen as the village basks in the glow of a dramatic sunset. At the door, a woman lightly teases her returning companion. Later, the newcomer declares he will confront the demonic sword, shocking the listener. The older man raises a brow, questioning the mention of a demonic sword. Someone begins explaining but is abruptly cut off mid-sentence. Suddenly, the young man steps forward and reveals the startled girl. The pair silently faces the bald man seated at the desk. The older man glares ahead, clearly resolved about what comes next. A man interrupts, begging for a chance to explain. With a mischievous grin, the grasper seizes the startled onlooker as swirling demonic energy bursts from his glove. Nearby, someone stifles sobs, struggling to stay quiet. Both the older man and the silver-haired woman jerk their heads toward the sudden noise, caught off guard. A younger sister confronts her sibling for always treating her like baggage. The cornered victim recoils as the aggressor steps in closer. A defiant youth refuses to leave despite the other shouting at him. One man sits clutching his head while the other glares down. A furious woman folds her arms and refuses to be sold. The desperate man demands an explanation from his silent opponent during their tense standoff. A woman declares their bond unbreakable and reaches toward the startled target. A tired man pauses to sigh while staring into the distance. A lone traveler drives a covered wagon down a forest path. The resolute man bites into the mysterious pink pill with determination. The uneasy traveler clenches his jaw, unwilling to approach the city. A brooding woman blames the cheerful newcomer for her ban from guild quests. A young man asks the sword girl how she can also appear human. The thoughtful girl silently considers what to do next. The confused girl admits she has no idea and asks how he resisted possession. Meanwhile, a quiet man pauses, wondering why he is doing this. The two sit together, both lost in thought as uncertainty lingers between them. A wagon wheel rolls steadily along the quiet forest path. Two figures peer out from the wagon as their arrival is announced with sudden excitement. Two figures stride onto the sunlit, fractured ground, tension mounting as they near a pivotal spot. The grateful traveler thanks the warrior for the ride, while the companion bows respectfully on the forest path. Someone offers the silver-haired warrior a sealed envelope with a quest. The cheerful traveler waves goodbye and heads down the sunlit forest road, leaving the caravan behind. A dominant woman threatens the silver-haired captive, demanding total obedience. A massive enemy looms over a shocked opponent, exuding murderous intent. Later, a tall man storms down the path, ignoring someone shouting behind. A determined party reaches the province's largest city and its domed center. The excitable onlooker marvels at the bustling town, while the silent companion surveys the scene with quiet contemplation. A market vendor teases an embarrassed newcomer for looking unfamiliar. The pair stops on a cobblestone street, confirming this is their destination. Inside the sunlit building, the wary woman accuses her companion of betrayal, prompting a sharp denial. Then someone jokes slightly, easing the tension in the room. The inquisitive figure confronts the anxious man by the door, pressing him about his suspicious plan. A mysterious stranger enters the busy tavern, drawing everyone's attention. A friendly attendant welcomes the newcomer approaching the counter. The determined visitor approaches the counter and requests a quest, prompting the official to ask for identification. An authoritative figure slides a crested document across the table toward the hesitant recipient. Soon, the infamous warrior enters the grand hall with his companion, stunning onlookers. The embarrassed swordsman covers his face as his partner laughs. The impatient customer demands a list of quests, prompting the staff behind the counter to eagerly present it while another observer laughs at the lively exchange. Elsewhere, a researcher studies a book, pondering the warrior's sudden return. A pushy patron hands over a slip, pressing the attendant to proceed. A messenger offers a sealed envelope, beginning a formal exchange. A grim man forces through a panicked crowd whispering about his recent killing. Then, a determined fighter steps forward as the legendary five appear. An uneasy traveler mutters that coming to this city was a mistake. A dark-haired girl laughs loudly, mocking the armored man's grand title. Meanwhile, an observer scans an empty clearing, annoyed that nothing appears. The duo walks through the forest, arguing about the warrior's current quest. A sly woman smirks, again mocking the other's overblown title. 10 minutes earlier, the chain of events affecting now quietly began. The anxious quest giver welcomes the visitor and expresses concern about the lack of updates since the quest was posted. A detached man listens blandly while a woman chats with someone else. With a solemn gaze, the earnest figure entrusts a crucial responsibility to the quietly attentive woman by the window. A determined girl scans the area, searching for something lost. A framed portrait shows a woman holding a cat, emphasizing the pet's importance. The young man internally questions the logic behind the noble's actions. A prankster sets a steaming bun on someone's head. The onlooker is shocked when the park closes over a missing cat. Meanwhile, the playful observer mocks the warrior for searching the forest for the cat. The furious man points accusingly at the defensive woman, blaming her for the situation as she protests loudly. The enraged youth demands his opponent explain why his weapon shattered. The outspoken figure demands an explanation from her unprepared companion about the missing weapon. The confused man freezes, unable to grasp what just happened. The assertive girl in black stands tall, boldly challenging her opponent with a confident gesture. The strategist urges the listener to consider the cost of uncontrolled power. The protagonist recoils in stunned silence, confronted by the unsettling suggestion of unrivaled power. The woman taunts her foe, lifting her hand as purple energy gathers. The cautious observer considers that her claim might be true. The victorious figure plants a flag atop the fallen, while ominous energy and an eclipsed sun loom overhead. A gloved man clenches his hand, ready to move. A terrified woman recoils as the gloved attacker lunges at her face. The speaker mocks the distressed figure, calling their behavior childish. The injured girl clutches her head, struggling not to cry. The furious bystander shouts insults as the cloaked traveler walks away. Suddenly, the cautious figure stops, sensing something wrong. The leader stops, sensing something wrong as his companion lingers. Only unnatural silence fills the deserted park. Suddenly, a huge white monster lunges forward, fangs bared. Someone warily asks if a monster has taken over here. The lone fighter curses when he realizes he is unarmed. The lone defender is violently struck by a monstrous, shadowy assailant with razor-sharp claws. Then, a massive explosion rips through the area, scattering debris. A dark attacker dashes forward at incredible speed. The protector sprints away with the girl, narrowly avoiding danger. A massive, white-furred beast crashes its paw onto the ground, cutting through the tension. There, the same white beast emerges from the trees, blocking their path. A cautious hunter questions why a simple cat quest is A-ranked. A skeptic scoffs at the absurd sign introducing a saber-toothed beast. Two allies crouch together, scanning the forest for an imminent threat. Eventually, the winner stands over the clearing while the defeated enemy screams. An irritated ally brandishes a staff and orders the other to fall back. The wary fighter braces with his staff as a colossal tiger spirit appears behind him, warned just in time by his anxious companion. A frightened girl looks up and braces for an unseen attack. Finally, a towering enemy staggers as a blinding explosion erupts from its chest. The swordsman drives a glowing strike deep into the massive beast. The young woman stares ahead, stunned by events. The fighter attacks fiercely with a glowing twig. Meanwhile, the huge creature endures repeated powerful blows. The giant feline collapses, cowering on the ground. The white-haired fighter stands over the defeated beast. The massive beast crouches in the underbrush, trembling with uncertainty as it weighs whether to back down. The archer pauses in the forest, questioning his purpose. Suddenly, a pair of animal-like paws emerge from the shadows, moving cautiously through the undergrowth. The watcher realizes the huge beast is guarding newborn cubs. He faces a towering white tiger with a black panther on its back. The newcomer raises his hands, explaining he means no harm. Hearing a voice, the calm man also raises his hands. Later, he lies in a clearing, wondering about a strange name. A massive feline pins the struggling man to the ground and covers his face with playful licks. The caretaker sternly confronts the guilty-looking beast after its latest mischief. The dark-furred cat at the center anxiously shares its worries. The grateful figure expresses heartfelt thanks for the completed request, surrounded by joyful animal companions. The energetic figure playfully grabs the stoic one's head while teasingly calling out a dramatic title. The wary man reluctantly admits that he went to the countryside to conceal his identity, while the anxious woman hides her face behind a gloved hand. Amused, he notes how that name stuck while standing by the talisman-wearing tiger. In an ornate room, the aloof man and the cheerful woman clarify their connection as onlookers question their relationship. Two rivals stand close, trading insults and challenging each other's rank. A voice observes that the connection between certain individuals appears unusual. The man asks the woman why she named the pet. Someone remembers first mistaking the child for a cat. A lively girl teases while holding a cat in her arms. One observer privately thinks fondly of them, knowing others disagree. Later, a young woman hugs the lost creature, sensing it feels out of place. The man calmly states he will return the child home. A thoughtful youth confirms the location they are discussing is important. At sunrise, distant snow-covered mountains appear in the eastern sky. Soon, a large palace appears in sunlight, introducing a new setting. In the busy square, several people freeze, stunned by something unexpected. By the river, a wary person halts after realizing something troubling. The confident figure presents a giant, smiling beast and 3 adorable kittens, capturing everyone's attention. The boastful figure stands confidently, drawing attention, while a large white beast looks on in mild confusion. The silver-haired youth looks back, hinting he knows hidden information. An irritated girl mocks her companion with sharp sarcasm. The anxious companion asks about the group's next destination, while addressing the 2 imposing beasts on the sunlit street. A confused woman demands the other person say their destination. A young man announces he will buy a sword. Someone grabs the other's clothes, stopping their movement. The leader demands the shaking companion explain their sudden fear. A woman recoils as she realizes something terrifying. A tense shout interrupts the quiet as the view sweeps over the grand city below. A charismatic host greets newcomers inside the sword-filled shop. The serious customer dismisses the available weapons and firmly requests a high-quality sword while a companion looks on with disdain. The observer narrows his gaze, silently scrutinizing the situation with unwavering focus. Another companion scolds the sulking girl and doubts they can afford a famous sword. The shopkeeper welcomes the visitor and encourages browsing the store's excellent supplies. After inspecting the blade, the buyer signals readiness to pay in cash. The leader pushes ahead through the dungeon as a companion gestures back and a menacing beast snarls nearby. The wary swordsman mutters a skeptical remark about the unsettling stranger, while his quiet companion listens intently. A taller ally playfully muses a girl's hair, drawing her protest. Soon after, a determined member strides ahead with clear purpose. The confident figure introduces the group to the luxury department with a sweeping gesture. 3 adventurers and a white beast walk a corridor lined with weapons. The salesman dons gloves and touts the sword for hunting powerful monsters. The white-haired customer inspects the sword and firmly approves it. The swordsman hesitates, then reaches for the glowing blade, recognizing the red dragon. An armored fighter raises a legendary sword against the dragon. A famed warrior once single-handedly defeated dozens of dragons. A sword forged from a red dragon's spine is shown. A young man nervously offers a wrapped gift to someone. The nervous customer asks about the price of a sword in the continent's largest weapon shop. The apathetic figure bluntly demands an outrageous sum, as glowing numbers and coins fill the background. A judge mocks the event while calling the next anxious contestant. Later, an expert unveils a legendary weapon, shocking the observer. The startled onlooker starts to speak but is abruptly interrupted. The white-haired interrogator demands answers after catching the other red-handed. A newly found sword from a famous warrior is mentioned but hidden. An employee quickly stops a customer from touching the sword. The man screams in terror, his face contorted with shock and fear. A determined customer reaches out to grab the nearby sword. The resolute figure seizes the shimmering sword from the wall as magical energy surges through the glowing chamber. The figure stands in blue light, silently thinking. Without hesitation, the customer declares intent to purchase the sword. A solitary figure slips into the shadowy slums, staying hidden while surveying the rundown alleyway. An old shop sign creaks slightly in the evening. In a dilapidated room, someone complains loudly. A frustrated girl complains as 3 cats crowd her. The annoyed swordsman and his outspoken companion argue in their cramped room about the poor living conditions and recent betrayals. Instead, he goes to sleep, leaving her with the creatures. A furious woman, flanked by magical beasts, scolds an unseen figure loudly in the slums. A brilliant full moon casts its glow over the silent rooftop, signaling the arrival of night. A weary person collapses onto a sleeping beast spent. Suddenly, someone jolts awake, startled by a noise. A man bolts upright in bed, body rigid with fear. The wary figure cautiously surveys the dim, empty room, senses heightened for any sign of danger. Meanwhile, someone stops in the dark hallway, sensing an unseen presence. A lone figure ascends the shadowy staircase with tense caution. The cautious figure peers through the door, hesitantly confronting the mysterious presence beyond. Outside, a lone woman absorbs moonlight through a glowing beam. A blue-haired woman calls into the darkness, asserting her presence. A disoriented man pauses in the doorway, hiding his face from an observer. An exasperated woman confronts another at the door, saying tears change nothing. A silver-haired girl falls silent mid-conversation, suddenly tense. Then a crying girl turns and asks if the other will live. A lone survivor staggers as he realizes all his companions died. Finally, the blue-haired woman grips her pendant and admits she is tired of everyone. The protagonist's eye glows with ominous energy as a hidden power activates. A figure hesitantly questions the other's true identity, heightening the suspense. A radiant blade hovers amidst swirling energy, declaring its identity to the onlooker. The blue-haired girl stands as blue energy violently erupts. Then, a dark presence proclaims it is bound to the wielder. A wary observer demands answers while glancing up at the silent watcher. The lone man realizes the sword is linked to past users. The young woman confirms everyone else committed suicide. The frustrated figure vents angrily, causing the anxious onlooker to flinch in surprise. The blue-haired girl cries and apologizes as another voice soothes her. A hesitant figure voices uncertainty about their mysterious contract, while a calm presence offers silent comfort with a gentle touch. The protagonist leans in under the night sky and confidently makes a promise. The weeping girl clenches her resolve beneath the night sky as the silent figure reassures her with a gentle touch. The crying girl is quietly comforted by a supporting hand. A hopeful figure shares a heartfelt wish as a young woman weeps with joy surrounded by swirling lights. An eye reflects two figures in blue aura, hinting at a vision. Suddenly, a silver-haired figure interrupts with a loud remark. The curious girl steps closer under the starry sky and politely asks the silent man for his name. The assertive man introduces himself to those present. Finally, the white-haired speaker confidently repeats his full name. A blue-haired girl clutches a glowing pendant happily. The supportive subordinate responds with eager agreement, energizing the atmosphere. Suddenly, a towering newcomer appears, making the pair tense. An observer notices an unfamiliar figure entering. The timid newcomer introduces herself, clutching a gem pendant. The anxious girl recoils as her confrontational peer leans in, demanding an explanation for her actions. The aggressive girl corners her, demanding the truth about the sword. Then, the vengeful girl casts a magical punishment with her companion looming. A cold fighter grabs an enemy's head, crushing all resistance. During their argument over the sword, the accuser grabs her arm. A younger girl glares, doubting the elder's reputation. Soon, an alert fighter spins around, sensing someone unexpected approaching. The anxious girl pleads for protection, her hand pressed tightly to her chest. A younger girl stares up, captivated by the older woman. The assertive figure demands that the hesitant girl repeat the teasing title one more time. A brilliant dawn breaks over the mountains, signaling the start of a new day. A dark-haired woman teases her companion, who crouches in embarrassment. An impatient leader urges the group onward, noticing one lagging behind. A white-haired mage releases energy, catching her dark-haired opponent off guard. Finally, a resolute fighter grasps the glowing weapon amid surging energy. A fighter grips his blade, preparing to release its energy. Another man announces he is going to buy a sword. Soon, the group reaches a stone sword shop marked by a sign. A warrior bursts inside, his glowing sword crackling with power. The younger man levels his ornate sword at the elder, demanding an explanation as tensions escalate. Ignoring protests, he demands to see whoever is in charge. A pale man confronts him, claiming to know their confusion about this place. The larger figure commands an accomplice to discipline the defiant swordsman, who stands ready with his weapon pressed to his chest. An enforcer pins the white-haired intruder down and orders them to leave. Suddenly, the hero smashes a charged fist into his opponent's face. A sturdy fighter steadies his stance, preparing for the impending fight. A contemptuous voice asks if the listener can even understand. The white-haired man pushes past, demanding to meet the shop owner, not security. The masked shopkeeper finally faces the armed visitor across the counter. A cornered man freezes when a blade presses against his throat. The challenger taunts, asking why his opponent hesitates to call for help. An enraged man yells, demanding if his foe knows who he is. The desperate elder shouts for everything to stop. The swordsman points his blade at a startled woman, heightening the standoff. A stern elder enters with two guards, confronting the source of the commotion. A nervous youth forces a smile, urging his elder away. A stern man snaps, ordering someone to stay silent. The older man interrogates the newcomer about his connection to another person and demands to know if he owns the store. He confronts his foe, demanding answers and threatening serious consequences. Then the warrior reveals his feared title, raising an energy-charged sword. He triggers hidden power, blue energy flaring from his eyes. The captive struggles desperately within a prison of ice as two silent observers watch from behind. A skeptic demands why the famed shop sold a demonic sword. The panicked merchant protests innocence as the shadowy accuser steps closer. Afterward, the swordsman pierces the icy core, taking his compensation by force. A terrified man crawls back, pleading as a glowing blade attacker advances. The cold attacker releases a blinding slash, vowing to cut off an arm. The fighter narrows his focus, readying himself for the coming clash. He steadies his nerves, sweat forming as pressure builds. Then the swordsman plunges his glowing sword into the older opponent. The older man, overwhelmed by guilt, begs for forgiveness and offers his arm as compensation. A weary man closes his eyes and lets out a frustrated sigh. The elder proposes a new deal, further unsettling the nervous youth. An empty bed remains untouched in the silent room. Finally, the defeated man kneels as his dominant foe looms over him. The youth begs to be trusted and prove himself. An older man silently scans the room, eyeing the swords. Suddenly, someone shouts an insult, breaking the silence. The two figures stand locked in a silent standoff, tension crackling in the charged air between them. The swordsman lowers his head, struggling to restrain his anger. Enraged, he bares his fangs and violently releases his power. Meanwhile, a nervous ally presents a glowing jeweled sword to the wary fighter. A worried companion questions his plan to solve things with violence. The white-haired boy curtly denies having any sinister intentions. The observant girl points at the ornate weapon in the young man's grasp, questioning his intentions. Still, he casually defends his cruelty, golden weapon propped on his shoulder. He firmly proclaims his unchangeable personal creed. Instead, he vows his hatred outweighs any gratitude as the woman leaves. A lonely girl sleeps at her desk, mumbling complaints about someone's absence. Soon, several covered wagons pull up in front of the cathedral. A young woman fixes her strap while studying her companion's troubled face. A woman clenches her fists, holding back tears in silence. An eccentric man hugs the sword obsessively, annoying the companion below. The skeptical girl and the large white beast argue heatedly about the suspicious demonic sword. Finally, a lone traveler turns around, hearing someone call from the quiet street. The girl accuses her companion of ignoring her for another. The swordsman struggles to explain as an angry ally interrupts with lightning. The woman clutches her chest and prepares to reveal a crucial truth. Meanwhile, a watchful person stops, sensing something familiar. The girl suddenly yells in the street, overwhelmed. The protagonist freezes when an unexpected touch shocks him. Then the group stares as someone recalls from an embarrassing revelation. A man tries calming things, but the woman blames him. A gloved ally gently pats the shy girl's head. The apologetic figure admits fault and quietly asks for forgiveness, while the embarrassed companion reacts with shy acceptance. A passerby calls a traveler, startling the nearby group. A confident stranger steps forward, introducing himself boldly in the glaring light. A new armored partner greets them and confirms the escort job. The negotiator downplays worries as just a trading company leak. An armored herald announces the group's arrival to the town. Two young women stand while a huge beast carrying passengers watches. An armored traveler greets, but a distant woman coldly rejects him. The startled observer's eyes widen as he suddenly notices something unexpected. The bald figure reacts with astonished joy as radiant light bursts behind him. Finally, a viewer stares upward, entranced by the brilliant display. 3 guards escort a covered wagon along a forest path. The observer sits quietly on a bench, commenting on the uneventful nature of the human world compared to the chaos of demons. A white-haired figure confronts a girl, who desperately begs for help. The confused girl grabs the man's hair, staring at him. Nearby, a dark enemy appears as a terrified person clings to another. Armed bandits block the road, and someone in the wagon screams. A campfire burns steadily, flames consuming the stacked logs. One figure bows an apology while the other dismisses the concern with a casual gesture under the night sky. The man sits by the campfire at night, warmly reminiscing about the joys of fatherhood and his daughter's first words. He then questions whether her current behavior is truly for the best. The energetic girl launches a playful attack as 2 mystical felines lounge nearby, one watching with amusement, while the other holds a kitten. A serious stranger starts talking, claiming their meeting is fated. A determined fighter firmly grabs the glowing bottle. The bald man cheerfully offers a glass of alcohol to his companion under the night sky. At night, an armored warrior gives a glowing bottle, explaining it can block dragons. A nervous youth awkwardly offers a drink, spilling some while joking. Anxious, someone clutches an object tightly while standing in the dark. By the campfire, the group prepares drinks and eagerly awaits the warrior's tale to accompany their meal. A silver-haired warrior suddenly pauses, remembering something important. Alone at the fire, he remembers losing his father and starting his journey. 3 armored figures welcome the newcomer amid the flames. Surrounded by energy, he pauses after discovering a truth. A captive is trapped in a ring, hunted for lineage. The interrogator demands to know how he escaped. Suddenly, a playful voice interrupts the focused figure. The assertive woman demands attention from the aloof man, who continues to look away under the night sky. By the fire, a gloved ally offers a glowing drink. The girl starts to offer something, then freezes at his reaction. The fanged rival gloats over her foe and vows to regain power. Then the woman raises her prize, claiming it as hers. The girl defiantly drinks as the armored man shouts. He recalls a mercenary rescuing him and teaching a harsh lesson. The girl jolts up, crying out while gripping the can. By the fire, the stern man declares his creed to him. A scorched glowing book crashes to the ground amid flames. Soon, a cryptic warning echoes through the empty area. The panicked girl sees her hands and realizes her body changed. A gloved captor grabs the woman's arm, taking control. The calculating man forcefully pins his furious opponent to the ground as crackling embers swirl around them. Finally, a menacing voice warns them not to trust anyone. The challenger stares him down, demanding his agreement. The swordsman freezes as fiery sparks signal an incoming attack. Suddenly, a massive energy blast engulfs everything. The swordsman blocks a sudden strike, protecting the girl. The attacker presses blades together, asking when he was detected. With a defiant smirk, the challenger grips the glowing armored gauntlet and confronts his opponent head-on. The protector raises a glowing shield to guard his companion. An assailant pins the struggling girl to the ground. Meanwhile, a lone figure faces charging attackers in the forest. A confident affirmation echoes in the empty scene. The figure's eyes widen as he senses approaching danger. Next, everything rewinds back to the beginning. The fighter charges forward, releasing a blinding sword attack. He dashes between energy blades, narrowly avoiding each one. The furious attacker unleashes a devastating energy strike toward a hidden adversary. The fighter blocks the glowing strike with his dragon gauntlet. Soon after, the warrior releases a shockwave of blinding energy. The swordsman clashes violently with 2 armed attackers as more figures close in under the night sky. Hearing a shout, the wary figure turns quickly. The girl runs across the wasteland, fleeing an unseen pursuer. The guarded figure confronts a baffling scene as the anxious onlooker demands an explanation. The guardian shoves the girl ahead, ordering her to escape together. One girl is pushed back as the other insists on fighting alone. The swordsman calmly draws his glowing blade to engage. From the shadows, a voice promises the fight will soon end. 2 hostile figures brandishing knives confront their target, demanding an explanation with aggressive intent. The questioned ally answers steadily, meeting their glare without flinching. The interrogator presses closer, asking if the client's identity is off limits. Then the fighter lunges forward, unleashing a heavy blow with his golden weapon. Two masked attackers rush the cloaked figure with swords raised. The swordsman blocks a fierce strike, sparks flying from his blade. A hidden caster hurls flames while the two hide behind a glowing barrier. Meanwhile, the swordsman braces behind his glowing sword for the next assault. The protagonist jolts in shock as an unexpected revelation catches him off guard. He looks up, seeing glowing lights rapidly descending from above. The swordsman raises his glowing blade to withstand the falling firestorm. A fierce warrior summons a devastating barrage of meteors, engulfing the battlefield in explosive energy. The hooded fighter glares upward, preparing to face the oncoming attack. Still, the lone figure stands firm beneath the crashing energy blast. A colossal surge of energy crashes down, shattering the earth with electrifying force. Explosion tears landscape, obliterating everything. A colossal surge of destruction tears through the fractured terrain, sending clouds of dust and debris skyward. A red gold sword crashes down, blasting energy. A battered warrior kneels, gripping the glowing sword. A wounded onlooker notes the enemy's poor vision. The fighter charges, attacking with a glowing weapon. The swordsman descends and releases a devastating energy slash with his glowing blade. Despite being cornered, he unleashes a fierce energy surge. The energy slash crashes down, detonating in blinding light. A crimson-wreathed foe mocks his cautious opponent, provoking him. In response, the white-haired fighter unleashes a glowing sword strike. The warrior activates a vision, power surging from one eye. The swordsman swings, sending energy at the approaching foe. A devastating surge of energy bursts forth as a weapon unleashes its full power. Then the fighter channels energy into his arm, unleashing a technique. The lone swordsman unleashes a powerful golden energy slash from his weapon, cutting through the air with fierce intensity. Suddenly, a massive golden surge erupts, engulfing him. A cloaked combatant counterattacks with magical fire, stopping the advance. The warrior tightens his grip on the golden weapon, his gaze fixed and body poised to strike as energy surges around him. The swordsman finally unleashes a devastating glowing attack. Blades collide as the determined challenger and the fierce opponent engage in an explosive duel. Their swords keep clashing as both test each other's strength. The bald warrior hefts his massive sword and readies himself to launch a devastating attack. Suddenly, an enraged fighter fires a massive beam, ripping ground apart. Two armored fighters collide midair, swords sparking as they clash. The injured warrior forces himself forward through battle. Then, a new powerful presence appears with one commanding word. A shadowy figure activates a menacing special vision, filling the scene with tension. Soon after, he erupts with red energy, overwhelming the area. He descends, smashing the ground with a lightning weapon. A resolute figure enters, energy swirling as he advances. He bursts forward at blinding speed, sending a shockwave. The attacker drops from above, striking the massive red beast. The fighter fires a powerful blast at the towering red barrier. A huge red sphere slams into a warped golden barrier. The lone figure braces as a violent explosion erupts, scattering debris in every direction. Afterward, the armored figure stands firm amid the fading dust. Another violent energy surge detonates, engulfing the whole area. The fighter lunges, forming an energy sphere as an attack. Finally, the wounded combatant raises his arm to block the strike. The white-haired fighter is knocked back and badly wounded by a powerful blow. He swings his arm, launching a blinding energy blast at his opponent. Then the attacker descends with a massive radiant blade, unleashing a devastating strike. The lone warrior releases golden energy, asserting dominance from the hilltop. A gloved combatant thrusts his hand up to block the falling blade. The cloaked fighter looms over the kneeling foe, forcing surrender with crackling energy. The armored warrior raises his blade, preparing to clash as his enemy dives from above. The armored man kneels and begs before the silver-haired figure interrupts with shocking news. The wounded man concludes only one hostile faction could have hired this assassin. Suddenly, the exposed figure recoils in panic as their hidden identity is revealed. A lone observer grips a cursed sword while viewing the ruined land from a cliff. A young woman sprints to the slumped, bleeding man on the ground. The wounded one confronts the solemn figure, demanding why she was rejected and doubting his trust. Blood streams from the wounded one's eye as he endures sudden pain. One person verbally agrees, supporting the previous claim. The blue-haired girl clutches her chest, pleading desperately for everyone's safety. However, the wounded speaker forces out reassurance while bleeding and staring upward. The swordsman slashes his glowing blade into stone, sending energy surging forward. Later, the exhausted man lies in bed, silently staring at the ceiling. The wounded figure awakens on the ground, eyes wide with shock. The man sits up in bed, troubled by unresolved thoughts. The injured man jolts awake, shocked to find himself completely healed. A gloved caretaker warns him not to move recklessly. Suddenly, the patient recognizes an approaching figure with alarm. A mysterious voice addresses the warrior with an ominous greeting. The second prince sits confidently, calmly drinking his tea. 5 years earlier, the royal castle stands at night, beginning this conflict. An enraged official slams his fist on the table. The furious noble announces the Duke of Parthenon has been murdered. Amid argument, the council demands execution, but a defender insists he is innocent. The officer levels a grave accusation of criminal tyranny against the other figure. Then, a supporter praises the warrior's descendant for punishing evil. A young noble protests loudly, defending the slain duke's honor. The smug figure dismisses the group's claims with a confident smirk, showing no sign of doubt. The imposing prince demands to know who answers for Parthenon's crimes. The enraged man hurls a vicious insult at his brother, his voice trembling with resentment. The authoritative figure prepares to announce a new warrior pseudonym. A solitary figure sits by the window, silently contemplating. The cautious figure scans the unfamiliar surroundings, voicing confusion and demanding answers. The confident man hints at a request while revealing they have reached the border. A determined visitor knocks firmly, announcing their arrival. Someone slowly opens the door, cautiously peering inside. Soon after, the leader returns with the missing women. A calm onlooker sips tea, praising whoever manages the rowdy pair. The injured veteran admits the 5 great warriors' title was imposed. The relentless swordsman defends himself against a vicious onslaught, sparks and blood flying as steel meets steel. The white-haired fighter rejects emptiness and openly sides with the outcasts. A shocked man bolts upright in bed as a stern visitor speaks. The stern guardian issues a firm command, demanding respect for the prince. A brown-haired captor grabs her hostage and threatens the nearby beast. The swordsman whirls, glaring at the group while clutching his glowing blade. Suddenly, the alert figure turns as a gloved hand offers tea. The officer confronts the bedridden man, demanding to know if he still stands by his principles. Meanwhile, a mentor lectures about repaying debts while a companion kneels. A mocking enemy leans in and declares absolute hatred. A battered fighter pauses, silently renewing his determination to continue. A woman states her terms, demanding her ally reveal true intentions. The injured man sits up firmly and demands an official quest assignment. He reports that all his key supporters were assassinated. Finally, two officers confront a wounded person lying under a harsh light. The speaker suggests there is a deeper issue beyond what has been mentioned. Another person voices suspicion, increasing tension between them. Then, the speaker reveals others close to their sibling have the same problem. The pair stands over an unconscious person, cautiously examining them. Meanwhile, two armed attackers stand over their defeated opponent after the fight. The man asks if he must catch the culprit. The calm speaker reassures the others, emphasizing that only the essential matters. However, the masked one reveals the authorities secretly fear the listener. An executioner raises his weapon above a kneeling official to strike. The fierce contender's eyes blaze with newfound energy as he prepares to unleash his hidden power. The assertive leader confronts the group with a decisive ultimatum, demanding allegiance or threatening consequences. The confident speaker raises a gloved hand and proposes an additional challenge to solve the murder case. The man issues a strict 1-month ultimatum to the woman seated before him. A blonde officer enters as a silver-haired person watches silently. Next, the determined traveler announces their destination is the Holy City. He speaks firmly, making his determination clear to everyone. Suddenly, a watcher senses ominous energy signaling an unexpected threat. The interrogator leans in with a chilling smile, pressing the anxious man for answers as tension fills the air. The conversation shifts as one participant hesitantly suggests discussing their perspective. Finally, the enraged man rushes his betrayer as three beasts scatter. The man begs for mercy, claiming no one was harmed. Someone receives a playful bonk on the head, caught completely off guard. The usually collected figure reacts in fear, sweat forming as anxiety overwhelms him. The superior forbids harming anyone without her permission. The hero confronts an armored foe as three beasts appear. A taunting girl faces her opponent with a menacing grin. An enraged attacker rushes the man, announcing his punishment. The group leader restrains the furious companion, preventing an outburst. The girl vows to stop anyone being hurt because of her. The white-haired woman hesitates, unable to finish her sentence. The anxious girl clutches her chest, begging the knight to live. The injured boy demands a promise to depend on him in danger. The composed fighter smirks, clearly anticipating the next events. A calm ally gives a reassuring nod. Together, they make a firm vow that changes everything. The lone traveler guides his carriage along the dim forest road as dusk settles in. A golden-haired youth in finery meets someone's gaze. Meanwhile, the hero stops, suddenly sensing something unusual. A uniformed observer questions the nervous youth's status as a top hero. Finally, the speaker reveals the weapon was meant for political control. The smirking youth reveals he survived after killing a duke. A conflicted man hesitates over the letter's implications. Meanwhile, a gloved agent reads a note threatening a noble's death. She suspects her role was manipulated for someone's revenge. She urges him to risk everything to achieve ambition. The young man smirks while examining the torn envelope. Soon, someone remarks they are waiting for next month. A grand capital city sprawls beneath an imposing castle, its fortified gates and elegant gardens revealing the heart of a powerful kingdom. An onlooker gazes up at the towering stone wall. A traveler praises the city enduring despite past demonic chaos. Here, the guide explains the city has never fallen or lost treasures. The silver-haired man snaps at his slower companion. Then, the leader orders everyone to hurry toward the looming building. Three small creatures rest closely together on a soft surface, enjoying a peaceful moment. A distant man leaves while another harasses the worried woman. The anxious newcomer hesitates in the middle of the crowded street, feeling overwhelmed by the surge of people. The calm figure beside the muscular companion exhales deeply, expressing agreement and preparing for the challenge ahead. With a sharp snap of his fingers, the commanding figure sets a decisive action into motion. A mischievous girl proposes killing half the group beside the tiger. The two companions lean closer, shocked by what they see. The attacker grabs him by the collar, confronting him. The conflicted figure reluctantly agrees to hold back. At the market, a seller offers magic shoes to a demanding buyer. The desperate figure demands the miraculous herb from the merchant, but his request is firmly denied. Someone bluntly reveals the merchant's earlier deception. The girl sulks angrily, clearly annoyed by the situation. The annoyed girl puffs her cheeks in frustration, while her companion silently observes her behavior. The analyst pauses, suddenly struck by a new realization. The woman stops at a stall, considering which item to buy. The inquisitive man leans in, startling the flustered woman with a direct question about her intentions. A buyer shows a hairpin, asking the price. The merchant discounts it. A stern customer demands one item and insists on receiving another. Determined, he offers a glowing talisman to someone in the street. The shy girl stands in the bustling street, clutching a flower to her chest as she expresses heartfelt gratitude. Suddenly addressed, the woman startles and looks up. A young man is given an ornate pin, confused by the gift. Flustered, the girl clutches the glowing flower and loudly denies any feelings. A flower-shaped hairpin glows in the dark, hinting at upcoming events. Later, a woman hands over a precious item, saying it will matter someday. The stern figure forcefully halts the escalating conflict. The traveler stops before the ancient city's closed gates. While the burdened swordsman contemplates breaking his dangerous contract, his excited companion urges him to look at a possible solution she has discovered on the bustling street. The two girls hug, noticing their similar appearance. Alone, he considers breaking the barrier by force. Then a charming man greets the approaching women. The seated man rejects their proposal in front of everyone. The confident leader casually assigns the newcomer the responsibility of acting as a royal investigator. The composed youth admits his lack of skill and reassures his companion that he is only using the other's name. The cautious man delays the mission, doubting the other's readiness. Someone says they must disguise him due to a notorious reputation. The enigmatic figure reveals his ominous title as the Warrior of Doom. Suddenly, an eager voice shouts, shattering the silence. The confident man praises the woman's taste, making her smile. Cornered, the fighter extends his hand and triggers transformation. Later, a guest greets the composed woman at the ballroom. The officer scowls with impatience, criticizing the absent royal's lack of manners. The ruler delivers a harsh public condemnation from the throne, expressing disdain for the disrespect shown toward a brother-turned-enemy. The older man accuses the other of ruining his life's work. Frustrated, he blames another man for his own failures. Finally, the eldest daughter leaves the palace, abandoning the conquered realm. An attendant announces a royal's arrival to the gathered court. Then the newcomer strides through the doorway, loudly declaring himself. A shamed youth faces the council as accusations rain down. Soon another man arrives, apologizing and explaining he brought a guest. Inside, a man stares wide-eyed at something unexpected. The confident figure steps forward and prepares to reveal the arrival of an unknown individual. Elsewhere, an enraged man erupts, shouting in uncontrolled fury. The resolute figure strides into the scene with unwavering confidence. A feared executioner appears, shocking officials who recall the slain duke. Someone freezes as they suddenly realize a disturbing truth. A white-haired youth steps up, named the Warrior of Doom. In response, a panicked guard frantically calls for reinforcements. An enraged official immediately orders the accused noble's arrest. The accused stands alone in the hall, surrounded by armed guards. The silver-haired warrior coldly justifies killing the noble on the stairs. A swordsman readies his blade, preparing to strike. The swordsman unleashes a blinding, magical slash that tears through the darkness. He confronts the council, firmly defending every action. The stunned figure reels backward as a sudden burst of magical energy slams into his defense. The swordsman fires a sweeping blast, downing several airborne foes. A man is suddenly grabbed by the neck. The imposing man declares himself, making the onlooker recoil. The calm figure delivers a respectful salute, his intense gaze fixed ahead. The young man rushes to support the older figure as he suddenly collapses, coughing violently. A bearded man laughs loudly, radiating absolute confidence. The accuser then states the target's assassination was deliberate. A swordsman advances, ordering the shocked officers to retreat. A rumor begins to spread rapidly among the masses. The uneasy officer admits their actions share the same motivation as the others. A powerful patron of the eldest prince rivaled the throne's influence. The protagonist fixes a determined gaze forward, stressing the importance of a critical fact. Suddenly, a commanding leader orders the halted gathering to resume. A core truth is revealed, changing everyone's understanding. In the ballroom, guests gather, anticipating the main event. While the woman radiates confidence at the elegant gathering, her companion quietly scans the crowd for any hidden intentions. Nearby, an isolated observer watches the laughing group from afar. The lone man pauses, silently planning his next move. An ominous silence settles over the battlefield as rival nobles maneuver for dominance. A gloved hand tightly grips a cloak in resolve. The newcomer receives awkward congratulations from a companion, clearly unsure about his own success. The swordsman focuses, preparing to assess the situation. The older woman angrily demands answers about the unfair treatment as the small group stands together in a tense atmosphere. A sly man teases his companion about spreading rumors. Later, an assertive figure accuses an uneasy man of starting a false rumor. The white-haired man spins in alarm at a sudden disturbance. One ally grips another's shoulder and declares a new beginning. Elsewhere, the advisor urges making a stronger impression to attract more nobles. A troubled member voices concern over the group's indifference to death. The alert figure whirls around in shock as the anxious girl hiccups fearfully behind him in the ornate hallway. The anxious girl hides in a corner, struggling not to cry. An exasperated onlooker makes a sarcastic remark and refuses to help. The confident figure surveys the ornate room while a reassuring voice signals to the group that the situation appears safe. A stunned spectator shouts that the true warrior of doom has arrived. A crowd of youngsters swarms the white-haired man, pelting him with questions. The small group faces a towering authority in the grand hall. A disembodied voice coldly asks if the subordinate is a burden. A young woman smirks and makes a mocking gesture. The younger man shouts in disbelief at the older woman's claim. The confident leader teases her companion while boasting about her subordinate's loyalty in the ornate room. A cautious member warns that even small mistakes could be dangerous. Then, a stern ally stands behind her, declaring this the decisive moment. The startled girl freezes, her wide eyes and sweat drop betraying sudden discomfort. Three youngsters bolt across the ornate hall while the stern figure watches in silence. Their leader sighs, frustrated that the youngsters misunderstand him. He strides toward the entrance, determined to go inside. The lone figure stands on the balcony, silently gazing at the crescent moon and stars above. Exhausted, the fighter stops to catch his breath outside. A curious woman asks if they should just avoid the monsters. A regal figure is introduced before the illuminated palace garden, exuding calm confidence. A composed man bows to the princess and introduces himself. A mysterious woman in a shimmering dress steps forward to greet the cautious warrior, closing the distance between them. Frustrated, an onlooker admits leaving out of exasperation and confronts him. Two people stand apart, unwilling to say what they feel. The aloof figure questions the other's motivations as one woman turns away and the other remains watchful by the ornate doorway. The composed figure adjusts his collar beneath the night sky, breaking the silence with a cold statement. The bold woman closes in under the night sky, making a provocative invitation to her stoic counterpart outside the mansion. The sly woman leans forward with a playful smile, teasing her companion with a provocative question. A stern speaker spreads a damaging rumor about a notorious woman. Suddenly, someone speaks up, doubting the royal decision. An aloof observer delivers a sharp, cutting remark. Two allies stand back to back outside the building, tense. A noblewoman confronts her companion about seeking power. The uneasy woman voices her doubts about fitting in, while the silent figure listens beside her on the balcony. An onlooker realizes the princess is uncomfortable here. The challenger questions how someone so weak could inherit. Meanwhile, a composed woman surveys the city, wondering why anyone comes here. An enforcer steps forward, stating anyone unwilling to comply may leave. The stern figure warns her silent opponent that resistance will only bring prolonged struggle. Alone, a figure stands on the balcony, thinking. The challenger confronts the royal figure with a pointed question. The soft-spoken figure quietly voices hope for a possibility as both stand apart under the night sky. The silver-haired guest politely ends the talk and steps away. A bold woman teasingly challenges the nearby warrior before leaving. The lone figure pauses in silence behind the ornate gate, lost in thought beneath the starry sky. The lone figure silently surveys the glowing scene ahead beneath the vast night sky. A cautious figure eyes the doorway, wondering if it hides the rumored place. An exhausted person slumps over the table, trying to recover. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoes down the corridor. A young woman is grabbed by someone unseen and screams. An annoyed swordsman grabs his companion and scolds her disobedience. A woman accuses a man of cheating, and he reacts confused. The unfazed figure restrains the flustered girl by pulling her ears while the quiet observer watches in surprise. The composed noble leans forward and inquires if anyone is familiar with Albert Frederick. The swordsman recalls the reputation of one of the 5 great warriors while reflecting in the moonlit room. 5 legendary champions are known as the continent's strongest warriors. A nervous messenger starts delivering disturbing orders from an unknown superior. Suddenly, a system notice appears, announcing a duel challenge. An onlooker recoils in shock as something alarming happens nearby. The leader cuts through the chaos, commanding everyone's attention as the distressed girl covers her ears beside a watchful companion and a towering beast. The determined ally pushes a panicked companion toward the window, ordering an immediate escape. A desperate man shouts defiance as his worried companion stays behind him. During the duel, a fighter briefly stops to question the opponent's motives. The tense figure hesitates before voicing a critical question, suspicion clear in his uneasy gaze. Someone demands information about a certain man's identity. A white-haired youth stands alone, struggling to stay composed. A gruff swordsman complains that he dislikes traveling with younger companions. An armored warrior eats by the fire, grumbling about loud companions. The man by the fire expresses scorn for those he deems weak and wasteful. A blonde woman smirks, admitting she likes children from prestigious warrior families. The assertive woman challenges the group by the campfire, demanding confirmation. The silver-haired captive is forced face down and restrained. The calculating woman discusses the high price the captive is expected to fetch, confidently gesturing as her helpless prize lies bound behind her. The prisoner lies bound, watching a shadowy figure above. The captor leans close, enjoying the captive's muffled protests. A gloved interrogator looms over her, demanding an answer. The startled man whips his head around, reacting instantly to an unexpected disturbance behind him. The battered fighter staggers as a heavy blow hits his head. Yet the injured warrior forces himself forward, refusing to stop. The larger attacker kicks the captive aside, sending her sprawling. Afterward, the beaten fighter lies defeated as his bloodline is revealed. An armored ally sternly warns a fallen companion after the ambush. Sword raised, the enraged man threatens to kill them all. The swordsman suddenly freezes as a shocking realization hits. Meanwhile, a written threat hangs over everything in blood-red letters. The bruised fighter reels as another vicious punch smashes his face. The armored youth demands to know how the enemy will kill them. Later, the annoyed man scolds his ally for reckless overconfidence. A mocking opponent belittles her rival, radiating smug confidence. A brutal stomp grinds the white-haired captive's face into the floor. Finally, the victor pins his foe with a boot, coldly challenging him. Someone claims the newcomer is stronger than all demons. The swordsman tenses, sensing sudden danger above him. A cloaked attacker drops down, confronting the lone defender. Then the swordsman charges, their blades crashing together. Another cloaked foe ambushes him, forcing a desperate defense. 3 armored fighters recall as a giant's foot slams down. Meanwhile, the pursuer recalls crawling for days to chase them. A smug fighter casually brandishes a glowing weapon. The speaker steps forward and confidently declares his identity to the audience. The pursuer, sword in hand, confronts the group and issues a single request. The aggressor orders them to hand over the captive to be killed. In response, the negotiator leans in and proposes a tempting deal. An axe crashes into the tree trunk, sending leaves flying. The uneasy figure leans casually against the tree, flinching as a knife lands inches from his head. 2 armed allies confront an enemy while one issues a warning. Thus the confident leader agrees to proceed with the plan. A lone fighter battles 3 armored opponents at once. A massive weapon strikes, causing an explosion that engulfs everything. 3 armored warriors ready themselves for the next clash. The panicked fighter shouts for help as his ally urgently prepares a glowing staff to cast a spell. A figure silently moves in for an attack from the shadows while the panicked opponent struggles to see. Cornered, the fighter unleashes sudden resolve despite his injuries. The mage raises her staff and summons a glowing orb. The swordsman stands over the fallen opponent, while the mage unleashes a brilliant spell from behind. Impaled by a yellow blade, the woman still taunts her attacker. The enraged fighter shouts a lethal threat and orders an ally to provide cover. The swordsman, gripping his weapon tightly, shouts in sudden realization, while his mentor offers encouragement from behind. With fierce determination, the swordsman unleashes a devastating energy slash. The injured fighter barely blocks the burning magical blade. The 2 swordsmen clash repeatedly, each trying to overpower the other. Their weapons crash together, sending sparks between the fighters. Afterward, the battered man readies his sword for another serious fight. The swordsman blocks a furious strike, defiance burning in his eyes. An unsuspecting man is struck in the head, spraying blood. The swordsman stays tense, braced for the next move. The wounded survivor dodges a lethal blow at the last moment. The injured fighter clutches his bleeding eyes as energy crackles around him. Finally, the fighter's glowing strike overwhelms his already bloodied enemy. The stoic man surveys the wounded figure lying motionless after the battle. The swordsman braces himself and prepares to deliver a decisive blow. A fierce surge of energy courses through the young man's eye as hidden power awakens within him. A devastating explosion engulfs the area, scattering flames and debris in every direction. The mage stands amid flames, channeling intense magic. A lone survivor stands amid the remaining flames. The mage staggers as a burning monster collapses below. A companion relaxes, relieved to have narrowly survived. The leader praises an ally while displaying a golden dagger. A startled mage braces with her staff as a wall of fire erupts between her and a shadowy foe. A panicked woman recoils while a man hesitates with weapon. The white-haired fighter is struck from behind and staggered. A crazed captor holds a hostage at knife point, demanding surrender. With a heavy sigh, the swordsman tightens his grip on the glowing blade and resigns himself to the challenge ahead. A giant grabs the radiant weapon, making 2 onlookers recoil. The attacker lunges forward, reaching desperately for the glowing weapon. The determined figure charges forward and hurls a surge of green energy at the radiant golden barrier. The protagonist snaps his head around, sensing sudden danger. A A captive and armored foe lie defeated together. The injured woman hurriedly checks whether the younger girl is safe. A lone survivor carves paper strips, planning survival. The survivor brushes off his injuries while the companion quietly reflects on the difficulty of their recent opponent. Meanwhile, the mercenary pats the rescued person's head during introductions. A sly comrade demands repayment with interest, shocking his companion. The swordsman grips his glowing sword and declares unwavering conviction. He clutches his weapon, vowing to repay their kindness twice over. Then a surge of resentment grows, foreshadowing future vengeance. A full year passes without major incident. Skewers sizzle over the campfire as the meal cooks. Meanwhile, the cook proudly inspects a perfectly grilled skewer. The reserved figure nervously touches his cheek while downplaying the situation, clearly flustered. An older traveler admits his fading strength while they sit quietly by the fire. A blue-haired man silently reflects while sucking on a lollipop. By the campfire, the candy eater defends his habit while his companion voices concern about his health. By the campfire, the blunt one warns against eating too many sweets while the curious companion teases about his odd reputation. The younger one protests being baited, and the other just teases him. 5 figures sit together in a quiet tavern, preparing for an important strategy discussion. A burning barrel crashes down and sends flames across the room. An excited reveler raises a drink and shouts in celebration. A supportive figure extends an invitation to another to join in. An exasperated man explains to his confused friend that this is just a restaurant. So the energetic cook suggests she plates while her partner focuses on cooking. He quietly reviews the document, considering the earlier advice. The unsettled onlooker stares in disbelief, struggling to understand the other's erratic behavior. Suddenly, a gloved man slams down a newspaper revealing a ruined family. An influential warrior clan is introduced as central to upcoming events. An investigator reaches the mansion tied to a vital missing case. There, 3 investigators examine incriminating documents, preparing to expose a dangerous conspiracy. Flames engulf the mansion while burning papers scatter into the night. The narrative reveals innocence destroyed by fabricated accusations. Meanwhile, a girl urgently tells a boy to pack, surprising him. He warns that staying means rivals will soon find and kill them. 2 figures dash urgently through the shadowy forest, pushing onward under the cover of night. The uneasy leader signals a retreat through the shadowy forest while the uncertain companion questions the destination. The leader promises to guide the group to the safest place on the continent, exuding unwavering confidence. Then, 2 runners enter the forest, chased by a blinding flash. A protector blocks a sword strike, shielding his staggering companion. Realizing pursuers are close, he tenses, ready to confront them. Several masked attackers spring from the shadows, one brandishing a knife. Obediently, the follower moves after the imposing leader's command. The leader advances with a glowing sword, telling the others to stay close. A fierce fighter unleashes an aerial energy strike at a cloaked enemy. The swordsman locks blades with the hooded enemy. The blue-haired fighter blocks a sudden sword strike. Then their weapons clash, releasing a blinding energy burst. The swordsman blocks an attack while shouting to his ally. Suddenly, masked attackers descend from above, forcing him back. Blades collide as both combatants unleash a surge of energy that bursts outward. The cloaked intruder smashes through the magical barrier with a single, powerful strike. A masked attacker raises a sword as 2 defenders brace. The mentor barks orders while the trainee fumbles during practice. The alert pair swiftly evades a sudden ambush by giant monsters near a towering tree in the darkness. The young man barely dodges a passing glowing blade. Someone issues a warning about multiple approaching enemies. The strategist, radiating fierce determination, urges his allies to leverage the battlefield to gain an upper hand. The swordsman delivers a crushing blow that overwhelms his foe. The lone figure taunts the remaining assailants while brandishing a knife, standing over 2 defeated opponents as the others hesitate. The swordsman plants his weapon into the ground, staring down his opponent with unwavering defiance. The fighter unleashes a swift slash with his glowing blade. Then an enraged assailant charges, shouting an accusation. A sharp-tongued woman mocks her wary companion as they proceed. A figure unleashes a surge of dark energy, eyes glowing fiercely amid the swirling shadows. The lone swordsman surveys the aftermath, standing over the bloodied body with his weapon still in hand. The wounded woman realizes too late they were ambushed. The injured fighter gathers power and challenges his enemy. A harsh voice demands to know where the child is. A famed steel knight of 5 realms is introduced. An anxious man sits bowed, struggling under rising pressure. The secretive figure bares his fangs, tension crackling in the ominous silence. An armored warrior kills his opponent with a single blow. Meanwhile, an elder prepares to deliver a grave warning. 2 armored rivals face off at the table, either yielding. The silver-haired man reveals the identity of his only son. The armored fighter tried reuniting with family to gain strength against their enemy. A stern elder demands why the accused caused his son's death. The protagonist stands cornered while the other side demands an answer. The remorseful figure lowers his head in apology as a stern man stands over him. Suddenly, a determined man interrupts, ready to challenge the discussion. The resolute speaker vows to reveal the story of the companion who once stood beside him. The resolute negotiator insists specific conditions must be fulfilled. Meanwhile, an armored elder warns the dark warrior not to risk his son. The crowd gathers as competitors enter the sunlit arena, eyeing the array of weapons and bracing for the tournament to begin. A boastful fan claims their knight is unbeatable. A tense question hangs in the air, casting doubt on someone's true identity. Spectators crowd the arena, eyes fixed on the field as the judges prepare for the contest to begin. A stern man glares, warning his target to stay alert. A cheerful brother tries to encourage his worried sibling. An enraged officer snarls, struggling to contain his anger. Then a strict officer orders silence, seizing the arena's attention. A determined man is escorted upstairs by 2 guards. A weary officer slumps in the grand chair, defeated. An old fighter stares ahead, silently bracing himself. Someone studies a flower, wondering why their companion still hasn't come. The imposing figure on the throne dismisses the offer with a curt wave. The figure with a commanding presence redirects the group's focus to a more pressing matter. A supporter in the crowd loudly praises the nation's celebrated hero. Suddenly, a threatening enemy steps from the shadows. The infamous swordsman steps out, his reputation startling the spectators. A determined contender enters the lit arena as their name is called. With steady resolve, the newcomer steps into the radiant hall. The challenger and the towering foe face off, battle imminent. Finally, an intruder approaches the armored guard in the tense courtyard. Someone reacts with shock to an unexpected turn of events. A figure seated on the throne demands an explanation from the kneeling subordinate. An armored fighter grabs the white-haired man's head unexpectedly. The armored knight kneels, ready to deliver urgent news. The stern superior demands regret for fighting a subordinate. Then the armored elder requests a penalty to equalize the duel. The challenger vows to accept defeat and fulfill any request if the opponent's sword lands a hit. The resolute figure demands that another serve as witness to the unfolding events. The younger officer fiercely challenges the elder, who silently contemplates his response. The anxious figure urgently calls out to someone off-panel, heightening the tension. The stern officer delivers a sharp reprimand, silencing the subordinate with a pointed gesture. The armored subordinate kneels, pledging complete obedience to his superiors. The challenger demands if the troubled man truly accepts this result. The calm figure closes his eyes and announces his satisfaction in the sunlit, ornate room. Then the armored challenger demands an all-out fight. A warning sets a condition for what happens next. Meanwhile, the masked fighter lunges, unleashing power from his blade. The armored warrior activates his enchanted chest plate as golden light flares. Finally, he inhales, ready to reveal something crucial. The swordsman grips his two blades, bracing for the clash. A determined fighter asks the other for power, forming an alliance. The blue-haired girl quietly hugs her cat companion. A cunning ally tests his resolve until the other hastily agrees. The anxious girl clasps her hands around the glowing pendant and offers her power to the swordsman. The swordsman expresses gratitude to the eager girl while a quiet observer stands nearby, holding a black cat. Clutching a black cat plush, the shy girl pushes herself to act. Meanwhile, the fighter steadies behind his glowing blade, gathering power for the next move. The swordsman releases a massive glowing slash wrapped in icy energy. The warrior hurls a concentrated energy surge forward from his blade. He slams his blade into the ground, sending ice spikes racing ahead. A solitary observer stands transfixed as colossal crystal shards crash down from above. A masked defender braces behind a huge shield, blocking a blazing spell. The swordsman swings hard, shattering the incoming ice projectiles. The masked warrior counters, sending an energy charge slash hurtling forward. The steadfast fighter deflects a lethal glowing strike. In response, the swordsman unleashes another devastating glowing attack. His blinding slash overpowers the enemy's crimson blade. The lone figure releases a powerful surge of magical energy, shrouded in swirling darkness. A defender shelters behind an enchanted shield as a devastating slash slams into it. Finally, the swordsman sends a devastating red slash crackling across the battlefield. The swordsman channels a massive burst of energy beneath the swirling vortex, preparing to unleash a devastating attack. Meanwhile, a fighter releases overwhelming energy amid the swirling light. An attacker dives downward, striking at the shielded defender. Then, a determined warrior charges forward with a powerful strike. The fighter strains, raising his arms to release energy. The swordsman blocks a devastating blow from his radiant foe. An agile combatant twists midair, barely avoiding the red attack. An armored fighter tanks a green projectile to the helmet. However, the defender blocks an aerial strike, weapons clashing hard. The swordsman staggers back, shocked by a sudden revelation. Moments later, he reels as blinding light engulfs him. An armored combatant channels power and fires a blinding blast. The battered man collapses in the ruins, clearly defeated. An armored figure cuts in sharply, energy crackling around him. He releases overwhelming pressure, radiating intense power outward. A firm declaration breaks the lingering silence. An armored, white-haired warrior steps forward, drawing the crowd's focus. The injured man struggles up, clutching his wounds on the ground. Still defiant, the wounded fighter glares upward through blood. The looming adversary urges the weakened man to surrender and merge. She extends her hand, forcing a crucial choice. The resolute figure vows to annihilate any being, even a deity, for the one he serves. The battered figure forces himself up from the blood-stained ground, eyes blazing with stubborn defiance. The survivor declares the job done as another watches stunned. Now, he looks back, signaling the true trial begins. A desperate companion shouts to stop the battered fighter as he ignores her and walks away. He holds a blade to the enemy's throat, confronting him. She quietly realizes her own body hides unused power. Meanwhile, the armored challenger readies sword and shield against a giant foe. The armored fighter issues a command that abruptly stops everything. The injured man staggers forward through darkness, still pressing on. He gathers crackling blue energy in his hand to attack. The resolute figure raises the rune-etched staff, channeling blue energy to initiate a full revelation of another's life. The leader raises his glowing sword and orders his ally forward. The warrior floods his sword and eye with overwhelming power. The white-haired mage releases freezing fog that fills the area. However, the armored man fears this magic could blind him. A masked foe with glowing green eyes appears, radiating threat. The armored warrior channels eyes through his blade, unleashing a devastating strike. Finally, a brute shatters the ice barrier with one massive swing. A visor crackles with energy, warning of incoming danger. A blazing attack slams into the armored warrior's body. He blocks a radiant sword with his shield, barely holding. Meanwhile, a legendary sword appears, glowing and drawing all attention. A coordinated strike hits from all sides, obscuring visibility. The swordsman swings, releasing a surge of magic. The armored commander issues a sharp order to attack from the newly formed square. The strategist intently evaluates the opponent's shifting tactics, recognizing the effectiveness of the new approach. Soon after, a fighter dives and attacks the massive glowing cross. The swordsman's eyes blaze with manic energy as a dark presence erupts around him. Suddenly, explosive energy rips through the barrier, blasting debris outward. The battered fighter braces behind his shield, enduring the aftermath of a fierce blow as the crowd watches in silence. The armored man exhales, steadying himself for the next clash. Soon, blood splashes on the ground, marking a brutal turn. Low on mana, the swordsman adopts an unorthodox fighting style. The armored fighter withstands a surge of mana without yielding. Wounded, he clenches his jaw and refuses to submit. Finally, the swordsman admits hiding the truth while gripping his blade. He charges and strikes with the glowing sword amid bursting energy. A huge explosion erupts, shattering the ground and hurling debris. A blinding torrent of golden energy crashes down from the eclipse, engulfing the lone figure as power surges through the battlefield. A glowing warrior crashes through the ceiling with a shield. The armored fighter swings his sword, firing a destructive energy wave. The exhausted warrior spends his last strength on a massive energy slash. The lone silhouette reels as a devastating strike lands, sending blood spraying across the crimson backdrop. From the dark, a hidden foe reveals a glowing green eye. The wounded fighter swings his sword fiercely, blood spraying as he pushes through the pain. The determined warrior unleashes an overwhelming burst of energy. A massive shockwave rips through the battlefield, hurling debris aside. The resolute fighter lifts his blade to block a killing blow. The injured warrior counters, driving a devastating strike with his glowing sword. The swordsman quickly adjusts his stance, readying a counterattack. A magical surge blasts through the shattered barrier, consuming everything ahead. Suddenly, jagged ice erupts around the swordsman, catching him off guard. The veteran realizes the enemy was freezing the ground with every strike. A newcomer stomps into the area, announcing his arrival. The unyielding swordsman clashes blades with the armored opponent in a heavy swing. One figure prepares to reveal a secret location. An elder recognizes in the child a feature of his missing child. At last, the wounded man faces his advancing foe amid crackling energy. Someone admits the child once showed surprising intelligence. An explosion erupts, shaking everything and obscuring sight. The relentless attacker launches a fierce flying kick, slamming his opponent into the ground and scattering debris everywhere. The white-haired fighter dives toward his shadowy opponent. The white-haired fighter is slammed and dragged across ground. Meanwhile, the lone fighter stands in the ruined arena. A young woman grips her umbrella sword, noticing a disturbance. The man freezes upon hearing she has vanished. The startled figure recoils as a sharp object suddenly threatens him. A group erupts in loud cheers, fists raised high as excitement fills the air. A bloodied older man laughs mockingly at his enemy. He suddenly grabs her wrist, catching her off guard. Elsewhere, a tired leader stands before the captured castle. The wounded elder looks down and confirms the truth. He then rushes forward with determined strides. A panicked messenger bursts in and warns two officers. An injured swordsman struggles up again, using his weapon for support. An empty street lies silent, suggesting trouble is approaching. The tense figure clutches his chest and turns away, visibly distressed. Finally, a calm man waits as a white-haired opponent approaches. He looks up and confronts the approaching person. The worn figure lowers his gaze and responds with reluctant agreement. Someone asks if the object they are seeking is here. With determination, the resolute figure and the supportive companion step toward the ornate gate, ready to enter. A tense silence fills the dim hallway as dust drifts in the stale air. The alert figure observes the surroundings while the stoic companion leads them forward in tense silence. He suddenly realizes something important as he stares ahead. Afterward, the winner stands over the defeated enemy. The stern figure corners the anxious woman in the shadowy library, tension crackling between them. The investigator notes a long sword was used and the body is unusually clean. The investigator closely examines the scene, noting only a sword wound and no other signs of resistance. The onlooker realizes the criminal's overwhelming strength after failing to resist. In a dimly lit room, the analyst and the skeptic exchange theories about the suspect's possible connection to the victim. A hidden attacker stabs a well-dressed man in the back. The cloaked man asks who seems suspicious, admitting he initially suspected another person. Later, the detective realizes the latest crime mirrors an unsolved case, including weapon and blood evidence. A frightened person sees a bloody blade and notices an inscription on the wall. He states his suspicion that someone is exploiting the spreading rumors. Now, a cloaked warrior stands before the nobles, declaring judgment on them. A menacing figure levitates two victims with red energy, asserting control over them. The irritated figure glares into the distance, demanding to know who is responsible for spreading the false rumor. A playful one flashes a peace sign, teasing his companion. Meanwhile, the eye-patched man says one noble faction remains unharmed. A calculating observer silently studies the developing situation. Several members are exposed as renegades who withdrew their support. A determined man walks the hall while someone watches from behind. Soon, a determined visitor knocks on the grand door. A cautious face peers through the cracked door, quietly observing. A stern officer stares him down, demanding an explanation. The cautious man stands firm, confronting the imposing stranger. An armored fighter receives praise for victory as another silently watches. Then, a calm voice ends the formalities, changing the mood. A welcoming voice inside invites the visitor to enter. A stern guard blocks the doorway, making the onlooker stop. 3 people sit at a table, silently sizing each other up. A severe interrogator confronts the newcomer about the murder of 2 influential allies during the previous night. The officer states that, unlike the others killed, only you survived. The officer confronts the defector in the library, sharply accusing him of betrayal. The cornered man glares back, angrily denying the accusation. Finally, the speaker leans in and asks a direct, challenging question. With a burst of anger, the aggressor forcefully seizes the other's arm. Then the officer rushes in, claiming the fallen ally has completely changed. A stern man stands, warning them while holding his sheathed sword. A calm fighter swiftly disarms and knocks back his armed opponent. The aggressor drives his fist into his opponent's face, unleashing a brutal impact. The determined fighter charges forward and lands a crushing blow. He narrows his eyes, preparing for the next move. Soon the stronger fighter strikes, smashing the armored enemy to the ground. The leader steps forward, firmly raising a gloved hand to halt the escalating argument. A bearded man suspiciously questions him about the recent death. The brooding figure sits in silence, lost in heavy contemplation. The guarded man glances sharply over his shoulder at the wary figure behind him, tension crackling in the air. The enraged hero meets the enemy's gaze, ready to clash. Someone demands to know if he was just another person's pawn. Afterward, a lone man stops and looks back, deciding to face what awaits. A white-haired figure silently watches outside through the window. A cautious figure extends a gloved hand toward the door's metal handle, preparing to enter. A tired traveler steps into the doorway and quietly says he is back. A cheerful girl greets the returning man as her serious ally and a beastman watch. The protagonist steps forward with a smug expression, confidently addressing the other person. The flustered girl quickly tries to explain herself as the amused figure confronts her with a teasing remark. The young woman staggers, prompting the 2 onlookers behind her to question her sudden weakness. Meanwhile, she realizes her sibling might be disappointed and awkwardly reacts. She insists she is useful while the silver-haired man listens silently. The teasing girl raises her arms and claims she is not disappointed. The cheerful man suggests they finally head outside after being indoors for a while. The group eagerly agrees to go out together, their excitement filling the room. An annoyed girl clenches her fists and complains about an infuriating man. Meanwhile, several rats scurry between cleaning supplies in a dark storeroom. A weary figure slumps against the cracked wall of an alley, sheltering in exhaustion as a rat perches atop his hood. At a cave entrance, one person demands to know why the other keeps visiting. The confident guide casts a knowing glance over his shoulder, hinting that the city's true nature will soon be revealed in this underground area. Their leader moves first, leading the group toward the cave entrance. The party advances down a dim corridor beside the water, cautiously watching for threats. Suddenly, a determined fighter stomps into view, splashing water with a heavy step. An impatient companion demands to know where they are going. Then the watcher looks back as a glowing feather drifts closer. A calm fighter catches the incoming sword between gloved fingers, stopping the strike. A dagger-wielding intruder advances, but a guardian steps in front to block the way. The wary leader brandishes his weapon and demands answers from the unfamiliar group. The silver-haired visitor demands to see the guild master to buy information. The swordsman tightens his grip on the blade and angrily dismisses the intruder's demand. The negotiator raises a hand, insisting they only want to speak with the guild master. Soon the furious attacker lunges forward, throwing a punch at the armored opponent. The young man squeezes his eyes shut, struggling to control his emotions. The stronger fighter slams his opponent into the ground with crushing force. The wounded fighter staggers backward, overwhelmed by sudden pain. Amid the flames, the furious woman charges the cloaked figure with her blade. Suddenly, a determined rescuer dashes in and yanks the girl out of danger. The enraged assailant rushes the calm stranger, who still blocks his path. The battered man reels as a brutal strike crashes into his face. The figure stomps the ground, releasing a crackling wave of energy. The lone victor faces the trembling trio, demanding their next challenger. Then the leader steps forward, signaling the tense standoff is ending. As the group moves down the dim hallway, the defiant figure asserts his toughness while the one behind him stretches and yawns, and the observer remains silent. Meanwhile, the grinning schemer hints at a plan spanning from castle heights to hidden depths. A commanding host in dark glasses welcomes newcomers to the guild's underground hideout. The lone figure climbs the silent stairs toward the shadowed door above. 3 youngsters eat dessert, while an older watcher observes from behind a cluttered desk. 2 associates note it has been 5 years since their last mansion deal. An older man says 5 years is enough to change. The young man hesitates at the table, quietly admitting his uncertainty about how to change. His opponent asks how he can eat despite those worries. A wary girl takes another bite when urged to eat. The man sits in the dim room and prepares to reveal his motive. The visitor presents a dossier, seeking to buy information on its people. The interrogator demands details about the accused rumored condemnations. The skeptic lowers his gaze and sharply questions the claim. Still, the speaker wonders if the rumor is true since many believe it. The informant opens the dossier and prepares to share crucial details about the target group. A fighter with a bandaged hand slams the ground, causing a shockwave. In an alley, someone studies wanted posters about the criminal underworld. Later, one confronts another, saying all victims' petitions were rejected. A strategist declares only one person can handle this mission. A caped figure steps forward, drawing the armored attendant's attention. The leader says Fias's arrival means the powerless have no hope. A dominant fighter stomps down, brutally crushing his foe. Someone asks what will really happen if they defeat the enemy. Meanwhile, a wary observer pauses, trying to decode the puppet's message. The inquisitive figure leans forward, pressing for an answer while the other silently examines the scattered evidence between them. The confident speaker deduces that the mysterious item belongs to the third prince, causing the older companion to silently contemplate this revelation. The determined visitor receives crucial information from the scholarly elder and prepares to leave the study. The resolute figure steps forward, announcing his decision as the others react with surprise and curiosity. The stern figure sits in deep thought, silently weighing his next move. Then the stern advisor demands a plan against the rising threat. The hooded enforcer vows to deliver judgment before night ends. A majestic tower, adorned with a family crest, rises against the starlit sky. Inside, a lone person lies resting quietly on the bed. He stomps the ground, releasing a burst of energy. Suddenly, a hooded intruder enters and approaches the unconscious occupant. The dominant figure looms over the defenseless one, sword poised to strike. A new assailant dashes in and ambushes the sword-bearing guard. The swordsman clashes blades with his foe, weapon sparking violently. Meanwhile, the warrior warns of an assassination attempt, brandishing his glowing sword. The cloaked fighter swiftly dodges an incoming strike. Startled, he grips his sword and reacts to the attack. The agile combatant narrowly avoids a lethal swing from the armored enemy. The observer critically assesses the opponent's sword technique, noting both its lack of depth and its effective execution. The hooded intruder blocks the exit, trapping the wary pair inside. Finally, a gigantic mass crashes down, sending a shockwave outward. A hooded figure falls from the ship outside. The frustrated leader commands the group to begin the chase as the vigilant ally stands ready in the snow. The startled man whips his head toward an unexpected disturbance in the dim room. Severed golden limbs lie among rubble, revealing a grisly find. Someone lifts the severed golden tail, confirming they obtained it. A fleeing intruder sprints down the glowing corridor. The cautious figure halts before the imposing doorway, tension thick in the air. The woman steadies herself, preparing for what awaits inside. Meanwhile, an officer scans the corridor, bracing for trouble. An attendant knocks on the grand door, asking to come in. She closes her eyes briefly, gathering her resolve. Inside, a composed person waits silently on the sofa. A graceful figure steps forward into the radiant scene, exuding calm amid the shower of light and blossoms. A voice from within calls for the visitor to enter. The inquisitive figure demands an explanation from the anxious woman, pushing for answers about the recent events. She bows her head, apologizing for what she did. The calm woman asks if the other's body is unharmed. Suddenly, a cloaked intruder bursts in, startling the blonde woman. The alarmed man grimaces and steels himself to face the attacker. The intruder taunts them, demanding they admit what they discovered. The confident protagonist offers gratitude to the royal guard with a casual gesture in the hallway. The guard draws his sword, blocking the noblewoman's path. The silver-haired man brings up the recent murders. The suspicious figure silently considers who could be responsible. Meanwhile, the protagonist wonders if something here is wrong. The smirking enemy threatens him as glowing vines surround them. During this, the real culprit appears as dark thorns erupt. The assertive woman confronts the silent figure in the doorway, demanding proof for his accusation. In reply, the calm figure hints he has solid evidence. The investigator notes the golden claw matches the guard and stabbing. The analytical figure unveils a golden, snake-shaped object as both observers await the promised method to identify the culprit. The strategist explains a tiger can track with one silk thread. The enraged woman raises her staff, trapping the accused. The swordsman orders the girl back, warning of danger. Suddenly, the subordinate panics as the cloaked figure ignores her. The host gestures to the sofa, inviting the guest to sit. The swordsman steps forward with resolve, signaling the group to proceed as his companions ready themselves in the sunlit hall. The cloaked stranger sits quietly, watching the room from shadow. The serious man demands their reason for assassinating nobles. The woman claims she only killed nobles she considered evil. The interrogator asks the real motive for attacking corrupt nobles. As the ceremony neared, two defiant figures drew the attention of the authorities, forcing the detached observer to acknowledge their disruptive behavior. A radiant figure appears amid swirling stars and magic. The young woman reveals she was nearly sold to nobles. The resolute speaker confronts the enemy, ignoring age and corruption. Kneeling alone, the prisoner is surrounded and contemplates her fate. Someone asks if the monarch really failed to notice. The wary woman leans forward, pressing the issue about the man they both call father. As tension thickens between them, the figure on the throne asserts dominance while those below submit in silence. Meanwhile, in a dark hall, a leader inspects two kneeling subordinates. A doubtful man wonders if someone as weak as him can help. The determined girl meets their eyes and clearly announces her decision. Disguised in an unflattering dress and hiding behind a calculated smile, the woman evades the noble's traps by accepting a new, strategic label. The intense figure raises a hand and sharply questions the relevance to the murder cases. The survivor confronts the swirling darkness, standing firm and revealing his experience among the powerful. The group huddles together as a menacing energy swirls around them, trapping them in place. Then the speaker lists the injustices committed by the disgraced nobles. Outside the mansion, a lone person debates staying or leaving. Instead, the woman says she will reshape this place since she cannot leave. A resolute leader unveils a powerful ally, stunning the opposition and rallying support to purge corrupt nobles. The seated accuser claims the other hides selfish motives behind pretty words. The blonde woman calmly admits the accusation is true. The man looks up, while the standing woman silently demands an explanation. Meanwhile, a kneeling subordinate bows before the observer as another person watches. The irritated fighter confronts the other, demanding an explanation for their actions. Now, the blonde admits her concern has shifted from personal survival to the nation's fate. An attendant rushes forward, begging the royal figure for mercy. A resolute figure extends a hand toward the anxious one, who bows her head in tense silence. The demanding figure tests her loyalty, and she vows to do whatever is required. The enigmatic figure leans forward and delivers a decisive statement, shifting the mood to one of tense anticipation. The student leader charges ahead as the group races down the hallway toward imminent danger. A decisive member thrusts out a hand, ordering the group to stop. Soon, two massive energy blasts collide, triggering an explosion across the battlefield. Blades clash as the determined attacker forces the defender backward. In the grand hallway, tensions rise as the leader of one group faces the opposition, while a defender steps forward with a raised sword. The two sat close, exchanging terse words as they quickly agreed to handle the situation themselves. A sword-bearing guard announces the arrival of the royal guard and first princess. A stern officer declares the suspect will be arrested for injuring an aristocrat. An intruder approaches the guarded entrance, locking eyes with the two sentries. The lone figure pauses, lost in silent contemplation as the atmosphere grows heavier. An alert figure blocks the hallway and demands to know the intruder's purpose. The visitor calmly downplays the encounter, insisting it is just a simple visit. The guard lets the visitor pass, forbidding further conversation. A frightened girl sits alone on the floor as a determined figure enters the dark room, casting a looming shadow over her. A blonde woman sits in the shadows as heavy footsteps signal the approach of a looming figure. Two companions sit in silence together during the night. Soon, the standing figure looms over the kneeling woman. The blonde-haired woman confronts the visitor, demanding to know their purpose. However, the silver-haired guest declares she came with a proposal. The white-haired visitor leans in and whispers a secret. Suddenly, a massive energy blast detonates and engulfs everything. The younger fighter fires a blinding energy attack at his elder opponent. The swordsman swings hard, sending dirt flying. Then the swordsman releases a sweeping, blinding surge of energy. The determined warrior unleashes a fierce, glowing green energy attack with unwavering focus. The swordsman blocks a huge strike, releasing shockwaves across the field. Next, a charging attacker smashes forward, forcing his foe behind a staff. The two combatants collide with explosive force as one swings a wooden weapon in a relentless assault. The defender steadies himself and blocks a strong incoming blow. The calm fighter deflects his opponent's arm with a swift, forceful motion. The dark-haired fighter fires an energy blast at his foe. He strains desperately against an overwhelming opposing force. Kneeling, he endures the elder's lesson on swordsmanship replacing mana. The mentor warns his low mana will cripple him against strong foes. He explains why he is mastering new techniques to his companion. Meanwhile, the swordswoman commits to her path, adopting parts of her mentor's style. The elder accepts the situation with a heavy sigh as the mansion looms behind him. The composed swordsman pauses in the sunlit garden to request a private conversation before the sparring match begins. The stern elder abruptly ends the conversation outside the mansion. The aggressor slams his forehead into his opponent, sending debris flying from the force of the blow. The wounded man staggers in the street, clutching his mouth after a blast. The battered fighter is smashed to the ground amid flying rubble. Reeling, the elder clutches his face and angrily protests the headbutt. The defiant youth asks if winning matters more than dignity in combat. The enraged elder accuses the swordsman of disgracefully abandoning their family. The confident warrior grips his sword and demands the promised reward. Nearby, a weathered onlooker narrows his eyes with focused resolve. An elder explains a guardian died protecting him and left behind a legacy. The cautious man turns away, ending the conflict as a faint spirit watches. The older man offers a reward for the bet, but the other refuses to discuss his wish for now. The resolute figure announces his intention to take control once all the power-hungry followers assemble. A poised figure sets down a teacup and demands an answer to a crucial decision. The officer asks if the dual wish can aid his cause. In the library, he demands payment for completing the quest. However, he offers compensation for the case's unexpected resolution. The scarred man hesitates, preparing himself to finally speak. The resolute figure leans forward in the dim room, stating a single, unwavering request. A message announces all major weapon shops are withdrawing. The swordsman recoils, stunned by the sudden announcement. The imposing figure on the throne asserts dominance over the continent's weapons trade, emphasizing the family's unrivaled power. The avenger vows to crush those who betrayed him. The interrogator asks what benefit comes from forcing weapon best's withdrawal. For now, he keeps the contract, planning to erase future obstacles. The resolute figure issues another critical command to the warrior of doom in the dimly lit library. The determined speaker makes a final, decisive declaration, signaling a turning point in the tense atmosphere. The challenger corners the swordsman, demanding his next move. He questions whether the royal succession battle must end now. Meanwhile, another contender weighs the burden of ending the succession fight. An authoritative figure commands the assembly of all new Temen nobles for an imminent trial. Finally, the strategist suggests making the succession battle even grander. The ambitious figure stands in the library, vowing to overthrow the current ruler and claim the throne. The resolute subordinate bows, accepting the order given in the library. The ambitious figure proclaims a relentless drive for the throne, while the defeated one slumps in the background. Suddenly, a startled person recoils at a loud noise from behind the door. The challenger sneers down, mocking his opponent's weak attempt. The assertive woman cuts off the talk, standing with her ally before the white beast. The skeptic voices concern about a deceitful man's hidden motives, while the other acknowledges this unexpected perceptiveness. The cautious woman questions the swordsman's true intentions, her concern evident as she confronts him in the library. The secretive man evades her question, leaving his companion suspicious. The schemer delivers an ominous speech, raising his hand with confidence. Meanwhile, the white-haired plotter quietly plans his next move. The hero swears to destroy everyone responsible for his suffering. Beneath the fortress, a huge hidden entrance appears, suggesting danger inside. A battered fighter crashes into the ground, scattering dust and rubble. A terrified man looks up, screaming as the ruined room surrounds him. A uniformed officer harshly orders the other person to stay silent. The investigators warn that interference will bring additional charges as questioning starts. 3 officials approach, clearly rattled by the sudden accusations. The confident man stands over the uneasy onlooker, confronting the strange situation. The stern figure in the hat confronts the other, demanding an explanation for the lack of communication and questioning whether their support was insufficient. The man pauses in the sunlit room, casting a confident smile over his shoulder as he turns. An elder questions if their recent actions were excessive. The confident figure hints that the current investigation involves more than standard procedure. All northern strongholds have fallen, leaving the whole region exposed. New orders demand dismantling all weapon shops operating across Amelia. A stunned man staggers back after hearing a shocking revelation. An elder vehemently opposes expelling the weapon masters from Amelia. The blonde man lists serious accusations as grounds for a tax investigation. The anxious advisor urgently protests the sudden withdrawal of essential weapon support. The confident challenger confronts the tense rival, exposing their shared sponsorship and escalating the competition for the crown. The prosecutor presents harsher charges as the armored captive stays shackled. Another challenger accuses the weapon industry of brutally exploiting dwarves. The upbeat figure turns with a bright expression, placing a hand on the other's shoulder and seeking his opinion. Still, the elder insists their trade has always known how to survive. The interrogator demands details about the attempted assassination of the hero. An exhausted prisoner barely stays conscious under an elder's watch. A ruthless mercenary squad surveys the aftermath of their massacre from atop a cliff, leaving no survivors below. An armored warrior prepares to face a mass of enemies alone. Thus, a plot to assassinate the hero of Amelia is revealed. He warns they would all be captured without his intervention. The older advisor warns that the pressure on them is dangerous. Meanwhile, the older strategist suggests recruiting another powerful ally while a silent watcher listens. The man dismisses all concerns, expressing complete confidence. The victor declares their triumph will soon be widely known. The older man clenches his resolve, voicing his unwavering conviction. The older figure rejects the other's claim of having greater influence. The elder figure orders the subordinate to discreetly escort someone to a hidden location. A restrained person pleads for release while 2 onlookers watch. The elder presents an ornate chest as an apology, while the younger bows in contrition. The uniformed leader forgives the other's rudeness, asserting control. The speaker presents a locked chest and declares ambitions for the throne. The swordsman inspects an ornate box in the courtyard as his companion and 2 shopkeepers observe closely. The determined speaker vows to restore order. 3 ominous figures emerge in the dimly lit, cluttered room. The elder rebukes his counterpart for using underhanded tactics unworthy of knights. The troubled man questions whether punishing the thief and offending the ruler was wrong. An unseen speaker admits the so-called hero gravely insulted their group. Therefore, the older figure blames the other for missing that the merchandise was cursed. The older man exhales heavily, clearly exhausted. The wary man rejects the offer and turns his back on the shadowy figure, ending the tense negotiation. A wary passerby suddenly turns, sensing a threat behind. Liquid drips onto the floor, breaking the silence. A broken youth sobs, confessing a desperate need for parental approval. An elder comforts him, trying to calm his anguish. Seething, he blames the one who unleashed the cursed sword's torment. The determined warrior vows to keep fighting despite overwhelming odds. The attendant quickly greets the finely dressed guest with respect. Meanwhile, a crazed wielder grins, excited by sensing another cursed sword. A chained weapon hangs over a sigil as red light pulses, containing immense power. The commander orders his nervous aide to proceed, dismissing her worries amid the rising red aura. The silver-haired plotter tells his aide to arm a mercenary and trap their target. He coldly declares any sacrifice acceptable if sealing the cursed sword ends their suffering. Glowing chains strain against shattered ground, barely containing a vast force. The guardian grips the cursed sword and orders the heir to stay back. A chilling command echoes through the dark, pressing someone to obey. Startled, he meets the cursed blade's terrifying apparition eye to eye. Soon after, a panicked attendant grabs the young noble, warning him from the red energy. A sinister voice tempts an unseen listener with promises of overwhelming power. The masked wielder activates the cursed sword, unleashing a surge of red energy. Finally, a frantic attendant urges the young heir to flee impending capture. A fighter grips his weapon as red energy ignites. The resolute figure unleashes a devastating wave of fire, pressing forward without hesitation. Soon, a dark enemy appears, radiating overwhelming power. A sinister presence tempts someone with the promise of power. Under crushing force, a wounded man struggles to remain standing. Nearby, an onlooker recoils as another is engulfed in red energy. A woman in red steps forward, surrounded by a crimson aura. The lone survivor recoils as red energy engulfs the area. A wary figure demands to know the stranger's identity, tension crackling in the air. Now covered in red aura, the woman looks down with overwhelming power. The fierce woman, radiating power, pledges unwavering loyalty as the embodiment of the sword of desire. The swordsman meets his foe's gaze and releases a threatening aura. A silver-haired man is pinned to the ground under an enemy's boot. The dominant fighter subdues the kneeling man while red energy swirls around them. The enraged foe vows to destroy everything in his path. Later, a guarded procession enters the city as silent crowds watch. A mounted herald proclaims the capture of New Tinian's recent serial killer. A restrained royal guard protests fiercely, defending her captured superior. A determined woman pauses briefly, considering her next move. A solemn blonde woman walks past the crowd as the accusers declare her an accomplice. The kneeling woman admits she feels no remorse for using others. Then a gloved person slams an open book onto the table. A cluster of purple flowers violently bursts apart, scattering petals through the air. A blonde woman stops in shock, clutching her bouquet tightly. The cheerful attendant eagerly offers a bouquet of purple flowers to the royal figure. After learning the truth, he tearfully reaffirms his conviction. One kneeling follower calls to the royal as the group bows. A blindfolded woman stands while two observers await the verdict. Two figures bow their heads and pray earnestly as sunlight streams over them. He finally confronts the truth about what he tried to protect. The blonde girl beams with teary eyes, overwhelmed by gratitude as she expresses her thanks. A sudden realization strikes as the truth about the group comes to light. A gloved agent quickly snatches the purple bouquet from the square. A shocked woman watches as her bouquet is smashed apart. An armored rider orders the anxious noblewoman to leave immediately. Later, before the palace gates, a determined leader readies to address the crowd. The leader assigns a crucial mission to a determined subordinate. A determined courtier stands before the throne and boldly proclaims support for the rightful heir to claim the crown. Meanwhile, in the gallery, a critic seethes as elders ignore the favored candidate. On a balcony, three observers hear a rumor explaining the uneasy nobleman. The leader orders silence, immediately taking control of everyone. The ruler on the throne fixes his gaze forward, commenting on an unusual deed. She then declares the removal of those who threaten the kingdom. He considers killing the corrupt nobles to protect the kingdom. The woman insists she can repeat her earlier feat. The young woman glares fiercely and denounces her opponent as nothing more than a murderer. The man claims his actions prevented further losses and preserved an important reputation. Addressing the crowd, the speaker makes a pointed remark that sparks loud agreement. The crowd erupts in support around the uniformed leader. The proud man steps forward, announcing his name and demanding recognition. Amid rising tension, someone inhales sharply, ready to shout. A determined contender proclaims his strength and right to the throne. A wounded person collapses to the ground in the forest clearing. A supportive figure gently pats the head of the vulnerable one, offering silent reassurance. A woman rests her hand on the crying child's head in comfort. An isolated youth wonders why he's excluded, while a gentle hand comforts him. The blonde woman urges the young noble to reflect on his royal father's advice. A defeated fighter accepts the harsh truth that only the strong prevail. Suddenly, a radiant throne appears from swirling golden light in the chamber. Someone declares that only strength can secure one's desires. A leader steps forward, seizing the room's attention. The blonde fighter steadies himself, ready for the coming challenge. A uniformed officer turns to a quiet man, demanding his opinion. The speaker composes himself, preparing to announce something crucial to everyone. Afterward, the blue uniformed officer demands a loyalty oath from the silver-haired man. The silver-haired man turns away silently, refusing to answer. The usually composed figure freezes in shock, sweat beading as he processes an alarming revelation. Meanwhile, a fierce man leans forward, grinning with reckless confidence. The assertive figure points directly at the uniformed officer, making a bold accusation that draws everyone's attention. The tense figure endures an accusatory gesture from the gloved opponent. The speaker condemns them, insisting such enemies must never return. The gathered crowd holds its breath as the tense proceedings in the throne room await a final judgment. Angry officials threaten to jail the warrior for insulting the royal family. A commanding voice orders silence, instantly stopping all arguments. An intense man glares at them, demanding they continue speaking. A solemn official reveals a list of victims and targeted nobles. A uniformed interrogator shows a blood-stained photo, confronting the injured woman with proof. Wanted posters accuse local criminals of kidnapping and forced prostitution. A notorious lender exploits villagers with predatory loans and condemns defaulters to slavery. A blood-stained document shows an older man's portrait, now smeared beyond recognition. In court, the judge reveals all defendants are linked. The investigator says profits were paid to hide the crimes. Both nobles falter, shocked by their opponent's accusation. Someone wonders who shamed the family, corrupt princes or cleansing princess. A panicked courtier protests, rejecting the accusation against the royals. An officer angrily demands to know who requested a murder witness. Then a determined figure enters the room with purpose. A heavily armored fighter steps forward, drawing the youth's attention. The onlooker freezes, recognizing a suddenly appearing acquaintance. The elder commands the group to focus on the unsettling noises coming from outside. The desperate protector shouts for someone to release the captive royal as sinister, clawed hands close in. The determined youth steps forward and shouts a demand to release the captive princess, while two allies stand firmly at his side. Outside, protesters chant for the imprisoned royal's release. A distressed woman jolts in alarm as urgent cries for the princess echo around her. The elder repeats his warning as they gather to prove the royal innocent. A commanding order fills the darkness, demanding someone ascend the throne. The woman spins around, stunned by the sudden command. A harsh examiner demands the shocked woman take responsibility. Her challenger asks if seizing the throne is really her atonement. Suspicious, someone confronts the calm man for orchestrating everything. In the hall, everyone kneels before two standing leaders. In the bride hall, the elder bows deeply and swears unwavering loyalty to the royal successor before the gathering. The woman breaks down, overwhelmed by guilt and self-loathing. The older man fixes his gaze forward, addressing the princess with unwavering seriousness. The subordinate bows respectfully, addressing the royal figure with solemn deference. The young man at the center of the crowd calls out urgently to the royal figure. A calm figure steps forward, startling a nearby onlooker. Then the silver-haired man addresses the silent royal before him. A determined fighter grabs the glowing, shrouded cloth. Next, a poised figure steps into the light confidently. The swordsman glares down defiantly, taunting his opponent. The ruler acknowledges the young woman's newfound courage as she affirms her resolve in the grand chamber. However, an enraged leader confronts the perceived threat directly. A shocked youth hears a declaration defying normal leadership expectations. The negotiator sets one condition: only the strong may serve. Soon, two confident entrants stride in, immediately drawing everyone's attention. In a flurry of falling petals, two supporters in the crowd shout encouragement with fierce determination. Meanwhile, the swordsman pauses calmly with eyes closed. The crowned ruler calmly admits the rival appears strong. A brilliant golden light reveals the identity of the first queen. Morning light falls on an empty bed. The self-assured noblewoman strides purposefully down the ornate hallway, leading her group of maids. The young noblewoman sits calmly while two attendants gently tend to her hair. An armored fighter kneels, holding a bloodied sword. Four figures stretch their hands toward the brilliant light, driven by grave necessity. Later, the ruler surveys heaps of defeated enemies from the throne. A somber person is warned great power means deeper solitude. Blood starts seeping beneath the throne, foreshadowing coming violence. The imposing figure fixes a piercing gaze on his tense daughter, demanding if she can rise to meet an extraordinary challenge. Thus, the ruler vows no blood will be shed. The resolute figure stands firm amid the swirling red darkness, silently vowing to protect even those at the very bottom. A woman in a gown descends the staircase, drawing attention. With unwavering resolve, the determined figure proclaims a bold vow beneath the blazing image of a radiant sun. One figure demands proof while the other confidently urges patience, their voices breaking the darkness. A powerful revelation hints at what lies ahead for the young girl. In darkness, someone channels golden energy into a glowing orb. A regal leader reveals a glowing symbol, lighting the chamber. The princess receives a formal announcement beginning a crucial event. The new monarch sits serenely as her loyal attendant stands by, marking the solemn moment of coronation. The nervous crowned girl urgently asks if she looks acceptable. Someone warns that they must act now before the chance is lost. The anxious figure sighs and turns away, uncertain about the outcome, while the silent companion observes from the background. The crowned one looks ahead and quietly calls out to someone. The leader confirms the group is ready, and everyone prepares to depart alongside their allies and mystical companions. The distant person turns away, leaving their worried companion on the path. The aloof woman ignores the complaints as a worried cat tries to get her attention. Three resolute figures stride together along the tree-lined path, flanked by a massive white lion and several small feline companions. The lone figure surveys the tranquil garden, quietly taking in his surroundings. As she tries to leave, a uniformed woman confronts the crowned figure in the garden. The sovereign stands motionless in the tranquil garden, firmly refusing to proceed. The royal calmly places the jeweled crown on their head. The anxious woman quietly contemplates the weight of the crown as she prepares for the formal ceremony. The speaker confesses his longing to experience freedom just like the other person. The assertive one demands the other take full responsibility for what they started. The loyal protector steps forward in anger to confront the insult, while the calm royal figure quietly holds the crown and reassures her. The determined noblewoman demands accountability from her companion. The man looks up, shocked by the sudden revelation. The earnest woman admits she is loyal because he opposed corrupt nobles. A flustered woman thrusts the jeweled crown out, insisting the other take responsibility. The startled blonde recoils as the responsibility is suddenly forced onto her. The watchful figure issues a stern warning as the restrained captive listens, her hands bound by fiery magical restraints. A taller ally reassures the startled companion while walking. Then, a determined figure reveals a scroll, announcing crucial information. A practical man explains avoiding debt while assigning quest duties. A blonde girl blushes and looks down at teasing. Three people loom over an anxious target, surrounding them suspiciously. An armored warrior pats the girl while criticizing her effort. A well-dressed man compliments a shy companion, making her blush. Suddenly, a royal woman collapses, clutching her crown as a guard rushes over. A uniformed man and a blushing woman share a quiet gaze. Two companions talk on a blanket while a tiger and robed group leave. The empty street remains undisturbed as the area settles into a brief moment of calm. A worried ally asks why the darkened figure has been upset all morning. An angry girl confronts a calm boy, demanding he fight her instead. The cheerful girl pleads with the somber young man to be more understanding of her older sister as they walk together. The swordsman explains demonic blades stay bonded to chosen wielders. The warrior activates twin glowing swords as dark chains erupt around him. Elsewhere, a girl floats in darkness, gripping her pendant in fear. A younger girl blushes and raises her fists after teasing about her senior. The embarrassed girl yells in the street, denying the accusation loudly. Meanwhile, the grinning man teases his companion, startling the dark-haired one. A gentle hand pats the girl's head, causing her to blush and protest softly. The small companion asks to join the group, yearning to belong. As they march, the loud one teases the weary leader, amusing the group. A desperate figure clings tightly to the other's back and screams in distress. The outspoken figure furiously demands an explanation after the stoic one comes to an abrupt stop, turning away to avoid confrontation. Suddenly, the anxious girl rushes to support her collapsing companion. He freezes after recognizing an important name on the ornate letter. The strategist hesitates to greet the one who spotted him, while his companion watches. Someone vents anger by sharply criticizing another's behavior. A grim warrior silently raises a blood-stained sword overhead. Later, the leader announces their organization's defeat amid burning ruins. A blonde fighter smirks confidently, signaling the tide is turning. The armored victor surveys the scorched field, standing over fallen foes with a glowing staff. Then the scarred leader lifts his weapon and rallies everyone to advance. A wary swordsman grips his ornate blade, bracing for the approaching foes. The lone figure steadies his weapon on his shoulder, exuding unwavering confidence as he prepares for the upcoming battle. A towering monument stands under a blood-red sky, hinting at looming danger. Now the commanding warrior faces an armored challenger, raising his spear to strike. From the balcony, the stern figure publicly declares the nobleman's crimes of forbidden magic and experimentation on the people below. The armored figure raises a glowing sword to execute. The enemy smirks and mocks the opposing warrior. The aggressor slams a glowing artifact into his opponent's chest. The swordsman struggles to withstand the corrupting energy inside him. A wary figure watches as a violent surge of energy bursts from the mansion. The armored warrior braces with his spear as the ground explodes. Then the fighter raises his arm, gathering energy to respond. A face forms from swirling red energy as dark power erupts. From above, the territory's ruler orders the berserk warrior to unleash his full power against the intruder. The furious attacker dives down, fist blazing toward the armored defender. The swordsman unleashes a lightning strike, blasting the enemy backward. The figure stands as electricity crackles, preparing to release his power. A robed figure scrambles across the rooftop, desperately trying to escape. The resolute fighter unleashes a powerful surge of golden energy from his sword, igniting the sky behind him. The figure atop the shattered cliff fires a colossal energy beam downward. The wounded man staggers back as blinding energy crashes over him. There, a massive magic blast rips through everything before the structure. Covered in lightning, the fighter channels an overwhelming surge of power. Now the towering knight raises his crackling blade to unleash its power. The resolute warrior grips his glowing sword, ready to strike. The sword-bearing rescuer arrives as the crowd regains hope. Survivors rush forward, gratefully surrounding their armored savior. The stunned figure reels as a sudden blow slashes across his chest, spraying blood through the air. The lone figure surveys the blood-soaked courtyard, unfazed by the carnage at sunset. A man begs for mercy as a glowing blow strikes. The accuser blames the disaster on the trembling suspect. The executioner raises his blood-stained axe, declaring judgment on the weak as a shadowy hand descends toward him. The blood-soaked figure coldly reveals the plan to eliminate all witnesses, driven by a twisted desire for recognition. The blonde warrior stands triumphantly with a bloodied spear among the defeated bodies scattered across the stone floor. The blonde-haired fighter pauses, blood streaking her face as she turns her attention toward the urgent shout. A companion checks the bearded ally's condition while walking. Two armored allies trade words, confirming each other is safe. An uneasy member finally speaks, ready to reveal something. The team studies the carnage, realizing there are no survivors. The blonde observer explains the massacre was already an accident. The speaker gazes downward, quietly reflecting on the harsh truth that justice relies on revival. The triumphant leader suggests moving on to the next quest, and the excited teammate eagerly agrees. A cautious investigator inspects a torn document listing key names. A resolute member stands center, insisting that something change. The older man stands his ground in the shadowy room, bluntly refusing the demand. Nervous girl immediately warns her ally to stop provoking the ruthless enemy. A messenger reports the warrior received an urgent quest, secured through any means. A stranger suddenly grabs the startled girl from behind. Meanwhile, someone grips her shoulder, holding her in place. Their protector pulls both companions into a tight, unwanted embrace. An older advisor urges them not to bring inexperienced members on this quest. A caravan of carriages travels through snowy terrain toward a newly independent nation, where diverse cultures and resources are converging. The older figure firmly refuses any request to alter the only available quest, leaving the group with no alternative. Two allies argue about avoiding a dangerous target or continuing their plan. A smug figure taunts the notorious warrior with a mocking smile. Then, an armored fighter steps forward as the crowd hails a new champion. Three armored fighters advance while a supporter loudly praises their leader. A tired man looks back down the empty street, regretting his choice. The attacker drives his elbow into his opponent's torso with decisive force. Suddenly, the protagonist looks up, confused by something in the sky. A smirking girl mocks her rival with a quick taunt. The confident blonde man strides forward and greets the group with a playful air, catching everyone's attention. The accuser steps forward with a stern glare, exposing the other's comfortable existence while a wary companion and a formidable beast observe the tense confrontation. The fiery challenger confronts the stoic warrior with angry accusations, disrupting the tense moment. An assertive man challenges the newcomer for interrupting his talk with the red-haired woman. A hesitant man considers intervening against the nearby masked enemy. The gentle woman expresses her heartfelt wish to return the children to their original home as she softly strokes the cat on her lap. A white lion and its cubs approach the gray-haired visitor. The white-haired one wonders if this situation happened before. A planner boasts their preparations, claiming with 5 heroes nothing can fail. Meanwhile, an older man explains thieves caused the recent lack of quests. A mustached man warns they do not know what they protect. A caravan moves through the snowy forest under growing tension. The solitary traveler settles into the carriage as it moves steadily through the falling snow. Soon, the group stops as armored foes and beasts block the narrow path. The cautious one voices her suspicion, while the younger companion presses for an explanation. The observer glances sideways, expressing concern over the other's withdrawn and unresponsive behavior since the recent encounter. Suddenly, a desperate person grabs his arm to stop him leaving. A concerned ally asks if his troubles are because of Carr. The gentle figure offers reassurance while quietly reflecting on her own thoughts. The white-haired fighter narrows his eye, locking onto his target. Then, a savage lightning strike obliterates the surrounding shadowy enemies. An imposing warrior faces an opponent as golden energy surges. Finally, a battered fighter raises a gloved hand, preparing for a decisive clash. A guarded man hides his face, insisting nothing is wrong. A small caravan pushes onward through the relentless snow toward the looming mountains. The wagons press deeper into the frozen forest as the snowfall intensifies. 2 remaining wagons push onward through the worsening snowstorm. A startled girl recoils, crying out in sudden pain. Then, shivering, she clings to a beast as her companion scolds her clothing choices. The quiet girl moves ahead without hesitation as someone highlights her calm cooperation. A stern figure pulls a hood over the girl's head, insisting she stop complaining and get some rest in the snowy cold. The blushing girl expresses playful gratitude, while her unimpressed companion brushes it off and urges her to move quickly. A fortified riverside city stands beneath distant snow-covered peaks. 2 companions raise their mugs and laugh amid the lively tavern celebration. After drinking, an exhausted traveler collapses onto the table in relief. A knowledgeable man explains they are in a neutral border zone while the others rest. Now, persecuted non-human races have founded a new sanctuary nation. This world is populated mainly by elves, dwarves, harpies, ogres, and werewolves. For centuries, the monstrous beings remained hidden to escape human domination. A solemn speaker condemns humanity for repeatedly choosing evil. The stern figure shares his vision of a future where countless beings will roam the continent without restraint. An older elf addresses the uneasy group about the king's anti-discrimination efforts. A crowned elf is praised for securing crucial foreign alliances. However, an analytical man notes that weak authority has allowed lawless regions like this to appear. The guarded man questions the group about their reserved table, eyeing them skeptically as the woman shifts awkwardly beside him. She explains all the seats are already taken. The speaker warmly offers to buy a meal as a gesture of goodwill. Two hungry figures gape in astonishment at the lavish feast laid out before them. An exhausted eater regains strength as he eats. Meanwhile, another diner eagerly starts devouring the food. A cheerful girl readies her utensils for incoming food. A nervous eater grips his utensils, bracing himself. The calm figure halts the flustered girl by placing a steady hand on her head, stopping her from charging ahead. A smug onlooker taunts his rivals about their coming defeat. A jeering man interrupts their meal with a fake apology. Later, the protagonist asks if the other will pay. The defiant figure glares back, refusing the demand as a clenched fist hovers threateningly nearby. A fighter is blasted through a wall, scattering debris. Then, three armed foes recoil as the white-haired fighter stands firm. A wounded man yells at the red energy attacking him. Soon, he collapses, frozen as a glowing sword nears his face. The white-haired mage raises his staff, demanding payment for the meal. A gloved patron silently offers a tightly bound pouch. Finally, an armored leader declares surrender while a battered ally kneels. A gloved, electrified hand suddenly stops the white-haired swordsman's strike. The white-haired fighter scolds her ally, insisting warriors must never show mercy to enemies. A terrified man recoils as his attacker threatens him with a crackling blade. The aggressor unleashes a furious downward strike with his weapon, filling the air with raw intensity. Their commander falls to a single decisive blow, sending his remaining soldiers into panic. Then the group's leader steps forward, sword drawn, demanding the stranger identify himself. The pale stranger coldly refuses to share his name, while the uneasy opponent hesitantly identifies herself under his sharp gaze. Without another word, he turns away, leaving the lone onlooker standing in silence. Two beaten fighters lie on the tavern floor as an armored group leaves them vowing revenge. Later, one observer remarks that the other's unusual recent silence has been clearly noticed. A blonde swordswoman scolds her partner about nearby heroes and being dragged into his mess. A convoy of wagons slowly climbs the treacherous mountain road toward the looming fortress. A challenger steps forward to speak, heightening the tense standoff between them. Soon after, a brash youth appears atop the wall, grinning down at everyone below. A hooded mage raises a blazing orb to attack while his ally watches below. An enraged man suddenly lunges forward, shouting a lethal threat at his opponent. The hooded caster releases a powerful blast of magic straight at the stone fortress. The impact triggers a massive explosion, hurling debris and blinding light outward. The swordsman braces himself as golden light engulfs him, preparing for what comes next. A violent landslide sends boulders and surging water crashing down onto the caravan below. A destructive energy blast strikes the bridge above the passing wagons. Meanwhile, the protector yanks a companion away from the falling debris. The white-haired fighter shoves a companion away and orders them to flee. The leader commands a swift evacuation as the anxious companion stands ready to follow. An alarmed ally urgently warns the stern figure to move immediately or face deadly consequences as danger closes in. The resolute figure firmly rejects the request, ending the conversation. The stubborn merchant refuses to flee, while the panicked companion intervenes to secure compensation. Another man steps forward, insisting he will take charge. The nervous companion asks if this assertive figure actually has a plan. The perceptive ally acknowledges the protagonist's stubborn resolve after the confrontation. Meanwhile, a lone defender braces against the surge in the ruined hall. The resolute figure calls out a name, his mouth glowing with intense energy. Suddenly, the swordsman unleashes a swirling ice slash from his glowing blade. An onlooker is engulfed in light and realizes it might be magic. The determined fighter conjures an immense, gleaming ice barrier and braces for the incoming attack. A voice announces that the girl's unique skill has activated. Then a determined caster summons a colossal divine ice strike from above. Blue energy erupts outward, the released attack engulfing everything ahead. The massive ice barrier explodes apart, hurling shards everywhere. Suddenly, giant icicles appear and threaten the caravan crossing the snowfield. The pair stares upward in shock as an ominous presence suddenly materializes above them. The pair crouches side by side, tense and sweating, as a shimmering mist closes in around them. The pair freezes as enormous ice spikes threaten to fall from above. The lone fighter braces himself for the coming battle. Meanwhile, the blonde man emits surprise at the other's overwhelming magic. The swordsman realizes he is trapped with the cursed weapon. The armored leader vows punishment for anyone using forbidden power. An older survivor thanks the hero for unexpected magic. The protector urgently orders a companion to escape with the client, while the other hesitates, confused about the danger. The man sharply snaps his gloved fingers toward the sky. Masked raiders charge forward and attack without restraint. A shocked man clenches his fist while another watches. Steel crashes against steel as the assertive challenger forces the beleaguered defender to address the chaos unfolding between them. The lone figure stands firm beneath the relentless rain, unwavering in the face of adversity. Later, an onlooker studies the carriage abandoned in the snow. The hooded fighter blocks a strike as ice erupts between them. The hooded mage unleashes a surge of blazing energy. A violent explosion engulfs the sky above the moving carriage. Someone flinches as a fiery projectile hits the nearby building. Driven by urgency, a fighter dashes forward at explosive speed. The resolute swordsman channels intense energy and unleashes a massive, fiery attack. The unleashed energy erupts, ripping across the battlefield. The crouching figure braces for impact as a massive explosion erupts behind him. A hooded intruder crashes through the broken door into the room. A startled person tenses, reacting to sudden danger in the corridor. Suddenly, an ambusher strikes, flinging a hooded foe backward. The determined fighter charges, swinging a glowing weapon in attack. A guardian bends over the fallen ally, quickly checking for injuries. A masked man spins around, his gaze sharp and alert. One onlooker spots expensive jewelry hanging from the woman's clothes. The observer quietly notices the presence of luxury cosmetics and a lingering perfume. A timid girl steps forward, her pointed ears revealing she is an elf. The reserved elf thanks her savior, hinting she is a carbon noble. Later, the woman explains herself while suspecting the other hid her identity. The protector strides forward with the unconscious figure in his arms as two fur-collared strangers notice her elven features. A smug man jokes about selling his companion for a high price. A figure tests the ground with a cautious step, tension evident in every movement. The exhausted swordsman decides he cannot use the cursed blade near the elf. Instead, the man grips the golden weapon, preparing to fight. The man flees through snow with the unconscious elf, chased by two pursuers. Two figures in fur-lined coats dash forward as one of them urgently orders the others to catch the fleeing target. The protector throws himself between the unconscious girl and a violent surge of energy, bracing for impact. The protector steps forward to shield the anxious fighter, maintaining a vigilant stance as danger looms. The armored warrior slaughters fleeing enemies with a burst of light. The challenger taunts the hero while brandishing his crackling sword. An attendant signals the cloaked traveler to follow toward the waiting carriage. The hooded woman looks away as the mustached man stares, puzzled. A reserved man stands silently, considering his next move. Meanwhile, the cloaked girl gratefully thanks her rescuer. The calm figure looks down and responds modestly. The protagonist glances back, startled by a cloaked stranger and his companion. Two allies stand before the beast, relieved it survived unharmed. The survivor assures everyone they are safe thanks to the cat. The girl brags while her giant cat stands over defeated enemies. The leader confirms everyone's safety and signals the group to move forward. Three companions stand together, presenting a calm, determined front. A trio advances alongside a convoy of carriages heading through the snow toward the distant fortress. A glowing forest city appears, the northern capital built by once persecuted people. The silver-haired fighter releases a huge energy slash, repelling forest attackers. A towering dragon engulfs the battlefield with a torrent of fire. At the fortress, carriages reach the gate, requiring Sigmare entry approval. The lone figure stands in silence, lost in heavy thought against the gloom. The usually composed man freezes, his eyes widening in sudden shock. The group enters a crowded plaza, looking around. Two travelers, beaming with excitement, announce their long-awaited arrival beside a friendly white beast. The leader grabs a restless ally, warning them to behave. Suddenly, a hooded runner flees while the white-haired observer chases. A loud companion points at something huge, baffling the tall ally. An imposing fighter singles out the smallest, nervous cat-haired member. An eager girl reaches to touch a sparkling, fluffy thing. A thrilled youth hugs the fluffy tail tightly. A wolf-headed giant confronts someone for meddling with a human. Meanwhile, the boastful ally taunts a rival, threatening them with her silent servant. A wary onlooker demands to know who the condemnation hero is. The startled figure recoils in shock, eyes wide at the sudden revelation. The speaker explains the title is a fear symbol in Amelia. A monstrous foe towers over the trio, mocking their worth. The towering beast commands the others to move aside, his patience clearly running thin. A massive beast lunges forward, slamming its paws into the calm figure with crushing force. The protector checks on a shaken ally beneath looming spirits and cats. The resolute figure fixes a stern gaze on the beastly opponent, breaking the silence to demand attention. The speaker fixes a piercing gaze and admits awareness of the other's hatred toward humans. He smashes the beast with a punch, cracking the ground. The stern figure issues a firm warning about respecting boundaries. Suddenly, the giant beast charges with claws bared. The aggressor bares his teeth in a menacing, silent warning. He stands firm as the clawed creature blames humanity. Meanwhile, the raging beast demands the kid's whereabouts. The foe denies. A swordsman draws his glowing blade, escalating the fight. A wary fighter tenses, sensing danger approaching. The silver-haired warrior grips the sword as red aura erupts. His eyes harden as hidden power starts awakening. Suddenly, the monster lunges, power surging as it attacks. An armored fighter charges, red energy crackling around his attack. The warrior unleashes a decisive energy attack upward as the monstrous wolf lunges down. Green energy erupts through the ground, forcing both fighters to dodge. The beastman faces off against the imposing figure who emerges from the smoke, while a silver-haired observer watches the tense standoff. The newcomer halts them and claims it is a misunderstanding. The party admits the dwarf had been working with enemies. Finally, the intimidating warrior asks why the beast protects humans. The bearded man vouches so his group can pass. A huge beast snarls threateningly at the gathered group. An observer looks back, silently judging whether humans are worthwhile. A monstrous guide warns that carelessness in carbon means getting eaten. A white-haired man grabs his collar and issues a blunt warning. A cheerful leader steps forward in the grand hall and introduces himself as the head of the Stone Guild and an ally of the so-called hero. Meanwhile, masked guards watch from behind bars, alert to human traffickers. A cheerful local warns the outsider that humans attract too much attention in this city and offers to act as a guide. The bearded man is shocked to learn the hero carries the dark sword. An armored commander orders her aide to secretly watch someone in carbon. A mocking ally warns him that wielding the cursed sword causes madness. The observer stares ahead, firmly confirming what he has perceived. The resolute figure crouches and unleashes a towering wall of ice, instantly transforming the battlefield. The watcher recoils as the swordsman grips the cursed blade without losing control. During a meeting, an advisor explains the cursed sword affects each wielder differently. The strategist prepares to take action if an ally succumbs to the cursed sword's influence. The determined man resolves to make a harsh decision for justice. A supporter vows to research the cursed sword with a comrade as the hero departs. The confident host invites the two travelers to stay at his place to help them save money. The confident guest thanks their host for the hospitality, while their anxious companion questions if such generosity is truly acceptable. The reserved man declines the offer as his companion fears another cheap hotel. The anxious observer warns the determined person to be careful before continuing. A bystander sees filthy cats and decides they all must be washed. The leader reluctantly agrees to remain for only one day. The spirited dwarf urges the somber group to let go of their lingering grudges in the grand hall. Meanwhile, a helpful man offers to carry the flustered girl, surprising her. An annoyed youth stops walking, complaining and looking for an easier way. A cheerful girl dismisses concern, insisting the situation is not serious. An excited supporter clasps her hands and beams with joy. A visitor asks about the house's drainage and amenities, startling someone nearby. Suddenly, a swordsman and elf spin around, reacting to an unexpected disturbance. A dramatic girl demands to be carried after falling, while a white-haired onlooker watches. One woman lies unconscious while two men stand over her, quickly assessing her condition. Two men wash a large white beast, discussing the honor of hosting it. One man tries to move as a clinging companion on his head draws attention. The irritated man struggles to remove the tiny girl while an amused bystander refuses to help. Later, he carries the younger companion on his shoulders, reassuring her with light banter. An elder debates allowing a possible cursed sword wielder into their group. The so-called hero of condemnation is revealed as far more dangerous than believed. Finally, a secret way to wield the cursed sword safely is uncovered. A lone fighter stands ready to face the coming threat. Suddenly, a monster erupts, releasing red energy and overwhelming power. Someone suspects the mysterious figure might secretly be a demon. Three determined figures stride into the dim room, prepared for confrontation. A cheerful newcomer barges in, loudly greeting and startling an observer. A deserted campsite with scattered crates lies abandoned in the dust. While climbing stairs, one member asks another about rumored guild leadership. A short man stands before a massive door, feeling insignificant. A white-haired figure freezes in shock at a sudden revelation. A grand city rises beside a roaring waterfall, marking the entrance to the Stone Clan's territory. The outsider gazes upward at the cavern dwellings and questions the long-standing tradition of underground living among the locals. The boisterous figure laughs about the unknown number of tunnels while his stoic companion listens in silence. Two companions pause at stone steps, eyeing the fortress gate above. An exuberant man rushes forward, introducing himself with an outstretched hand. The cautious figure tightens their grip on the concealed metallic object, preparing for swift action. A cheerful figure greets the weary newcomer with a warm and relieved welcome. An amused onlooker praises the child, and a strong man denies paternity. A stoic person recoils after hearing an unexpected claim about a spouse. A cheerful woman hugs a dwarf as someone explains she is culturally an adult. Lastly, a timid white-haired figure nervously peers out from a hooded cloak. The older woman steps forward protectively, demanding to know who has entered as the younger girl clings to her side. A burly attacker punches the white-haired figure hard. A bearded parent hugs the protesting child tightly. A proud father introduces his timid cat-eared daughter. A calm woman greets a smaller visitor, startling them. The resolute figure locks his gaze forward, bracing himself for what comes next. A wary explorer examines the glowing red chest. Later, the host leads two white-haired guests to their room. A determined warrior grips the door handle to enter the guarded room. The host gestures toward the sunlit room, inviting the newcomer to step inside. The newcomer joyfully dives onto the bed as others watch. The traveler and companion depart, accepting their host's peaceful guidance. Someone quietly notes that the reckless one remains too careless. The energetic figure chases after the cat while two observers linger silently in the doorway, their faces tense with concern. A cautious ally warns an anxious companion not to get attached. The alert girl swiftly grabs the odd white creature as the black cat sends a cup crashing from the shelf. An annoyed figure sharply scolds the other. The furious master orders his trio of feline minions to attack the servant. The servant is overwhelmed by a sudden swarm of attacking cats. Afterwards, one celebrates with a raised fist as another staggers. The baffled observer stares at the kittens, questioning how they grew so much and why their names are so unusual. The critic voices frustration over the inconsistent naming, while the companion responds with nervous laughter. The cheerful girl beams with sincerity as she declares her true feelings. The caretaker hesitantly asks for permission to name the three curious, fanged cats gathered nearby. The girl softly admits she has been feeling sad. The dismissive woman laughs, brushing off any concern for those she deems shallow. Meanwhile, a younger woman hesitates as she is urged to speak honestly. A cloaked fighter rejects being weak and answers with confidence. The withdrawn figure turns away in silence while the quiet observer stands motionless, tension hanging in the air. The somber figure lowers his gaze, lost in silent reflection. The day's activities come to an end as a decision is made to rest. One figure quietly reads while another offers comfort to the youngest on the couch, filling the room with a sense of calm. The white-haired elf girl enjoys a rare moment of calm, gently embracing the youngster by the window. The younger figure asks to explore, but the older companion refuses with a playful tone. An older elf worries the demon detector at home is malfunctioning. The resolute elder brandishes his hammer, ready to unleash a decisive blow against the radiant surge. A silver-haired elf doubts the demon device, remembering it was just repaired. A swordsman narrows his eyes, wondering if the elusive figure is a demon. The protective figure questions the visitor about recent events in the human world as tension builds in the room. Finally, someone pauses, unsure whether to continue working. A lone survivor stands over dead enemies, weapon glowing. The stern figure with pointed ears declares his deep mistrust of humans. The older elf explains their people long maintain practical ties with skilled humans. A gentle ally reassures the girl, urging her to stay with family. The elder ends the talk and sends the cheerful youth to bed. Moonlight through the barred window emphasizes how isolated the stone cell is. Meanwhile, the white-haired girl paces, planning how to approach the new humans. The wary girl scans the storage room, checking carefully for any threat. The upbeat girl suggests having a late-night snack together as she strides down the dim hallway. The white-haired girl quietly rummages through crates in the dark storeroom. Looking through a gap, she spots a figure below and realizes her supplies are scarce. Then the watchful scout suddenly halts, startled by something in the distance. The hooded stranger releases hidden power, bright light flaring beneath the cloak. The young woman jerks around, alarmed by an unexpected intruder. Deciding there is nothing more here, the cautious guide urges returning to their room. Suddenly, a huge unknown hand grabs the cornered victim. The older man shouts a name, his voice echoing through the stone chamber. The frantic guardian searches the area, repeatedly calling for his missing family. The man whirls in shock as the small silver-haired girl confronts him. The quiet figure gazes ahead, lost in silent reflection. The older man hugs the silver-haired one after their return. The man pulls them close, vowing not to abandon them. A gloved elder grabs the youth's shoulder to silence him. The man confronts the woman, accusing her of neglecting her child. The older man recoils in shock, sweat forming as he reels from a sudden realization. The resolute figure faces a monstrous, wolf-like creature as countless yellow eyes glare from the darkness. The sharp-eyed figure confronts the hidden truth, her face illuminated by jagged, glowing cracks. The older figure steps forward in the glowing void, preparing to unveil a crucial secret. Cornered, the man admits he acted to protect his family. The man freezes in shock, unable to say anything. Across the table, one challenger locks eyes with another as a bow crashes to the floor, heightening the standoff. The lone figure stands resolutely in the stone-walled room, preparing for what comes next. A week after his companion vanished, the elf-like man still waits. The bearded scout reports the whole area searched while his ally listens. The anxious investigator and the serious assistant sift through barrels and crates in the bright storage area, determined to find what they seek. The frustrated investigator admits to the group that they found no clues. The elder sees the empty water and realizes someone is gone. A determined stranger approaches the drinking bearded man at the tavern. The observer remains composed while a massive stone crashes down, sending sparks flying across the scene. The silver-haired one scolds the drunk, ordering him to stop. The bearded man decides to trust another with the case. A powerful monarch appears, his overwhelming authority immediately evident. There, the assembled crowd kneels, honoring the ancient survivor who shaped the nation. The speaker praises the founding ruler's unmatched skill and talent. The young woman thanks the knight for finding her missing companion. The stoic figure expresses sympathy to the muscular individual as a glowing artifact illuminates the table between them. Instead, the shorter host admits the invitation was just to observe him. The intruder studies the device, recognizing its threat from past encounters. The bearded man lowers his head and admits he feels no shame. Alone, the challenger confronts the flaming monster suspected of wielding cursed power. A wary figure tightens his grip on the ornate sword as critical testimony is revealed. The accuser says the newcomer's only suspicious trait is carrying that distinctive sword. Meanwhile, a legendary cursed sword is described, infamous for defeating even the strongest warriors. The determined warrior raises her glowing blade to confront the approaching threat. The calm man pets the spirit tiger, showing even benevolent beasts trust him. The visitor tells the elder suspicions are cleared and thanks him for seeking the daughter. Someone offers a sealed envelope, and the wary recipient immediately questions it. The envoy presents papers, claiming council authority and a mission to return the beast warrior home. The visitor slides a letter over, demanding the craftsman explain calling himself an ordinary dwarf. Finally, the bearded man voices deep concern for his child's safety. The stern man leans forward, making a grave request to his serious counterpart. The dignified advisor warns the group to maintain proper decorum before the ruler. The white-haired agent accepts the task and leaves as a pointed-eared observer watches. The scene shifts to the royal castle in Torajan, where the stump of the world tree stands. A towering cathedral rises beneath the clear sky, dominating the castle grounds. The leader steps forward with determination as two companions linger watchfully beneath the glass dome. The resolute leader stands at the front, flanked by two cautious allies as a massive, tranquil beast looms protectively behind them, all preparing to face an imminent challenge. An intruder enters the grand hall, facing hostile warriors and their throne-bound commander. An agitated messenger reports several children, including the Stone Guild chief's daughter, were kidnapped. One advisor insists on launching a discreet investigation with a small team while her companion listens intently. The advisor carefully records vital information in the open book with a golden-tipped pen. The investigator raises a glowing book, preparing to begin the inquiry. The monarch addresses the hall, asking the visiting champion to explain. The group stands before the crowned ruler and firmly confirms their agreement. The spokesman formally requests an investigation into the chief's missing daughter. However, the authority challenges the hero, demanding answers about the hero's own conduct. The envoy requests Sigmare's gate be opened to return the mystical tiger home. A grim voice reports that the beast's plaque shows clear signs of human tampering. The crowned elf firmly refuses every request presented in her court. Finally, an anxious woman complains that the dwarf offered no help, as her ally listens. However, the guardian warns that any exception will destroy their legacy. The speaker mocks risking anything for something as trivial as a pet. An uncertain traveler hesitates but keeps walking forward. Meanwhile, 5 wary people stand in a tense, forming alliance. The crowned figure demands a clear answer, insisting on ignorance of any possible future events. A defiant ally insists the ruler cannot stop anyone from returning home. Suddenly, 2 startled people freeze as a huge white beast appears behind. One fighter faces the massive beast alone without backing down. The challenger demands to know if the kingdom still upholds the practice of slavery. Then, a swordsman feels overwhelming power surge, his golden eye blazing. The imposing figure commands the attendant to handle punishment for a forbidden utterance. A cautious onlooker looks up and realizes the approaching presence is human. A masked attacker swings an electrified staff hard at his opponent. Afterward, a determined fighter confronts a towering foe glowing within swirling debris. The swordsman braces himself, preparing for the upcoming clash. A nervous man looks up as a chilling voice addresses him. An enraged brute unleashes golden energy and brandishes his sword at an opponent. A colossal golden energy beam crashes down, erupting in a devastating shockwave. The towering brute clenches his fists and advances through the lingering smoke. A stunned man staggers as blood slowly runs down his face. The figure sees the target is gone amid broken glass. Suddenly, the white-haired fighter warns everyone to look up. A fighter dives down, aiming a sword strike at the enemy. He slashes rapidly at the towering opponent. The swordsman braces himself and confronts the monstrous shadow, weapon glowing in his grip. The injured man yells angrily after being struck in the eye. The white-haired swordsman silently prepares for the next clash. The towering foe reels as a brutal strike shatters their beaded necklace. The enraged warrior lunges, swinging his golden-hilted weapon hard. A mediator shouts for both sides to stop fighting. A composed figure watches silently as 2 golden blades clash in front of her. The battered man clenches his jaw, silently enduring the pain. Both women bow their heads with hands over their chests, silently expressing respect. The central figure reveals an ornate golden belt, drawing attention to its significance. An armored aide kneels before the royal figure for orders. The swordsman freezes, gripping his golden blade tightly as he suddenly recognizes the figure before him. Because of anxiety, the speaker ignores the one who saved them. The poised elf woman steps forward and calmly announces her identity. 4 combatants face off, weapons raised in a tense standoff. Finally, the young woman bows to the imposing figure in greeting. The golden-haired leader greets her daughter, asking about the trip. The crowned elf asks the elder for permission to speak. At dawn, light marks the beginning of the new day. The massive beast leads its small companions through the snow, driven only by the desire to return home. The man pauses, silently weighing his options. The wise figure faces forward and calmly offers to share her perspective. Masked attackers surround the group, forcing them to defend. An anxious warrior is proposed for the next difficult mission. Meanwhile, a thoughtful figure considers promising a reward for success. The conflicted leader admits his uncertainty while a silent observer watches from behind. The poised leader turns to her companion and entrusts him with the task at hand. A weary figure exhales, briefly releasing tension in the hall. A bold figure declares a debt repaid, startling the other. The young man is shocked to learn his companion is royalty. The princess reveals her identity and describes hardships living among humans. The determined leader raises her hand and declares a hopeful vision of her people one day living freely alongside humans. A flirtatious figure leans in, praising him with an inviting gesture. The nervous man answers hopefully, hiding doubt in the chamber. The calm figure pauses, gathering attention before preparing to make an important announcement. The determined leader steps forward and asserts control as the group confronts the massive beast. The elf solemnly pledges to safeguard the hero and oversee their actions from this point forward. The worried advisor questions whether the royal figure is granting excessive privilege to a human. The dignified leader acknowledges the hero's life-risking efforts and directs everyone's attention to the sword in his grasp. Then the white-haired warrior draws the legendary red dragon sword. The assertive figure reveals the legendary sword, demanding recognition as a guest of the state. The anxious observer senses a sudden shift as the werewolf's confrontation with the group intensifies. The stoic swordsman flushes with embarrassment as the inquisitive woman teases him about his reaction to a certain name. The elf suggests the dragon slayer hides a truth beyond human understanding. Dragons invaded Carbon for golden wood, and one defender became more than a hero. Afterward, the famed savior stood over a slain dragon, inspiring the entire city. The two face the portrait while one explains the wood vanished but the legacy remains. An armored guardian explains Sigmar was sealed to protect this place and honor another's will. The elven envoy offers an alliance to destroy the syndicate in exchange for privileged access. The investigator requests royal aid on his case, citing her recent murder investigation success. Someone recalls secretly visiting and seeing the crowned woman standing amid falling petals. The leader raises his fist, driving the crowd into louder cheers. A cloaked observer remembers citizens rallying behind the hero who purified the nation afterward. The woman admits she personally witnessed that pivotal event. The negotiator urges the expert to change someone else, insisting they act decisively now. Finally, a resolute fighter steps forward, shining as his two companions back him. The elder rubs his forehead, struggling with rising anxiety. The lone figure pauses in the golden light, lost in somber reflection. The survivor stops to catch his breath, clearly exhausted. The elf reels from the revelation, struggling to understand the news. The resolute challenger accepts the quest without hesitation. The grateful woman clasps the hero's hands as another looks on in silence. Together, they recall how the swordsman was unexpectedly defeated by the princess. Meanwhile, the girl quietly savors holding the swordsman's hand. The white-haired man offers something to the confused elf as two companions watch. The youth says persuading the patriarch will be easy once the case ends as they climb. The nervous man clarifies he is not a professional investigator. The blonde-haired girl leans in and reassures the other with unwavering trust. The devout figure bows her head and offers a silent prayer as gentle light envelopes her. A glowing emblem marks the chosen one as a heavy duty is assigned. Then, a shadowed figure approaches the records room entrance, ready to descend the stairs. Now, the leader begins formally reporting the investigation's current status. The brief team learns mass leaders orchestrate Carbon's kidnappings through a central human network. Next, a digital map shows lower groups mainly handle kidnapping and trafficking. An uninterested man at the table asks if that is everything. In response, the informant looks down and admits there is nothing else. The investigator demands more details and questions the investigation's handling. Meanwhile, the informant reports most lower-ranking members have already been caught. The strategist realizes without seizing central command, the enemy network will return. An elder gestures to an ancient map, outlining how the nation's long isolation left it vulnerable to repeated invasions. An onlooker worries the exhausted hunters are breaking from chasing traffickers. The speaker lowers his hand and turns to confront the group with determination. A voice calls out, urging someone hidden to reveal themselves. The winged ally embraces both companions. One relaxes while another looks confused. A concerned figure confronts the mischievous one in front of the bookshelves, wary of just how far the other has ventured. Meanwhile, two allies huddle under a cloak as a killing method is revealed. Both figures look up in alarm as an unexpected disturbance occurs overhead. The protagonist grins confidently, clearly amused. A voice coldly reveals the plan to lure an enemy using bait. A lone patron sits in silence at the tavern, brooding over a drink. Later, a hooded stranger asks the wary youth to share his table. The speaker yields control, letting the other act freely. The observer watches the hooded figure drink, their silent standoff continuing. A red-clad youth mocks the hooded figure's small stature. A gloved hand slides a metal token naming the next target. Finally, the defeated one admits losing everything made even their body collapse. In a tavern, a hooded patron quietly contemplates the neutral zone. A gloved server sets down a drink, hiding a chained wolf emblem card. The confident stranger pushes a glowing bottle forward as a recruitment offer. Meanwhile, a glowing palace floats above green land. A cloaked guest enters the bright hall while others watch. The lone strategist silently weighs his next move, tension etched across his features. Later, an order is issued to capture the catted girl. The upbeat girl holds a flower and claims the mission is easy. A cautious ally insists they avoid harming or exposing the unusual girl. A wary man questions why the non-human girl is suddenly so valuable. In response, a confident broker surrenders the hooded girl, guaranteeing her safety. The main fighter focuses and prepares for the coming confrontation. Nearby, a smiling beasted girl stands in the sunlight. A determined figure steps forward, initiating the next move. Suddenly, the catted girl falls, dropping her flower. The injured girl lies on the ground, clutching her side. A dark pursuer approaches the fallen girl, increasing the threat. A shocked onlooker sees the cloaked attacker reflected in his eyes. A cloaked watcher follows as a swordsman receives a mocking compliment. Finally, in an alley, the cloaked duo discuss their valuable captive and the leader's interest. Seizing the moment, the observer urges his companion to act. The hooded man turns, shocked to realize he's being addressed. The calm man looks back, asking why his ally is nervous. The confident figure offers reassurance through the barrier, hinting that even greater wonders are about to unfold. Dog-headed guards patrol the corridor, ready to strike intruders. The stunned visitor freezes, recognizing this ominous place with fear. A cautious figure reveals that a secret hideout has been established in the abandoned dwarf cave, while a dwarf works tirelessly under watchful eyes. Two armored guards suspect the newcomers might belong to another species. One figure questions whether the group's loyalty to their own is real. Doubt lingers as the observer questions whether these individuals differ from ordinary people. A shadowy individual inspects a stash of gold coins as two wary travelers hurry past in the background. A blunt declaration exposes the cynical reality driving everyone's actions. The pair faces a stern merchant, preparing to negotiate for goods. The man in sunglasses solemnly praises the other's important role within the group. The well-dressed merchant compliments the impressive quality of the latest haul. The wary observer suspects the man before him is their leader. At that moment, the guarded visitor produces a hidden item for inspection. The cattered girl stares as someone behind her reveals something. A sinister buyer fixates on the captive, vowing to claim her himself. In response, the older man suggests something vile, making the girl plead. The man jerks back, suddenly noticing something unexpected. Nearby, an eye patch wearer strides forward, drawing worried stares. A cheerful girl playfully pretends to be a cat. An investigator peers through a lens and recoils at something unexpected. A hooded attacker threatens a panicked victim with a weapon. A confused onlooker sees an unexpected reflection in the mirror. Suddenly, an older man is struck down mid-outburst. A fallen body lies beside a shattered glowing disc. Meanwhile, a furious man calls security as a cloaked assailant looms over two women. A determined man loudly demands the other's attention. A captive is frozen in place by distant ice magic. Startled by erupting ice, someone demands the unseen intruder's identity. Elsewhere, a strained voice urges an unseen listener to finally understand. A gloved mage fires a powerful ice blast at an enemy. A warrior raises his glowing sword and declares his title. Later, two bound captives kneel, realizing they have been betrayed. An upset man confronts another for speaking out. The confident leader praises his companion for successfully acting as bait. An angry girl shouts back at the person accusing her. Finally, someone asks about the disguise, and another explains it was chosen for simplicity. The man checks the container but finds nothing useful. Two bound captives kneel while a threatening captor looms above. There, the interrogator demands info on kidnapped tribes and troops, but the captive is gagged. The captor covers his prisoner's mouth, threatening instant death for resistance. One man bows in defeat as the other's hero identity is revealed. The defiant man refuses to reveal any information despite the threat. Instead, he warns that revealing his secret could shake the entire nation. The attacker lands a brutal blow, making the enemy reel. A gloved captor yanks the prisoner up by the collar. The masked fighter grabs the foe's collar and demands an answer. Finally, the wounded informant reveals the mercenaries' location, numbers, and a key on their leader. The superior stands over the subordinate, raising a hand in thanks. A distant ally promises to return quickly and teleport back if needed. The worried ally asks how he will proceed without the red dragon. A sinister presence prepares to take control, shrouded in dark smoke. The calm figure surveys the room while the anxious companion shifts uneasily beside him. The commanding figure radiates dark energy and asserts control over her servant, marking a turning point in their confrontation. The girl is shocked to learn the other person is also staying. The hero looks back smugly and declares he's ready to fight barehanded. From the dark corridor, muffled groans and snarls echo behind iron bars. Someone struggles in a cage, shouting to be freed. Meanwhile, an annoyed guard grips his sword, complaining about noisy captives. A frightened child sits alone, crying out for her parents. A dominant jailer slams his weapon, making a dwarf flinch. A shaking girl wipes tears as an ally tries to comfort her. Suddenly, a watchful captive stiffens, sensing approaching danger. Behind the bars, a prisoner recoils from a huge red ogre. A white-haired girl sits in the dark, quietly alone. A horned mentor gives stern advice about waiting patiently. The cheerful girl smiles warmly as she expresses heartfelt gratitude to her hulking companion. Later, two guards walk the corridor, worrying about odd cage reactions and missing relief. Two sentries spin around as a dungeon intruder is reported. A wary sentry spots an unexpected lone human intruder and urgently raises the alarm in the shadowy stone corridor. A determined defender steps forward, prepared to confront the intruder. A masked stranger refuses help, insisting on acting alone. Then the white-haired intruder appears, catching an opponent off guard. An enraged fighter points, suddenly recognizing the infamous hero. A silver-haired figure smirks and mockingly greets the new arrival. Meanwhile, a defeated man grips the bars and curses the enemies who ruined him. He stomps the ground, releasing a cracking shockwave. The orange-haired fighter thrusts his hand forward, vowing revenge. An onlooker narrows his eyes, suspecting the man is a boxer. The challenger taunts the enemy to fight barehanded. Meanwhile, a white-haired warrior readies a glowing sword against an approaching foe. The masked attacker hurls a punch at the silver-haired opponent. The armored fighter blocks a heavy blow with his golden arm. Then the swordsman prepares to unleash a powerful drawing technique. A surge of luminous energy erupts across the battlefield as a devastating technique is unleashed. Nearby, a fighter channels power while a blinding beam erupts. The swordsman remains standing as his wounded opponent collapses. Someone grabs the keys, determined to use them. The determined figure slides a key into the lock and turns it, unlocking the door. Prisoners cower on the floor while a red guard towers over them. A lone figure stops in the corridor, startled by an urgent shout. A girl behind bars brightens as she recognizes the approaching person. Quickly, a rescuer turns the key, telling someone to wait amid capture reports. The leader hurriedly unlocks the cell, fearing their escape is already exposed. The target bolts down the corridor as two pursuers charge after him, shouting orders to capture him at once. In the chaos, a shadowed fighter crushes the red glowing enemy with one blow. Finally, a horned being steps from the light and offers power to a human. The silver-haired interrogator demands to know the newcomer's identity. Meanwhile, the swordsman commands the towering demon with authority. The challenger steps forward, inviting his opponent to fight. A plan is proposed to dismantle the criminal organization. Later, 3 women guard 2 defeated men lying in the hallway. A strategy forms to target the organization's central figure first. The towering demon seizes a trembling victim and forces submission. Meanwhile, the intermediaries are swiftly captured amid the chaos. An unknown creature appears, creating new tension in the area. A larger beast shields its smaller companion from the coming attack. The focus shifts to the impending fate awaiting those who are left. A lone fighter emerges through debris, marking a dramatic entrance. A ruthless figure commands the others to eliminate their enemies without hesitation, as flames rage in the background. A bald figure draped in a white fur mantle bursts energetically through a glowing barrier, having just rejoined the group after being left behind. A smug figure stands before the glowing artifact. The older man confronts his adversary with unwavering intensity. The enraged elder demands to know where his child is. The stunned youth's eyes widen in disbelief upon recognizing the man before him. A stoic guardian carries the frightened girl to safety. The bearded man freezes as he witnesses something shocking. Energy erupts from the pedestal, making him recoil. Through smoke and fire, a large man chases the fleeing child. The father hugs the crying child and promises never to leave. One girl wipes away a tear while her companion teases her for being sensitive. The strategist pauses, quietly considering his next move. Meanwhile, a winged leader commands the chaos over the burning city and captives. Authorities formally announce the trafficking organization has been destroyed. A kneeling aide reports the syndicate's destruction to the ruler on the throne. An unknown fighter stands over a defeated foe, his identity still hidden. A white-haired agent reports her mission complete and presents the requested person. The resolute judge announces the start of the trial under strict regulations. A famed swordsman stands victorious as observers whisper about his privileged status. Later, a white-haired leader warns of unresolved betrayal and urges everyone to stay vigilant. The white-haired ally voices concern despite victory but acknowledges the human warrior seems reliable. In the crowd, a pointed-eared father vows to do anything to repay his reunion. The leader of ensemble is revealed. The accuser confronts the regal figure on the throne, declaring him responsible for the recent chaos as he recoils in shock. A speaker confesses to causing harm and expresses regret. A calm interrogator looms over him, asking a sharp question. The panicked man insists he can run the organization without ever being exposed. The golden-haired figure extends a hand, demanding an answer. Several nobles secretly back the strategist, but exposure would destabilize the nation. The suspicious leader questions them about anyone betraying citizens for criminals. Meanwhile, a composed advisor offers the ruler a decisive choice. The worried man realizes his fears as another fighter collapses. The figure on the throne issues a challenge, watching intently as the resolute visitor faces a critical decision. The resolute figure under the spotlight delivers a crucial revelation about the shared origins of Carbon's people. He explains their ancestors fled humans and founded Carbon at the World Tree's site. One hardliner demands that all traitors be exposed and eliminated. An alarmed figure warns the group about a possible scheme intended to divide them. A furious parent marches in, enraged that her child was endangered. Above the crowd, the leader proposes uniting races into an equal nation. The determined warrior draws a glowing sword, asking if anyone has requested a trial. A desperate man shouts that he will reveal the traitor. Empowered by green energy, the attacker drives a glowing blade at his opponent. The terrified man recoils as someone behind him is suddenly slashed. Then the target is overwhelmed by a brutal, bloody surge of shadowy energy. A swordsman stands above the stairs, looking down at the motionless body. With unwavering resolve, the swordsman prepares to draw his golden blade in condemnation. Finally, the imposing figure in gold and white proclaims a fundamental rule. The nervous man sweats under pressure, briefly showing weakness. Earlier, the cloaked mage recalls firing a precise mana blade. The watcher admits the elven monarch's power is overwhelming. Now, the ruler concedes misjudging the condemned champion's resolve. The blonde fighter insists their quick victory was skill, not luck. Then, the sharp-eyed ally questions if the spirit will open the gateway. The determined warrior grips the red book, vowing to kill remaining traitors. The authoritative woman instructs the listener to meet the quest giver directly for their reward. At last, the crown official declares the human trafficking case closed. Distant voices pledge allegiance to the condemned hero in darkness. The lone man endures the tense silence without reacting. The cloaked caster summons dark tendrils rising from the ground. The resolute figure pauses before the towering, golden-lit doors, preparing to enter the grand chamber. A cautious visitor knocks on the closed door and, after receiving permission, proceeds to enter. The lone figure pauses in the dim light, gripping a staff while lost in thought. Meanwhile, a radiant woman greets the newcomer with an inviting smile. A dignified host sits calmly on the couch, projecting authority. A blonde elf woman steps forward with a welcoming smile, greeting the newcomer warmly. A radiant woman greets the newcomer with a warm smile. The elegant elf reclines on the sofa, quietly surveying everyone. The elf greets the armored visitor politely. A gracious figure gestures toward the table, inviting the weary guest to sit and enjoy the tea prepared in gratitude. The young man offers a nervous smile and awkwardly thanks the other person for their help. The strategist outlines a plan to destabilize the leadership while reaching for his coffee. The dignified figure calmly confronts her guest with the revelation of their secret infiltration. He explains his theater background and ease with changing roles. The gracious figure lifts a teacup, expressing gratitude for someone's pivotal idea. The contemplative observer shares a profound thought about humanity in the sunlit chamber. Meanwhile, he admits growing curiosity and wants to learn more. The quest giver awards an official permit for completing the task. One figure halts the handover, prompting a pause as the document hovers between tense hands. The cloaked man freezes, realizing the princess is nearby. The elf at the table leans forward and proposes an additional idea. The white-haired youth looks up as someone addresses him formally. A critical proposal is made, offering the chance to become the first human noble in Carbon. He demands the 5-year exile be revoked from the shocked woman. The advisor argues knowing humans is vital for their people's future. A solitary leader surveys the devastation from a pile of bodies, questioning the relentless cruelty of humankind. The uneasy figure silently questions the true motives behind the unexpected help from outsiders. A figure with a gold ring touches the mechanical limb, forming trust. On the couch, the woman questions if coexistence is possible. Meanwhile, a disembodied voice confronts the swordsman about his hidden loneliness. The swordsman raises his blade, prepared to strike. Nearby, A wary man shields himself as a blinding power approaches. The wounded swordsman strains to endure the ongoing clash of blades. Then, a voice asks the injured swordsman if this path was truly his. A cloaked listener hears a tempting proposal of peace and safety. The woman falters, wondering if she spoke out of line. The swordsman calmly acknowledges the keen observation made by the royal figure. Later, an elf tells the white-haired man he'll stay in Carbon with the title. A gloved hand reaches for the ringed hand, signaling a tense agreement. The elf woman stands her ground and firmly rejects the demand. A conflicted figure hesitates over a glowing table, doubting an irresistible offer. Instead, the determined man declares he'll confront the waiting enemy himself. The thoughtful figure quietly accepts a challenging task that no one else can handle, while the companion stands nearby in silent support. An investigator studies a strange document covered in cryptic symbols. The protagonist raises the quest sheet and firmly refuses any extra reward. An anxious advisor balks at handling every negotiation with humans. Finally, he insists on resolving the Sigmare problem alone, stunning his companion. The desperate companion reaches out, trying to stop him leaving. A messenger approaches the grand door, carrying a decree. The solemn elf gently accepts the other's decision to leave, lowering her gaze in quiet resignation. Then, someone notices a glowing ring on the floor. The elf girl suddenly hugs the surprised young man. The startled protector stares in disbelief at the unconscious figure in his arms. The anxious girl extends a small gift, her expression filled with hope. The blonde woman gently places her hand on the white-haired man's chest as they share an intimate, silent moment in the ornate room. The surprised man examines a glowing brooch on his chest. A delicate brooch, crafted from golden wood and set with green gems, is offered as a meaningful gift. A completely new and mysterious place is shown. From below, a radiant golden tree emerges, symbolizing immense power. The insatiable hunger for a mana-amplifying artifact drove countless beasts to extinction. Thus, the object's value is proclaimed exceptionally high. An uneasy man looks down and sees his brooch glowing. The cautious man explains his actions to the noblewoman, emphasizing the danger of attracting further attacks. Yet the gentle woman insists on giving a difficult blessing. The elf formally asks that her request be granted. The reluctant figure, standing in the ornate room, quietly resolves to keep the secret hidden. The graceful figure bows in farewell, expressing gratitude and hope for a future reunion with the departing hero. Finally, a glowing number appears above the doors as entry nears. A woman admits she is curious about the other. The anxious elf urgently calls out for help, her voice echoing through the sunlit chamber. A calculating figure unveils a secret strategy to recruit a human champion into the ranks of Carbon. The uneasy guest hesitates under the calm observer's scrutiny as tension fills the lavish room. An advisor proposes forming alliances with powerful humans for future gain. A crowned ruler overrides the tense woman with a cryptic topic shift. Then, the horned ruler approves the hero and gently addresses her daughter. The golden-haired strategist dismisses the previous candidate and proposes recruiting the famed hero from the Selvite family. A fighter steels himself, refusing to accept defeat. A confident woman taunts her companion with a pointed question. A sinister promise foreshadows an unavoidable reckoning. Meanwhile, snow covers 3 silent gates guarding the unknown beyond. A lone traveler steps firmly into the untouched snow. The group presses forward through the snow, flanked by a white tiger and several cats. 2 siblings enter the snowy field, realizing they have reached their destination. A wanderer surveys the strange snow-covered landscape in disbelief. Soon, a towering stone gateway appears ahead, marking the forbidding entrance. Massive doors swing open, filling the chamber with blinding light. A strange white being steps forward into the radiant glow. Finally, the white cat raises its head, seeking attention. One figure asks if the other can also sense home. A pack of beasts gathers, preparing to confront their enemies. In a desolate, icy expanse marked by jagged blue formations, the scene shifts to an untouched and mysterious land. Many protected rare creatures live in this territory. For the first time, the feline observer gazes upon the snowy homeland reflected in its eye. A gloved handler strokes the giant beast's head. The caretaker calmly checks that the big white beast is safe. 2 companions stand together, briefly sharing a quiet calm. However, the girl admits she never gets used to goodbyes. The protagonist accepts the newly revealed truth without hesitation. The stoic figure urges the hesitant girl to bid farewell to the distant woman standing alone in the snowy clearing. The elegant figure with the white fur collar sneers, belittling her companion as snow drifts around them. Soon, a hopeful youth approaches an older sibling with a gentle beast. The defiant one dismisses the other's concern during their snowy standoff. A resolute warrior faces the giant beast's glaring yellow eye. Then, a confident leader arrives flanked by powerful beasts and swirling energy. An exhausted fighter collapses onto the glowing guardian beast for protection. A cunning woman signals smugly as a massive white beast shields her. Through tears, the girl steels herself to keep moving forward. Finally, a determined fighter stomps down and shatters the ground. Distressed figure cries due to an overwhelming energy surge. The distraught girl pleads desperately in the snow, begging for permission to join the cats on their journey. Speaker worries newcomers might die in this environment. Gloved fighter grabs opponent's head, taking control. Protector says children are healthy and safe. Girl cries, struggling to contain her emotions. A trio of magical cats loudly react together in the snow. The figure steels himself, preparing to confront the challenge ahead. Leader reaches toward the light while giving a final order. The passionate supporter urges her companion to charge forward and seize victory over Sigmare. 3 small cats confront a towering feline in ruins. A massive white paw sinks into the snow as a powerful beast advances. Cloaked watcher stops as another steps through glowing gates. The frontmost figure boldly promises to spare the others home, even if the rest of the world falls. The tearful figure offers a hopeful farewell as snow drifts gently around them. Then everyone gathers in the snow, standing together. The larger beast gently reassures the smaller one as they share a quiet, comforting moment together. Guardian stares into the snow, awaiting a reunion. A final farewell is spoken beneath the bright sky. Finally, the somber figure stops in snow, reflecting silently. A guardian rests a hand on another's bowed head. Then, he reassures the exhausted woman and guides her away. One grabs the other's collar, forcing a confrontation. A worried onlooker hesitates and quietly calls ahead. The shy figure glances down, cheeks flushed, and quietly asks to be lifted onto someone's back. The silver-haired man asks if his back replaces her pet. The stoic figure carries his exhausted companion through the snow while their relieved ally smiles softly beside them. The protector carries the distressed woman on his back through snow. An observer remarks that both of her companions have changed. The usually distant figure awkwardly clings to the older woman, trying to offer comfort while both appear unsettled. The carrier trudges on, secretly resenting the rider's weight. One girl nags about changed goals. The other complains and demands silence. However, the hooded companion glares while the young woman laughs it off. The reserved man admits their time together changed him, and she listens. Two travelers press onward through the snow, confronting the inevitability of change as they approach the unknown. The two figures review the recent separation from the Shaybel tiger during their tense conversation. The swordsman recalls the hardships and notes others suffered even more. Across the counter, one figure offers a regretful apology while the other responds with calm acceptance. A wary man admits he never trusted her yet accepts her deception. Finally, he slides a ledger over, asking that it reach the ruler. The investigator opens the ledger, revealing the ensemble's transactions. The protagonist bursts into loud, mocking laughter. The bearded man says he got the item from the black-haired girl. The shocked onlooker reels back as understanding suddenly hits. A concerned woman presses the bearded man for answers. The swordsman stares ahead, unwavering and ready to act. Thus, an ominous tension remains, showing the danger is ongoing. A gloved reader quickly scans the suspicious record book. The scene shifts to the grand hall of Carbon Castle where the noble council convenes. The lone challenger steps forward, facing the imposing throne and its silent, watchful guards. The figure on the throne demands a repeat of the challenge, her gaze unwavering as tension rises. The investigator realizes the organization's betrayer remains the same, regardless of repeated questioning. The swordsman makes a commanding gesture, pointing upward with determination. Then, the leader points ahead and proclaims the ancient king's name. A stunned opponent recoils, abruptly stalling the confrontation. A stern monarch sits on the throne, clutching a distinctive red book. Someone demands an explanation, clearly not understanding what is happening. In the hallway, an accusation about the ancient king's crimes sparks conflict. A resolute ally issues a harsh warning, showing things are no joke. Finally, the Golden-Eyed Elf accuses an accomplice of betraying family to traffickers. The imposing figure leans forward, challenging the opponent to act if evidence truly exists. One figure recalls the distinctive signature on the Sigmar pass, recognizing it instantly. The swordsman's eyes widen in alarm as he witnesses the startling turn of events. A suspect is shown handwriting linking them to the ensemble incident. Gloved hands examine a contract book filled with red signatures. Meanwhile, two monsters freeze, realizing the feared ruler is present. The frustrated woman rejects the shocking revelation, while her companion observes with icy composure. The accused challenges the evidence, claiming someone is framing him. Next, the speaker explains they captured the fugitive executive to verify information. The battered fighter crashes to the ground as his relentless opponent looms above him. An interrogator pressures a captive until he admits there was an accomplice. A figure with a glowing eye advances, a hooded ally staying behind. The informant says a hooded male elf handled exchanges and recorded everything in ledgers. The analytical onlooker processes the newfound information with a thoughtful, serious gaze. The desperate informant drops to his knees, pleading for mercy after revealing the requested information. The leader acknowledges the outcome as a weapon is lowered and a defeated figure collapses nearby. Instead, the protagonist insists killing the leader was not about justice. The watcher recalls when the leader tried revealing a secret at trial. Finally, a lone fighter faces the colossal glowing eye as its beam intensifies. With one strike, the creature's tail is severed. One figure confronts another about a ledger matching the executive's. He thrusts out a red book, demanding proof of no betrayal. The reserved figure pauses in tense silence, uncertainty flickering across his shadowed face. He states he acted only out of loyalty to another. Then three onlookers freeze as the throne's occupant is revealed. Documents with red signatures lie exposed on the table. The investigator finds proof a leader secretly manipulated the economy. The speaker recounts the dire shortage of resources and the empty state of the treasury. Seated at a grand desk, the burdened leader contemplates the daunting divide left by years of isolation. Someone angrily snaps a brush, splattering ink over the desk. A man covers a woman's mouth, stopping her writing mid-sentence. Suddenly, a warning appears, signaling urgent approaching danger. The swordsman grips his ornate blade, denying accusations of selfishness. He insists his painful decision served a higher purpose. The lone challenger faces the figure above, gripping his sword as tension fills the air. However, the leader warns of a trap and orders the target protected. The doubter asks why. If sacrifice is justified, other species are still seized. At this, a voice cries out, shocked none of them appeared. The crowned ruler turns away, noting no recent victims were elves. Finally, a cloaked fighter draws a jeweled weapon, signaling decisive action. The swordsman denounces the other's hypocrisy, energizing his glowing weapon. The accuser demands if betrayal for profit can serve any higher purpose. With a piercing glare, the authoritative figure commands the immediate elimination of the human threatening their unity. The wary figure sharply turns to confront a sudden disturbance behind him. A towering figure declares the accused must be executed immediately. The towering fighter punches the ground, releasing a shockwave of yellow energy. The confused warrior surveys the ruined area, struggling to grasp recent events. The protagonist reacts wide-eyed to an unexpected revelation. A commander raises a glowing staff and releases a surge of energy. The wary leader confronts the outsider, questioning their reason for being here. The sharp-eyed man meets the leader's gaze, showing he understands the discussion's motive. The towering monk lunges forward and delivers a heavy blow to the radiant foe. A glowing blade cuts forward, releasing a surge of green energy. The swordsman fires green energy from his blade toward his towering opponent. The resolute fighter strikes hard, shattering the enemy's glowing surface. The scornful figure delivers a final judgment, eyes glowing with disdain as the confrontation reaches its peak. The lone figure stands unfazed as hostile opponents close in, fists raised and blood pooling on the ground. The fighter stomps down, shattering the ground and sending energy surging outward. The attacker unleashes a powerful green energy blast from his weapon, intensifying the battle. Finally, two warriors clash swords, triggering a fierce explosion of energy. Blades collide as the defiant challenger faces off against a contemptuous rival in a heated confrontation. The grim figure utters a foreboding title, his face shadowed with intensity. The stunned swordsman reels while a glowing enemy looms overhead. The swordsman braces himself as an unfamiliar surge of mana crackles in the air. The resolute guardian, eyes ablaze, announces that the opponent is now considered a threat to carbon. An emblem glows green, revealing the presence of a faction. Soon, a golden figure appears, revealing a mana-rich race. Overwhelming mana erupts skyward, showing power no human withstands. The protagonist suddenly realizes something and widens his eye. He unleashes a devastating energy blast at the hidden enemy. The chance of winning hangs uncertainly in the air as tension intensifies. The warrior charges and strikes with a powerful flaming sword attack. The white-haired challenger brandishes a golden sword and taunts the savior. He channels energy and releases a devastating blast across the field. The challenger realizes he is outmatched as a blazing fist approaches. The resolute figure activates a powerful vision ability, eyes narrowing with intense focus. The fighter decides he must end the battle quickly. The warrior releases a huge energy surge, flooding everything with light. The observer reels back in shock as the opponent suddenly vanishes from sight. The challenger scrutinizes the other's combat abilities, raising the tension. The resolute fighter blocks a powerful strike as blades collide, sending sparks and energy across the battlefield. The protagonist recoils in shock as a radiant blade charged with mana appears before him. The cloaked enemy unleashes power, revealing her true elven strength. A silver-haired onlooker confronts the floating being, doubting its claimed centuries of survival. The wary fighter grips his weapon, noticing the enemy standing on the ceiling. The man releases blinding green energy that engulfs the surroundings. An ancient technique, forbidden to outsiders, shapes the flow of battle with unearthly precision. Amid golden energy, the caster releases overwhelming magic that floods the chamber with light. The determined leader urgently commands an immediate evacuation as his sword radiates with blinding power. The swordsman fires a massive glowing slash of energy across the field. The warrior hurls a devastating burst of green energy at his foe. The fighter delivers a brutal strike with his glowing weapon. The swordsman releases immense energy, causing an explosion that rocks the entire area. A terrified woman screams for everyone to flee from the advancing monstrous wolf. In the lingering smoke, a lone fighter readies himself for the next clash. The wounded swordsman taunts his hidden enemy for relying solely on ambush. The unseen speaker issues a deadly threat, filling the air with menace. The dominant figure towers over her stunned opponent, radiating power as she issues a chilling threat. The cautious figure braces himself as a menacing, otherworldly force looms overhead. Still, he stands firm as a menacing power vows to destroy him before onlookers. A chosen warrior accepts a sacred mission with sword. He studies the fast attacks, noting their heavy mana cost. The surprised man is struck down by the glowing blade. The swordsman blocks a massive glowing strike with effort. Ancient mana binds the defeated figure in lethal restraints. Yet an overwhelming force continues advancing despite all drawbacks. Blood hits the ground, marking a serious sacrifice. The wounded warrior raises a golden sword, gathering power. Then he unleashes power, shaking the ground beneath him. Using a burst technique, the fighter dashes forward violently. A determined figure grips a golden weapon as it erupts with a blinding surge of energy. He releases an explosive technique, sending energy roaring upward. Amid smoke, the injured fighter stands again, still determined. A gold-edged weapon lies exposed nearby, promising further danger. Above, the antlered enemy mocks the exhausted opponent's empty mana. The swordsman assesses his escape, noting the enemy's swift shifts. The imposing foe issues a final ultimatum, testing the defender's loyalty. In response, the battered challenger raises his golden gauntlet defiantly. Someone solemnly presents a cloth-wrapped golden crown. Finally, the man grips the ornate sword, readying himself. The elven figure lowers her head, hinting at danger to her opponent's daughter. Suddenly, the enraged man releases power, golden eyes blazing. The furious swordsman strikes, his blade releasing green energy. The swordsman swings again, sending out a huge energy slash. The fighter follows with another devastating glowing weapon attack. The swordsman unleashes a devastating blow with his massive weapon, sending a shockwave across the battlefield. The wounded warrior screams as debris whirls around him. The battered fighter forces himself up, refusing to stay down. The mentor figure announces the beginning of a crucial lesson. In the hall, the elder declares the family's lasting vision. The young man urgently calls out for help, his face filled with worry. The elder solemnly hands the symbolic sword to the apprehensive youth, passing down both will and technique. A helpful explanation is given about an aid designed to counteract low mana caused by a hereditary condition. The spellcaster unleashes volatile mana energy as the anxious onlooker recoils in alarm. The determined user draws out hidden strength despite scarce mana. The resolute fighter unleashes another surge, further amplifying the energy. The resolute figure explodes with a surge of crackling energy, forcibly triggering a dramatic transformation. The regal elf gazes down with scorn, delivering a harsh rebuke to the so-called hero. The accuser denounces the lone warrior, rejecting any claim to heroism. Beneath rubble, a bloodied hand crackles and struggles to break free. The somber figure stands with closed eyes, radiating regret as he acknowledges a mischance to survive. He issues a grim warning as his energy builds. The swordsman channels a surge of energy into his blade and brings it down with explosive force. After surviving the blast, the lone survivor kneels to recover. The opponent staggers back, shocked by the unexpected attack. Then the scarred fighter charges, releasing power from his fist. The charged combatant surges with electricity, preparing to clash with the vigilant opponent across the misty arena. The watcher confronts him, surprised he can still release mana. A blonde onlooker recoils after recognizing an unexpected presence. The resolute fighter unleashes a surge of golden energy with a massive weapon, aiming to restore depleted mana. A radiant barrier drops, abruptly stopping the incoming attacker. Meanwhile, a lone caster unleashes golden energy, sending lightning through darkness. A shocked voice asks if someone really withstood that attack. The warrior steadies himself while electricity crackles around his wounded body. A gloved attacker grabs the white-haired man's face, drawing blood with energy bursts. The bloodied observer smirks, examining the ancient mana suddenly awakened. The cloaked mentor warns that force foreign mana causes inner chaos. A dominant foe smirks continuously, cruelly taunting the weakened opponent. The battered fighter grins and demands an explanation for this pain. Finally, the long-haired onlooker recoils, shaken by the revelation. The fighter punches his opponent, releasing a burst of energy. Then the attacker swings a blazing weapon, driving the defender back. Someone swears vengeance, letting their desire for revenge deepen. The warrior shouts defiantly while bracing himself for intense pain. The scarred warrior and the elf clash, their blades sparking with power. Meanwhile, the defender hides behind a glowing barrier to endure the attack. The swordsman unleashes a sudden surge of power, completely overwhelming his stunned opponent. Still, the fighter braces himself, intent on outlasting the enemy's assault. Surrounded by energy, the stronger combatant strikes swiftly at his opponent. The white-haired warrior slams down a blow that cracks the ground. The determined swordsman dashes forward, his blade carving a fiery trail. The battered fighter staggers back, shocked by the foe's speed and strength. The weapon's wielder raises a glowing blade, charging a powerful red attack. From above, a swordsman dives down, releasing an explosive flaming slash. The scarred fighter swings a radiant sword strike with ruthless intent. The blonde combatant reels backward after taking a brutal punch. The challenger demands why the other's deeds defy the supposed proof of Carbon's will. Angered, the fighter begins awakening hidden power as red light fills his eyes. The shocked man stumbles back as glowing energy suddenly bursts around him. Finally, an attacker fires a massive energy blast at the red-lit target. A furious guardian fires a magical blast, warning intruders away from the nation. Meanwhile, he channels power through his weapon, releasing a green electrical wave across the field. The wounded target staggers as a blinding lightning attack hits. Now, the battered fighter finally tracks his opponent's formerly unseeable speed. The warrior raises his glowing sword, declaring absolute devotion to his cause. A blast of energy hurtles toward the armored foe, starting their clash. The swordsman pours energy into his blade and releases a blinding strike. Then the fighter releases crackling energy as his eyes glow. He grips the electrified blade, enduring intense pain to hold on. The injured man narrows glowing eyes, demanding an explanation for this turn. The empowered warrior erupts with blinding force, flooding the battlefield with power. The swordsman fires a glowing slash as the opponent braces for impact. The bleeding survivor fights to stay conscious and refuses to collapse. Amid rubble, an armored figure shouts while a cracked mirror shows the chaos. A somber plea echoes in the darkness, urging someone to embrace every aspect of this country. The noblewoman spins toward the messenger, shocked by the news. A guardian begs that the land be protected so its peace endures. Someone voices a strong ambition for the nation's future recognition. The elf looks back with a confident smile, acknowledging the observer. One figure confesses a personal motivation in the darkness. The resolute figure surveys the bloodied scene as the wounded adversary slumps helplessly against the wall. The injured survivor stares ahead, forcing himself to endure. The wounded fighter clutches his shield, refusing to retreat. The wounded youth faces his assailant unflinchingly as a glowing gauntlet is raised between them. A speaker explains Carbon survives only by following a ruthless method. Cornered, she dares the enemy to strike, claiming the nation's fate. From the ground, he curses the nation that betrayed its people. The wounded survivor forces himself upright, grimly enduring the pain as dark energy swirls around him. The wounded figure glares, refusing to yield even to destruction. The wounded swordsman glances back sharply as someone urgently calls out to him. An elf woman recoils, stunned by the revelation before her. A shattered crown falls into blood beneath harsh light. The bloodied victor stands over the fallen opponent, while a shocked onlooker freezes behind them. Someone asks uncertainly if the figure before them is their parent. For the first time, the observer remembers previously seeing those eyes. A sudden ambush erupts as a terrified scream pierces the tense air, drawing startled attention from a bystander. Then a resolute warrior charges, slashing with a glowing, crackling blade. A white-haired ally checks for injuries among broken stone columns. A cold gaze stares down from above, unsettling those below. The determined figure's eye blazes with newfound power as a hidden ability awakens within. A hidden force seems aware of every secret and move. At that instant, the young man is struck by a sudden realization. A dark presence declares something ominous in the void. A messenger rushes forward, urgently informing the royal figure about the hero's return and an impending announcement. The elf announces the knight has chosen to stay. Someone begs to be seen as before. Meanwhile, the elf stops in the hallway, thinking. One figure desperately demands unwavering loyalty, their plea echoing with intensity. The gentle figure places a hand over her heart, her cheeks flushed as she silently conveys gratitude. The woman recoils in horror at a shocking sight. The victor looms over the bloodied body while a silent observer watches from the shadows. The elf recoils in terror, letting out a piercing scream as panic fills the air. The figure drags one foot forward, moving with clear reluctance. She collapses, stunned by an unexpected betrayal. She demands her father's fate. He admits targeting the ensemble. The exhausted fighter declares the quest complete with a golden sword. The blonde woman, her face tense and shadowed in red, demands to know if the current quest still matters amid the turmoil. The daughter protests, asking if her father's deeds warranted death. The bruised challenger asks if the victims accept this justification. Finally, a challenge asks if such excuses satisfy the wounded. One figure gently embraces the other, offering silent comfort as both find solace in the warm light. Instead, the white-haired man rejects her plea, citing her father's crime. She collapses, crying uncontrollably on the ground. Then, the determined fighter grabs the glowing golden artifact. The swordsman freezes, stunned by the sudden sight. A shadowy arm hits her chest, knocking her back. The injured man confronts the unseen attacker, demanding answers. She begs to be killed with her father's murder weapon. Now, the challenger accuses the unseen crowd of sharing guilt for sacrifices. The desperate elf seizes the white-haired man's collar and delivers an ultimatum, her voice ringing out in the tense, red-tinged air. He glares ahead, daring anyone to question his resolve. She is struck in the chest, bleeding as she staggers. The crazed woman mocks the hero and his creed of vengeance. A stunned man recoils as blood spatters near his eye. The attacker casts a spell, making the defender scream. Still, he stands firm, rejecting his foe while a captive kneels behind. The crowned woman taunts her foe for hesitating to strike. The authoritative woman issues a tense ultimatum, demanding her wary opponent either join her cause in Carbon or face the consequences. The bloodied figure accuses them of treating selling their kind as tradition. Meanwhile, the kneeling elf shields herself as energy blasts toward her. Kneeling, the woman looks up in alarm at the sudden disturbance. Furious, the bloodstained man denounces the crime of human trafficking. Meanwhile, the wounded person walks down the hallway, leaving the silent witness behind. A royal figure stops the guards from carrying out a brutal command. The anxious protector hesitates, glancing sideways as he struggles to respond. Overwhelmed, the woman begins to cry silently. Resolute, the leader orders an extravagant funeral for the shrouded corpse. A gloved ally supports the wounded man, pressing his bleeding side. After the funeral, the woman announces the coronation and inauguration will start immediately. She places the golden crown on her head, preparing to assume power. Crowned, she strides into the bright hall with clear authority. Soon after, a cryptic message appears, warning of city-wide upheaval. The wooden cart stands motionless amid the tall grass. There, the exhausted travelers listen to a tale of a doomed defense against invaders. The somber figure reflects on the unexpectedly honorable fate of the fallen criminal as one companion grieves quietly and another laughs under the bright sky. The warrior defends, hiding the truth, saying it would have thrown the city into chaos. Moreover, he adds the consequences would have reached even the distant home of the cats. The blonde man quietly admits both regret and gratitude as two tired girls rest behind him. The leading traveler walks ahead of the caravan, burdened by rising anxiety. The bearded man looks up and finally expresses his gratitude with a smile. The swordsman bows, wordlessly accepting the group's support. The vigilant observer notes that no pursuers have been sent by the ruler. A somber viewer faces a portrait, struggling to accept its crimes. However, the watcher studies silent guards and realizes the enemy still has conscience. The thoughtful leader worries about Carbon's future after the new ruler forms an army immediately upon taking the throne. The confident figure calmly reveals his deduction, while his quiet companion stands just behind him. Then a winged messenger ascends, warning that war is imminent. A thick slab of meat sizzles over the crackling campfire in the quiet night. The black-haired girl happily eats roasted meat by the fire. The cook earns praise and is urged to grill more. The attentive figure checks on his withdrawn companion by the fire, prompting a quiet reassurance. The worried girl hugs her knees and voices concern for him. The white-haired fighter stands amid a shockwave as a giant blade strikes. The silver-haired girl leans close, gently reminding him of his promise. The remorseful man lowers his head by the fire, apologizing to the quiet woman as memories of their last farewell surface. An anxious person grabs a sleeve, warning that war is about to start. The smaller ally begs the swordsman to prioritize himself, even using her as shield. Meanwhile, the silver-haired woman vows to become a weapon to protect him. A teasing companion smirks while another clings tightly to their silent guardian's cloak. The resolute ally declares she will shield her companion if danger appears. Meanwhile, an indifferent fighter challenges his angry companion, heightening their clash. The confident woman crosses her arms and boldly promises a direct demonstration. An upset girl grabs a boy, accusing him of lying. A companion asks the group where they will go next. Meanwhile, an injured survivor by the fire notes slow recovery as another frets. With energy crackling around him, the swordsman unleashes a powerful vision that grows stronger as he endures more pain. Exhausted, he pauses and looks for somewhere quiet to recover. Two women trade confused looks after someone suddenly asks something. Elsewhere, a map shows Evergreen's location, revealing a new region. A small but prosperous nation thrives on trade and intermediation despite being surrounded by stronger neighbors. Its fortified capital remains untouched by any invading force. Here, a cheerful guide boasts the country is the best place to live. A traveler enters Evergreen, relieved to finally reach safety. Flames consume the village while a white-haired person smiles amid fleeing villagers. Later, a silver-haired survivor watches explosions rip through the burning city. An uneasy witness hesitates before a ruined building, unable to answer. The lone survivor stares at the surrounding destruction in disbelief. Suddenly, a protector races through flames, warning a bystander to stay back. The same guardian pushes through chaos, ordering everyone to retreat. Someone grabs another's shoulder and urges a quick escape through falling embers. The swordsman whips his head around as a flash of orange light signals sudden danger. A huge dragon descends on the burning town as three cower. The aggressor leans in, demanding to be acknowledged. The small nation had long avoided invasion by foreign enemies. Meanwhile, black dragons swarm down toward the city labeled Evergreen. The lands around Evergreen are dragon-controlled and extremely dangerous. Centuries ago, a lone armored warrior fought a colossal dragon. Now, a devastating force has nearly wiped out this nation. This legendary dragon is famed for longevity, powerful magic, and intellect. Even so, their remaining forces can still repel outside threats. Amid fire, the group hides, realizing border villages are raided despite the dragon pact. One determined fighter charges ahead through flames, ignoring his inactive superiors. The armored leader guides people out while a companion demands evacuation details. Explosions erupt as the swordsman charges alongside the armored leader, exchanging names. Startled, one resident asks if the infamous visitor came to Evergreen to kill. The crouching fighter pauses briefly, preparing to make his next move. The speaker orders everyone to focus on surviving as a furious dragon looms. A massive dragon fires a blazing energy blast at the glowing sphere. Usually composed, he recoils in terror at the sudden attack. The caped leader signals everyone to take cover as a dragon descends. A blonde observer turns, startled by a sudden noise. Suddenly, a massive energy beam erupts upward, engulfing the dragon. A lone defender braces against the incoming fiery blast. A glowing fighter shouts something into the chaos. A resolute figure unleashes a massive ice attack that collides violently with a fiery explosion. A vast ice surge erupts, freezing the burning city. A colossal beast surveys the battlefield, studying these unusual tactics. Meanwhile, a winged agent rises and declares the mission finished. A towering monster smashes through a wall, sending debris flying. A battered fighter collapses, trapped behind towering ice spikes. Afterward, the swordsman searches the ruins for wounded villagers. His furious ally confronts him, accusing him of abandoning her. A tired man grumbles about the other's terrible reputation. Someone keeps insisting everything will be fine. Amid smoke, a survivor coughs and asks what happened to the dragon. The selfless protector stands confidently among the ruined buildings, reaffirming his resolve to safeguard the town. With a confident smile, the challenger taunts his opponent as a broken egg drips onto his head. Soon, an outnumbered man endures a crowd hurling insults and objects. The bewildered target freezes, stunned as fried eggs cover his head. Finally, townspeople pelt a disgraced knight with food, demanding their taxes back. An elder confronts the protector, demanding answers for lost safety. The nervous mediator desperately attempts to calm the furious elder as the confrontation escalates. A younger sibling asks her sister about others' strange behavior. After danger passes, an observer notes the group seeking a scapegoat. The protector says saved villagers now demand money for rebuilding. The furious figure demands immediate compensation from the other party. Soon, an angry crowd surges forward demanding payment. With clear contempt, someone dismisses the situation as utterly pathetic. Several allies charge forward, demanding answers from their aggressors. The deputy commander forcefully defends the hero's actions, commanding the assembled soldiers to appreciate their rescue. 2 observers assess the armored line blocking the fortress gate. The subordinate quickly checks on the commander, who calmly reassures the group of being unharmed. Enraged villagers surround them, accusing failure and demanding reconstruction. Then, the newcomer calls the chief, startling the old man. 2 enforcers confront a civilian, insisting on proper procedures. Nearby, townsfolk whisper about knights threatening survivors after the dragon. The furious man finally shouts, losing control of his rage. The squad leader charges ahead, crediting their survival to one strategist. Because of that tactic, the entire group survived. A raging mob pelts the armored knight, demanding responsibility. The observer realizes the enemy precisely predicted the dragon's attack. The resolute observer assesses the lone knight's surprising strength while a silent figure watches from the shadows. An armored subordinate questions his superior's decision, while the calm leader urges restraint. The speaker declares a knight must devote himself to saving others in hard times. Later, the armored leader greets the cheering crowd as the procession moves forward. The speaker proclaims the enduring legacy of the Shadow Knights. A skeptic challenges the other's loyalty, questioning how trust endures after so much hardship. In response, the leader assures everyone that his armored allies are trustworthy. The trio, now trusting each other, reaffirm their commitment to complete the mission. The confident commander boasts of their clear achievements to the armored soldiers, expecting recognition. Soon, a figure slams his gloved fists onto the wooden table. An armored man collapses to his knees in the meeting room. A startled person recoils while a hidden watcher observes from behind a pillar. A cheerful guide gestures at a sign, presenting Evergreen as a peaceful country. A watchful observer concludes the council prefers concealment over actually resolving issues. An elder announces that numerous formal petitions have been filed against the knight. Eventually, the speaker recalls how disaster was narrowly avoided thanks to a timely intervention. The elder sternly recites a list of charges from the scroll as a younger aide stands nearby. Across the table, an official demands answers as the accused shifts blame to the group. Finally, the leader urges dismissing the disgraced warriors and refocusing the council on the dragon threat. 2 opposing figures clash at the ornate table, fiercely debating whether to seek aid from a neighboring country or an alternative ally. A grim figure announces that the realm beyond the portal houses the Legion, the mightiest among the 5 extremes. The challenger accuses his rival of using underhanded tactics. An elder interrupts, telling everyone at the table to calm down. The elder ruler, seated with deliberation, prompts the sovereign for their intended source of support in the unfolding political negotiation. The uneasy king objects to letting foreign soldiers enter the kingdom. A frustrated advisor slams the table and demands an immediate decision. Another counselor pounds the table, urging the ruler to think broader. The elder fixes his gaze on the anxious ruler, insisting the group must choose whose strength to trust before their people suffer any longer. Later, a stern speaker scolds them for relying on others' power. A lone observer sees a burning map and foresees Evergreen becoming the continent's battlefield. The hesitant king doubts his own strength to protect the realm. The old man reveals the prime minister's betrayal and warns the nation is collapsing. Then a cautious official turns to leave, drawing protest while another quietly watches. The strategist proposes raising a force specifically to kill the dragons. Next, the same tactician adds that slaying the dragon could change everything. The anxious royal suggests a plan to keep independence while cutting costs. 2 worried allies call to their silent leader, alarmed by his lack of response. Suddenly, the shocked ministers ask the ruler to explain his unexpected statement. The bearded leader pauses, silently weighing his next move. The forceful woman confronts the startled noble, insisting they resolve their problem without outside help. The elderly advisor warns the royal figure that their nation lacks the military strength for a dragon hunting campaign. The elder issues a harsh challenge, leaving the youth speechless. The anxious young man confronts his remorseful father, desperately seeking answers about their kingdom's uncertain future. The weary ruler, overwhelmed by the dragon's threat, reluctantly decides that surrendering sovereignty is the only way to save the people. A determined leader urges the group not to give up. A newcomer calmly volunteers to slay the dragon, shocking the others. The calm fighter stands still as his fearsome title is announced. Suddenly, a gloved person grabs the blonde one's shoulder. The assertive man firmly grips the anxious woman's shoulder and requests to borrow something from her. The surprised man freezes when everyone suddenly looks at him. A refined office bathed in sunlight establishes a tranquil atmosphere. The strategist studies the papers and accepts the plan has failed. He notes using the dragon as a weapon fails if they slay it. Despite riches, the rulers let their advantaged nation stagnate. A skeptic calls the nation's famed reputation empty talk causing complacency. A desperate man kneels before the guillotine as the crowd demands upheaval under a blood-red sky. Soon after, a violent uprising begins across the country. The woman explains their real aim is raising an army using the dragon. The sly woman leans forward, taunting her opponent with a provocative question. The elder says his only concern is Evergreen's future. Elsewhere, the woman leans back and issues a sharp warning to her rival. The red-haired strategist warns that pointless distractions could endanger the revolution. The older planner insists that every unnecessary obstacle to the revolution be removed. So the elder urges them to rally their forces and speed up the revolution. A confident ally extends a gloved hand, signaling agreement with the plan. The red-haired leader announces she will deploy the hired S-class mercenaries. Then the elder promises reward if he gains the throne, but stops to ask something crucial. The older man pointedly asks why the red-haired woman supports the elder. The sharp-tongued woman coldly calls out her companion's hypocrisy. He grabs the elder's beard and accuses him of sacrificing the present. The weary elder clutches his face, openly doubting the true purpose behind the revolution. The red-haired woman leans closer, tightening her grip to intensify the threat. Suddenly, the wounded fighter recoils as a surge of dark energy overwhelms him. The elder admits his ambition is to strengthen his own faction. Driven by desperation, the man clenches his face and fiercely declares his resolve to seize the throne. Meanwhile, the red-haired instigator smiles daringly and invites the ruler to join her radical plan. The old man recoils, shaken by the disturbing realization. A determined agent grabs the elder's collar, offering wishes for help seizing the throne. Finally, the agitated elder demands answers as the red-haired woman calmly explains her true intentions. The commanding figure orders the future ruler to start a war and throw the kingdom into chaos. The old man kneels, pledging loyalty to the lady and sacrificing his desires for her master. A leader with 2 companions heads an armored band entering the forests of the Duraden Mountains. The young man admits he idolizes knights and dreams of becoming a legendary hero. From behind, the taunting figure mocks the young man's dreams, while he endures the ridicule in silence. As one woman leans in to whisper a secret, the man abruptly cuts in with an angry outburst. The armored man admits with a strained smile that the goal is too ambitious. A newly introduced group, composed of outcasts from multiple knight orders, serves as covert support for the main knights. The confident figure mocks the frustrated young woman about her lack of heroic ambition, prompting her to retort dismissively. The calm figure confirms the truth of the rumors while the surprised companion presses for more information. A feared leader lounges on a throne with 3 allies, rumored connected to the queen. 2 figures laugh together outdoors as one clenches a fist in spirited excitement, reacting to a playful challenge. The cold man leaves. The woman curses as another stares at the shattered statue. Later, the leader asks a sharp ally for urgent help capturing the dragon. The armored captain insists their combined strength, plus the hero, can defeat the dragon. The overwhelmed man rejects help and instead demands information about the dragon. Meanwhile, a schemer eyes the loud group, planning to exploit them while asking about the attack. One figure calmly reveals having committed the contents of numerous books to memory, while another reacts with astonishment at the feat. Since ancient times, magic-dense places have concealed access to another dimension. Finally, 2 monsters fall from a lightning-torn portal swirling overhead. Monsters from other dimensions break through into this world. Soon, a horde of monsters gathers around the dragon-shaped energy. A massive dragon emerges from the darkness, its glowing eyes fixing on the gathered crowd. A map of nearby monster locations near Evergreen is revealed. The strategist presents a marked dragon lair map to the warrior. A challenger demands to know if help is still refused. A map showing all dragon locations is found. The protagonist receives a reassuring hug from an armored ally. The leader and newcomer walk together, confirming their new alliance. With new information in hand, the leader and the companion make hopeful plans to capture the dragons. The determined figure locks eyes ahead, preparing to reveal his next move. The assertive figure swiftly snatches the item as the startled companion protests. Meanwhile, a guardian warns the fleeing pair to protect the single crucial item. He charges forward carrying an ally, heading into the coming challenge. The fighter stomps, unleashing a powerful shockwave across the ground. The pair stop briefly, bracing themselves for what comes next. Back home, someone watches the sky, doubting the departed allies will return. A lone fighter steps forward, marking the start of a crucial moment. Finally, the leader tells the group to stop and rest in a clearing. An angry villager confronts the thief about stealing from hardworking people. The younger woman smugly declares that the path of heroism was abandoned in favor of a life as a bandit. The wounded girl staggers back, clutching her injured side. The calm figure reveals his true motive for bringing the object was to save the others, leaving his companion shocked and questioning his intentions. A wary ally warns the map could doom Evergreen. 2 allies watch the burning cathedral and realize the map endangers Evergreen. Together, they accept the map might cause Evergreen's downfall. The anxious figure studies the map in the forest and realizes it lacks any clue about the dragon's whereabouts. 2 huge beasts fly over the burning city, warning against provoking their kind. Alone, he reads a scroll, hoping to earn the order's gratitude by reducing threats. An excited ally asks if the swordsman can track the dragon, and he agrees. An observer notes the strategist failed by trusting data instead of his surroundings. The leader tells them to study nearby signs before going deeper into the forest. Fallen trees all pointing one way reveal the dragon's path from its lair. The observer kneels to inspect fresh scorch marks, comparing them against details on the map for further clues. The tracker points ahead, saying only one creature could leave these marks. The leader confirms the town's dragon is nearby, so the group braces by the waterfall. The enthusiastic onlooker expresses admiration for the deduction, while the modest analyst responds humbly. The leader instructs the group to set up camp for the night and prepare to search for the dragon's location in the morning. A vigilant figure studies a book by the campfire, while a weary companion sleeps peacefully nearby. Later, the resting one asks a question, and the nearby figure answers. The woman glares across the fire, demanding to know why her companion trusts another so easily while doubting her. The dark-haired figure confronts her companion, questioning whether mistrust still lingers between them. The wary survivor, seated by the campfire, accuses the distressed companion in the foreground of betrayal and questions any possibility of trust. He admits regretting his violence and reluctance to act. Suddenly, the wielder goes berserk as the cursed sword overwhelms him. Unconscious and overwhelmed, the girl's intense emotions surge into the ominous sword beside her. In tears, she confesses she never truly wanted her actions. Later, he remembers the meeting that completely changed his life. He quietly stands beside his dejected ally at dusk. By the fire, the swordsman thanks her for resisting the cursed blade. On the floor, the blanketed girl accepts her feelings and finds comfort. She insists they must trust each other and avoid fighting. The cautious figure studies the startled companion, uncertainly questioning their recent behavior. Enraged, the woman charges forward to attack her enemy. The frustrated woman seizes the other's collar as both exchange heated words beneath the night sky. Then he points at the startled girl, ordering her to speak. By the fire, the silver-haired girl defends an absent ally. She grips the sword, sensing warmth behind its cold owner. The interrogator leans in with suspicion, while the other responds with a coy smirk, clutching her chest as if concealing the truth. A deadly projectile hurtles through the night toward the jagged landscape. An attacker pins an opponent to the wall, trying to awaken hidden power. Meanwhile, a fighter reaches for the artifact, demanding it recognize and accept them. A leader orders silence as a cursed weapon flies through the chaotic battlefield. The startled defender recoils as a massive magical barrier shatters violently before them. Suddenly, a wounded figure screams as the cave shakes and crystals crash around the cursed blade. Another survivor staggers under falling debris, clutching her head in pain. The pair tensely realizes under the stars that ancient illusion magic has returned. 2 figures freeze in shock as they realize they've been standing at the entrance to the dragon's lair. The resolute figure tenses and thrusts a clenched fist forward, poised to strike. The excitable one boasts about a newfound skill, while a calm observer downplays the achievement. A cautious scout examines the ground and discovers traces of a concealing illusion formation. Later, a confident mage muses about stripping the dragon's magic as a companion quietly observes. An excited admirer showers her with praise, leaving the confident woman standing proudly. The supportive figure pats the delighted girl's head as she eagerly asks for more praise. The group reaches the mountain pass entrance and pauses before entering the dark path. There, the party learns the cave's last master exterminated nearby monsters to secure the lair. The silver-haired commander orders scouting and reinforcements before the dragon notices its broken illusion. An assertive girl insists whoever finds the entrance leads, disputing the other's authority. Soon, the silver-haired leader sends a servant to report, while a black-haired woman rushes ahead. The leader quietly urges his companion to stay close as they stand together in the shadowy cave. The speaker directly asks why the other fears being left unused. Two figures quietly accept they are tools built only for violence. One of them hesitates, struggling to put his anxiety into words. The devoted follower calmly reveals her magical bond to the noble. The silver-haired observer realizes their protector acts from concern, not suspicion. The blue-haired girl shouts in relief when the missing ally reappears in purple energy. Soon, a scout rushes in with a warning, and the leader demands details. The confident witness claims she has seen things beyond normal understanding. Deep within the cave, the explorer gazes in astonishment at a vast trove of glittering treasure. Her companion excitedly gawks at the towering pile of treasure. The figure slams a hand on the glowing wall, activating a violent energy surge. The cheerful girl steps forward to greet the towering dragon as her two companions watch in awe from behind. The energetic girl even flashes a peace sign at the dragon, startling her worried friends. Later, the wary leader questions the scout about bringing the dragon but gets only evasions. The girl explains that everything changed after she discovered the dragon's hidden treasure. Elsewhere, a hostile voice accuses an unseen target of committing a serious wrong. A towering captor corners a woman and demands to know where her group went. The dark-haired fighter smirks and cites the dragon slayer's red dragon sword as their advantage. An attacker smashes the defender's head, forcing a staggered, pained reaction. Finally, a wary ally warns that no one seeking the dragon's treasure is ever spared. The irritated woman forcefully rejects the accusation, crossing her arms inside the rocky area. She pulls back her cloak, revealing hidden jewelry. The resolute figure lifts his gaze and announces that only one path remains. The massive beast drops to its knees, desperately begging for mercy as the two stunned figures stand frozen in disbelief. The anxious ally voices doubt about the plan to the figure standing nearby in the dim cave. The quick thinker spins around, realizing the risky attempt worked. The dragon glares down, remembering when its illusion was shattered. With a hardened stare and raised arm, the resolute man chooses to spare his opponent, acknowledging their potential. The anxious supporter urges the exhausted fighter to retreat, while the observant ally watches nearby. The towering beast delivers an ultimatum, but its captive stays calm. Choosing escape, the cautious one quickly withdraws from danger. A cloaked stranger lands, starting a confrontation. A battered fighter falls as coins scatter, with two and a dragon looming. Startled, someone drops a coin as the dragon's shadow looms. A raging beast lunges at three intruders trying to escape. An interrogator demands the woman explain when and why she showed her power. A gloved hand lifts a small captive, marking a crucial moment. An enraged man hurls the woman away, blaming her for everything. A determined caster fires a dark blast at the monster. Meanwhile, a terrified captive dangles above the beast's jaws as it threatens. The dragon unleashes dark energy, annihilating everything ahead. Meanwhile, the lone warrior's eye flares, releasing hidden power. A monstrous beast roars, blasting energy from its mouth. The attacker triggers an explosion, and a dark winged entity appears. The leader urgently commands the subordinate to escape as both race away from a sudden explosion. A tense silence hangs over the military encampment nestled in the dark valley between towering mountains. A lone survivor sits among dying embers in the forest. An armored soldier doubts waiting, but the leader insists they trust the absent hero. The survivor studies the fire, wondering why their comrades suddenly vanished. The trembling figure struggles to confess a difficult truth to those who placed their trust in him. The anxious figure stands under the night sky, silently overwhelmed by the crushing loss and uncertainty. The man throws his glove down, finally exploding in anger. The armored captain charges forward, ordering his allies to attack. A furious figure seizes another by the collar and shouts, while the target desperately urges him to calm down amidst the chaos. The furious man erupts, venting his anger over the hero's betrayal and the loss of their only chance to restore honor. By the fire, a youth accuses the leader of hiding their collective failure. A soldier complains their efforts go unrecognized while his companion silently listens. The desperate figure pleads passionately beneath the night sky for the group's survival. The armored squad embraces, accepting the leader's apology and renewing their loyalty. Suddenly, a hand grips the leader's shoulder, bringing urgent news. An armored warrior urges everyone to live for honor. The leader steps forward under the starry sky and addresses the gathered knights, announcing a decisive plan. The leader declares that their order is officially disbanded. The group is shocked when the dragon suddenly reveals itself. One onlooker realizes the roaring dragon overhead is weakened. Anxious urgency erupts as the impatient subordinate confronts the group's leader, warning that the hero with the map is heading directly for the dragon. The motivator urges everyone forward, trusting their powerful ally. As chaos erupts between rivals, the strategist sharpens his plan, eyes blazing with resolve. The resolute leader gives the order to charge forward and strike the decisive blow. Armored soldiers kneel and swear loyalty to their commander. Suddenly, a hand grabs a man's shoulder, drawing all attention. Armored warriors surge forward together under a single battle banner. The commander signals armored troops to prepare for the dragon hunt. A massive explosion engulfs the area in blinding light. Two figures advance side by side through the rain-soaked street, their steps synchronized in the tense silence. Later, two exhausted survivors rest in a cave after fleeing the dragon. One survivor realizes she barely escaped death on the rocks. The protagonist sits trembling after narrowly avoiding a burst of fire. An enraged attacker confronts him, accusing him of abandonment. Finally, the accused is slammed to the ground by a blow. The woman grabs the man's collar, stopping his escape. Meanwhile, the leader drags two companions forward, ignoring their complaints. Two figures are confronted by a towering, menacing beast in the darkness of the cave. The protective figure steps in front of the anxious pair as the threat finally catches up to them. A monstrous beast bursts from the shadows, confronting its unwelcome guests with a hostile roar. A clawed body lies motionless on the cave floor. The cautious leader urgently signals for silence as the trio hides together under a cloak. The massive beast rears back and unleashes a thunderous roar that echoes across the night. A lone watcher observes a giant serpent stirring the area. A harsh voice taunts the target to try escaping. Meanwhile, another voice promises greater pleasure in capturing them. 3 survivors rest in the dark, realizing the threat is gone. 2 survivors rest in the cave after narrowly escaping. The determined figure urges the alert companion to hurry toward the exit visible ahead. A cautious figure in heavy boots advances deeper into the shadowy cave. The defiant man shouts into the darkness, demanding the dragon reveal itself, only to react in sudden surprise. An armored captain advances through the forest with knights behind. Someone grips a sword hilt, preparing to draw it. Finally, an armored warrior rallies his squad and charges. A confused onlooker pauses, realizing something strange just happened. 2 figures in a cavern realize intruders have found their hideout. Now, an armored fighter faces the dragon and orders it subdued. 3 hidden observers crouch behind a rock, watching the battle. An angry fighter accuses a former ally of betrayal near the lurking dragon. One companion urges the other to intervene and doubts if staying out is right. A raging attacker unleashes fire that engulfs everything ahead. Meanwhile, the beast spews flames that overwhelm everything nearby. A calm figure issues a cold threat, stunning the nearby witness. The leader calmly orders the shield bearers to advance. Armored soldiers lock shields into a barrier and brace for impact. A violent eruption engulfs the area, sending debris hurtling through a wave of flames. As one figure urges a retreat, the other urgently halts him and points out a new threat ahead. A focused caster hurls an energy sphere that detonates across the battlefield. Then, a defender conjures a radiant barrier to block the incoming blast. The lone figure analyzes the strength of unseen adversaries while standing thoughtfully in the shadows of the cave. The transformed creature unleashes a powerful breath attack at the group. The commander orders the infiltration unit to flank left and restrain the dragon's ankles as the team launches their coordinated assault. Elsewhere, an observer notices a deep wound above the foe's eye, recognizing a hero's mark. The leader lifts his glowing sword, signaling the group to attack that direction. Finally, a furious warrior unleashes red energy that overwhelms everything ahead. The wounded fighter taunts the commander. The lone figure glances downward, steady and composed, as glowing blue shards illuminate the moment before action. The young challenger stands firm as the enormous dragon unleashes its fury, dismissing any notion of weakness from the past. The armored leader declares humanity can face the threat alone. The group sits in tense silence, carefully surveying the misty, rocky terrain ahead. A sharp-tongued onlooker mocks an ally while admitting the others are skilled. The observer quickly deduces that the knights draw their strength from their commander's presence. The resolute figure stands with arms crossed, declaring the name of his rival as a blue aura radiates around him. Meanwhile, armored warriors brace before the dragon, sensing something crucial is still missing. The taller figure instructs the younger companion to stay put before moving toward the shadowy depths of the cave, prompting a worried question. Then he gives a thumbs up, promising to return before going deeper. The dragon soars overhead, taunting its pursuers as they prepare to confront it beneath the night sky. The dragon roars and ascends, daring its enemy to follow. The resolute figure makes a firm decision and prepares to act. Suddenly, a masked man's eye glows, revealing his hidden power. The resolute figure stands atop the rocky ledge, raising the crimson-bladed sword high to reveal its power. A deadly blade hurtles down from the darkness, aiming straight for the rocks below. A cloaked challenger hurtles through the night sky toward the dragon. Soon after, a fierce warrior charges forward with raised weapon against the moon. Finally, a determined figure releases a vision power that floods everything with energy. The swordsman strikes the shadow monster with a powerful glowing slash. Then a massive attack sends energy surging across the battlefield. A fierce gaze signals the activation of a hidden power. The enraged beast confronts its foe, demanding to know when suffering ends. Someone suddenly shouts an important name, drawing everyone's attention. A colossal blast rips through the area, flinging debris everywhere. The injured warrior shields his eyes, trying to see through the dust. A sword is drawn, releasing a surge of energy that fills the air. The swordsman swings an energy-charged strike that tears through the air. The cloaked challenger stands firm, pointing the cursed weapon at the raging beast. The beast fires a massive energy blast at the lone challenger bracing himself. The white-haired warrior activates a special vision using his glowing blade. The swordsman launches a glowing slash directly at the towering dragon. The towering creature staggers as the powerful strike tears into its body. The massive beast lunges forward and slashes with its claws, drawing blood. The wounded fighter staggers when a bloody glowing blade is yanked from his body. The swordsman points his glowing blade at the enemy, demanding an answer. The battered man, struggling to breathe, begs to resolve things peacefully. Amidst the shadowed rocks, a tense silence is broken as someone prepares to speak. Finally, the seated person accuses the other of being used by a hidden mastermind. The strategist admits he attacked Evergreen for promised treasure. Then, the beast confronts the armored attackers, demanding an explanation for their betrayal. The watcher furiously accuses the kneeling ally of betraying the beast. Meanwhile, a rebel denounces the leader for selling the nation despite years of false reforms. The silver-haired tactician deduces their ally plans to seize the throne using the dragon as bait. Suddenly, he realizes a new, disturbing possibility about this scheme. Someone recoils in shock after hearing news of an uprising. Armed riders gather outside the city, signaling that war is about to erupt. A stern claimant sits on the throne and declares an unyielding desire for the crown. The dragon proposes an alliance, urging the wary fighter to help capture their powerful target. Across from him, a shadowed figure leans in, hinting at a disturbing revelation. The enraged attacker lunges forward, vowing to kill both opponents. A cloaked fighter is hurled back as a red blast rips through the ground. In response, a determined warrior unleashes a blue energy wave that engulfs the field. The swordsman staggers back, realizing the entire scene before him is an illusion. The cloaked mage announces his spell is complete and mocks the swordsman for wasting time. 3 companions huddle in the dense mist, bracing for unseen attacks. A monstrous beast fires a blazing energy blast, trapping its prey with no escape. The strategist urgently insists that the tense swordsman use his body to break the lizard's magic spell, abandoning any hope for peaceful negotiation. Finally, the dragon unleashes a massive blast at the lone armored opponent who refuses to move. The white-haired person jolts, realizing the key item is somewhere else. An armored fighter braces as a massive explosion erupts ahead. A towering dragon crushes all remaining resistance inside the burning cavern. The young man hesitantly raises his hand, trying to get someone's attention. 3 allies stand in a red barrier as battle smoke clears. Before the radiant blade, a fighter hesitates, stunned by the sudden shift in battle. He urgently warns that the glowing weapon is transforming amid rising red symbols. The swordsman explains the last attack's blood empowered his weapon, letting him shield everyone. The red-eyed woman smirks and replies with a taunt that rattles her enemy. The massive beast suddenly freezes, sensing deadly danger approaching. The triumphant swordsman unveils a plan to empower his weapon using dragon blood, while his sly companion taunts the wary beast for a donation. The red-eyed fighter leans in and issues a brutal threat to the weakened opponent. A frantic man demands the red sword as energy surges around him. Enraged, he shatters the glowing seals and escapes the magical trap. A cursed blade clashes with purple energy, shaking the battlefield. The taunter scoffs at the dragon's attack, calling its power worthless. The monstrous attacker unleashes a surge of red energy at the glowing target. In response, a determined fighter hurls a spinning weapon straight at the recoiling dragon. The monster lunges forward with a blinding assault while its enemy barely braces. Finally, a wary figure braces as a swirling red portal opens overhead. The stunned fighter realizes a mysterious force controls his body. The silver-haired ally scans around, calling to check survivors. Meanwhile, 2 observers watch a warrior standing atop the slain dragon. The relaxed warrior warns them never to mention the red dragon. Suddenly, one member spots suspicious movement above, freezing the group. Massive debris rains down as the entire lair begins to collapse from the dragon's fall. A commanding figure urgently signals the group to flee as deadly ice shards crash down around them. Still, one fighter enters danger for a weapon as others are urged away. A cloaked combatant charges forward, forming a protective mana shield. The fighter lunges to seize the red energy weapon. Suddenly, he stops as swirling red energy appears. His eye widens, realizing something unexpected has occurred. A massive blade erupts with destructive red energy. Then the dreaded title of the red dragon is announced. The fighter confronts the cursed sword as crimson energy swirls. The sword's sinister curse is revealed, shocking everyone present. A crackling red sword appears, heralding a new threat. A gigantic dragon gathers red lightning, preparing a devastating attack. An ancient weapon has absorbed the blood of countless dragons. Finally, a swordsman joyfully embraces his ornate, bonded weapon. They doubt whether the sword is actually ordinary. An onlooker says the sword might be magical or cursed. Someone questions whether the last centuries were truly uneventful. It is revealed the red dragon is still sealed. A legendary sword is presented on a dark cloth. Someone notes real needs are never met by appearances. An enemy wields a cursed sword, vowing to control everyone. A surge of menacing energy erupts as the artifact's ominous power is unleashed. Crimson energy bursts from the sword, releasing the sealed dragon's power. A legendary sword bursts to life, unleashing a surge of power after centuries of dormancy. An armored warrior reveals its true form in golden light. A tired man admits the situation is becoming difficult. He braces himself as another cursed sword targets him. He turns sharply, preparing for a decisive action. With eyes blazing, the resolute fighter unleashes a devastating attack, determined to eliminate the threat without hesitation. A lone figure unleashes a surge of hidden power as a golden, slit-pupiled eye flares with ominous intensity. An armored stranger approaches the glowing monument in the cave. The group finally discovers the entrance, heightening the sense of anticipation. A silver-haired ally dodges a heavy block falling where they stood. Thunder crashes overhead as the storm intensifies. The battered survivors collapse, their forces destroyed by dragons and nobles. A somber leader announces that the extermination mission is complete. 2 armored fighters celebrate victory after the nobles suddenly decided to intervene. A quiet onlooker watches the heated argument unfold. A kneeling warrior grasps his sword, claiming the title of condemnation's hero. They admit nothing would have been achieved without crucial help. Meanwhile, one determined fighter goes alone for the sword as others evacuate with children. Someone recalls their savior entering the dangerous cave alone after rescuing them. 2 armored survivors silently reflect on the mana rock's power and its cost. Later, 2 women worry about separating while a man waits for their missing ally. An armored knight demands answers as 2 girls square off, shocking everyone. A distraught ally confronts the women, asking how they ignore the hero's death. An amused observer giggles while her confused friend questions the knight's behavior. A wave of panic rises as someone demands news of the missing swordsman. A determined fighter gathers massive energy, preparing a decisive attack. Suddenly, red energy erupts as the wielder activates a terrifying technique. An overwhelming blast erupts as the fighter unleashes a devastating energy fist, shaking the battlefield. A lone fighter clenches his fists as electricity surges, beginning a fierce power-up. After escaping confinement, a survivor clutches the crackling artifact in relief. Finally, an enraged woman confronts the late attendant as a mediator anxiously intervenes. Suddenly, he is shocked someone escaped using only bare hands. His companion anxiously asks what happened to the red dragon. He admits they had to abandon something important. However, they reveal the weapon they left behind is cursed. He wonders if someone abandoned the red dragon to save them. Now, he finally admits he still distrusts the so-called hero. He clenches his fist, preparing himself for what comes next. 2 armored allies vow to carry out their duties. Kneeling soldiers swear loyalty to the trio of new leaders. The group remains wary, unable to place their full trust in the so-called hero of condemnation. Still, they accept his presence is necessary for now. 2 armored fighters battle while a wounded bystander lies nearby. Then, the atmosphere shifts, hinting at an unexpected turn. Electricity surges around the resolute fighter as he prepares for a greater challenge amid shattered stone ruins. A leader assures the crowd the uprising can end peacefully. The determined figure passionately urges the hero to join forces and save Evergreen. The hero turns away, abruptly rejecting the alliance proposal. He irritably asks if he must get involved again. Another warns that if this continues, innocent people will die. The blonde youth glares, warning the other to act cautiously. A woman confronts her foe, warning reckless heroics mean death. Then, several dark figures glare ahead, warning that punishment is inevitable. A battered fighter collapses as overwhelming power completely breaks his resistance. Meanwhile, a woman questions whether her companion can endure unreturned sincerity. The lone figure stands beneath the starry sky, voicing a harsh truth about the fate that awaits at the journey's end. The doubtful young man lowers his gaze, openly admitting his lack of talent and strength to become a knight. Resolute, he declares he will prove his worth despite everything. A girl steps up, challenging her armored enemy to fight seriously. Under the night sky, an ally insists wholehearted dedication is worthwhile. With a frustrated sigh, the group's leader finally relents and agrees to help, while the cheerful companion watches with satisfaction amid the rocky ruins at night. A resolute fighter grabs the blue-clad one, stopping their escape. An imposing captor seizes the noble and issues a serious warning. The resolute figure issues a deadly ultimatum, warning of lethal consequences for betrayal or manipulation. Now, under a red sky, one confronts another about a lifelong vow. The cold figure at the front issues a chilling threat to the tense soldiers as shadows loom behind them. Soon, a violent uprising erupts in the castle as armored soldiers battle. A commander rallies armored guards to defend the throne room from attackers. An armored leader brandishes his sword and dares the mercenaries to attack. A swordsman unleashes blue energy, shattering the ground beneath him. A desperate fighter swings a blue energy blade, barely holding back the assault. The armored leader steps forward alone, ordering others to retreat and call reinforcements. Meanwhile, a fighter realizes their group is badly outnumbered. One figure strides forward on the gleaming floor, offering sincere praise for another's swift decision-making. The elder nods, recognizing the knight's unmatched reputation. A stern elder strides forward with armored guards and 2 tense escorts, confronting his adversary. The elder laments losing the chance to impose harsher punishment. The long-haired rebel confirms rumors and demands all obstacles to revolution be removed. The resolute figure lifts his sword toward his mouth, preparing to announce his identity. An armored observer reflects that the other champions are impressive but inflexible. The armored leader brandishes his sword, condemns his rival's ally, and vows to seize Evergreen. The confident commander mocks rivals, saying he relegated them to a useless backwater. An armored attacker strikes at the elder, claiming reinforcements will soon crush the rebellion. 2 armored bodies lie motionless, covered in an eerie green glow. Nearby, a weary man lowers his gaze, barely standing under his helmet. The exhausted warrior finally collapses, unable to keep fighting. An onlooker stares, realizing something crucial has suddenly disappeared. The swordsman stabs his blade into the ground, releasing green energy while attackers charge. A wielder drives a glowing sword into the wall, unleashing lethal energy. A menacing figure advances with glowing green sword, taunting the fallen foe. When the armored man meets the mercenary's eyes, overwhelming fear grips him. Swordsman exudes lethal menace, intimidating even veteran fighters. Then the armored knight steps forward, proclaiming his unrivaled strength. The warrior grips his glowing sword, choosing to confront instead. The swordsman cuts down the armored foe with one strike. The armored fighter staggers as a bloody blade pierces him. A clawed shadow hand grabs his throat, choking him. The victor lifts the opponent by the throat, asserting dominance. The captive struggles against the chokehold, refusing to yield. Meanwhile, an elder orders the captive's execution, and an underling prepares. Without a moment's pause, decisive action is about to unfold. A glowing hand seizes his throat, pinning him to a wall. The rebel is held by the throat as green energy crackles. Gasping under invisible pressure, he demands the attacker's identity. The mercenary leader reveals his identity as green energy forms a sinister mask over half his face. The taller assailant unleashes green energy, overwhelming the fallen person. The speaker discloses a former connection to the powerful warlords. Suddenly, a wealthy man slams the table, shaking the room. A blue banner falls from above, darkening the area. The younger figure discovers a hidden royal passage as the older man reveals its existence. A desperate figure urges another to use a hidden passage and escape the castle at once. A figure peers from behind the curtains, searching for someone to help. The girl hesitates, worried about the older man's safety. However, the monarch stops when told he is too large for the narrow gap. A gentle hand pats the girl's head as she squeezes her eyes shut, offering silent reassurance. The sorrowful ruler takes responsibility for the rebellion, accepting blame with a heavy heart. A desperate person slams into the room-covered door, but it stays sealed. The panicked one falls to their knees, shouting for help beside the injured man. Meanwhile, a mustached man shouts encouragement to the struggling swordsman. The crown leader orders his ally to stay alive. The ruler embraces the youth, telling him to survive and surpass him. The ruler kneels beside the child, embracing him tightly in a rare display of affection. A surge of blue energy shatters the double doors, forcing them open with explosive force. An elderly mage with a glowing staff enters, flanked by 2 armored attendants. The monarch raises his scepter from the throne, challenging the intruder. Elsewhere, a stern noble demands the missing prince's location from the captive. A warning declares he will never be king while his rival lives. The superior drives a dagger into the subordinate's abdomen, asserting dominance amid the chaos. The wounded royal collapses to his knees, weakly whispering a name. The wounded figure's hand hangs limply as blood drips steadily to the ground. Finally, the elder orders a search around the castle, certain the target is nearby. A figure announces plans to execute the heir publicly and declare the beginning of a new regime. A commanding presence sets a strict deadline and demands the target be taken alive. He advances holding a golden key as guards surround him. 2 onlookers watch rebellion rumors spread with marching mercenaries. 2 armored figures exchange urgent news outside the palace as uncertainty about the next ruler spreads through the restless crowd. 2 listeners hear mercenaries now hunting a youth and punishing helpers. The man realizes Evergreen has fallen and grits his teeth. The attentive woman raises her hand, checking if the group heard the announcement. The strategist states their mission is now perfectly clear. The silver-haired leader orders allies to secure the prince first. Someone cowers as a new mission is announced. A lively medieval town square comes into view, filled with market stalls and centered around a grand fountain. Armored hunters sprint down a corridor after the fleeing noble. Soon the armored searchers fan out, realizing their target vanished. A cloaked woman scans nearby shadows but still cannot find them. A terrified girl runs, knowing her pursuers are closing in. Meanwhile, a shaking figure hides as patrols pass within arm's reach. A desperate plea for help echoes in the empty space. A cloaked tracker tails a hooded figure disappearing into an alley. Suddenly a blonde captive is grabbed from behind and silenced. The protector tells the royals she will stay safe. He clutches his face, stunned by sudden pain. Armored allies surround the child, vowing to protect him. The group listens intently as the speaker reveals the latest discoveries about the rebellion's true nature. A girl realizes the dragon attack was part of the enemy's plan. After the king's death, she surveys the castle and senses complex plots. The two companions check behind the curtain and confirm no one is following them. Two figures quietly observe as mercenaries scour the streets in search of their target, aware that discovery is imminent. The armored strategist urges the group to take the royal heir and seek refuge underground. Someone explains the underground shelter is supplied to endure a dragon attack. The planner calculates they can only survive one more week. The supporter leans in, prompting the reserved figure at the table to share his thoughts. The exhausted woman finally admits she is tired of fleeing. Alone, the cloaked girl breaks down, realizing she is helpless. A young man slumps, believing he cannot survive like this. The loner pushes everyone away and demands they stop helping. Someone quietly decides to sacrifice themselves so the others can live. A shocked girl freezes, unable to move. The silver-haired girl yells, asking why her ally risked her life. Finally, a trembling girl recoils as a woman urges her to fight. The swordsman realizes past blade wielders all killed themselves. The thoughtful onlooker quietly acknowledges the sensitivity of the situation, conveying understanding. Then, a leader steps forward and declares she will handle everything. A worried woman remembers what he said when this body misbehaved. An enraged fighter punches her foe, sending them flying. Three figures reel back in terror as something horrifying appears before them. Smirking, the girl raises her arm and repeats a proverb. Afterward, the group waits in uneasy silence, trading hesitant glances. A man freezes, realizing he acted without even noticing. A girl reels from a slap, clutching her stinging cheek. A mentor lectures a kneeling student about enduring hardship for strength. A figure, gripped by despair, discovers an awakening emotion that surpasses both revenge and anger. The startled girl touches her cheek, confused by this unfamiliar feeling. The commanding figure issues a grave ultimatum, prompting the subordinate to rise and accept a new, dangerous resolve. The jubilant subordinate raises her fist and pledges unwavering loyalty to her new master. Later, 5 people gather around a table, bracing for an important discussion. An embarrassed man scratches his head and admits his recent weakness. A schemer secretly enjoys seeing the prince regain his drive. A cheerful companion teases with a question, leaving the other stunned. Finally, arms crossed, a boastful woman claims she can silence anyone, even nobles. The taller figure pats the shorter one on the head, praising her efforts while insisting she remember to repay the favor. The frustrated woman slams her hands on the table, while the smug man watches with a smirk. The determined woman firmly steers the discussion back on track while her anxious companion looks unsettled beside her. An anxious advisor admits they currently can't stop the rebellion. Their leader counts about 100 enemies, vastly outnumbering the Shadow Knights. From the shadows, the observer assesses the unknown threats lurking beyond the throne room, wary of their concealed strengths and motives. The leader folds his arms and voices concern about their limited resources and lack of information, while the anxious supporter listens intently. In response, a resolute man proposes changing their situation to solve it. A concerned challenger demands an explanation for the sudden change in terms. The strategist outlines a bold plan to infiltrate enemy territory using bait. Anxious, she warns her bewildered ally about the hardships ahead. A soldier informs the crowd that the fugitive royal has been caught. The captured woman struggles against her bonds, crying out behind the gag. A night squad, led by their commander, is revealed as the heir's captors. The anxious girl braces herself as tension in the air builds. A young woman in a frilled dress edges forward cautiously. At the center, the most notorious of the 5 great champions stands with 2 allies, gripping a captive by the collar. Elsewhere, a skeptic stands unimpressed, questioning the need for a flashy catchphrase. A determined fighter steps onto the stone floor, breaking the silence. Finally, the newcomer stops in the grand hall, eyeing the 2 above the objective. The older figure confidently discusses their plan to capture their chosen target with the younger companion. A kneeling strategist confirms everyone understands their roles before executing the plan. The silver-haired strategist assigns reconnaissance tasks to the group while preparing to stall the enemy with her ally. The cautious advisor instructs the anxious girl to report any problems immediately, ensuring the children remain safe outside the danger zone. A swordsman is stopped by his companion, who grabs his arm to speak. Afterward, a young woman thanks her companion for giving her new clothes. The grateful young man vows to treasure the gift, while the giver dismisses its significance. The composed figure entrusts an important task to her hesitant companion. An elder on the throne declares the dragon dead as 2 armored figures enter. The ruler sits on his throne, realizing their secret alliance has been exposed. Silence breaks when a herald summons the condemned champion and the armored shadow forward. A towering attacker strikes first, destroying the threat before it can be used. The captured prince stands by the prison window, awaiting his revealed fate. The wary elder tightens his grip on the chair and questions the newcomer's sinister motives. The elder issues a sharp warning, clearly showing his suspicion. A silver-haired man doubts the newcomer's trust, mentioning the elder's strong suspicions. The elder tells the kneeling pair that opportunities arise during conflict. Recently, the world's first queen has been born. For the first time since its founding, the city establishes a powerful army as a shadowy leader stands before the assembled soldiers. Finally, a wise elder warns war amid unstable neighbors will target the central region. Their return is declared with firm resolve. One figure reveals a struggle for money and survival, while the other stands driven by the pursuit of honor and fame. Then, an older man suddenly realizes something important. A leader reluctantly places trust in the condemned hero. Soon, a greenlit stranger appears, revealing themselves as a new ally. The pair are led into a grand chamber where a commanding elder awaits them on the throne. A stern figure with a mechanical arm stands confidently, exuding a powerful aura as he grips his sword. A glowing-eyed man greets the condemned hero with a menacing smirk. The attacker lunges as the white-haired fighter braces. A determined warrior draws his sword to fight. The determined fighter strains as he blocks a fierce sword strike, sparks erupting from the collision. Meanwhile, another challenger grins while forcefully locking blades with his foe. The silver-haired fighter blocks a glowing blade with difficulty. Their blades clash as she accuses him of stealing the red dragon's sword. Anxiously, an observer realizes their ally will be left behind. Weakened without the red dragon sword, the swordsman barely defends. The ruthless attacker overwhelms his failing opponent. The protagonist steels himself, urgently searching for a solution in the heat of the moment. The desperate figure channels a surge of green energy, unleashing a powerful attack. Finally, he shouts for everything to stop the chaos. Two combatants lock swords in front of a tense onlooker, while a stern elder observes from above. The anxious figure hesitantly suggests resolving the situation peacefully, attempting to de-escalate the conflict. A composed woman quietly pours tea into a cup. Suddenly, the leader pauses as a disturbance interrupts the meeting. The older man formally introduces the calm mercenary seated across from him. The informant states the mercenary was a knight expelled for war crimes. Later, the suited man confronts an ally over a shocking betrayal. The rebel swordsman attacks, condemning the opponent's blade as the army's symbol. Meanwhile, mercenaries experiment on a restrained captive to increase their combat power. After exile from Cade, he survived by working as a mercenary. Two frightened survivors cling together after hearing a horrifying revelation. A hooded torturer describes atrocities while blood splatters across the room. Elsewhere, he wonders if his fabricated story about war crimes sounded believable. A scarred veteran smirks, praising the other's perceptive deduction. A famed silver-haired knight steps out of hiding, drawing everyone's focus. He raises his metal hand, revealing that mercenary was once his mentor. The observer processes the shocking possibility that someone could have risen to the rank of epic hero. Nervous, he clenches his gauntlet fist, steeling himself for coming enemies. Suddenly, the silver-haired knight seizes his shoulder, forcing a tense standoff. The mentor grips his trainee's shoulder, ordering him to master fear in battle. A calm figure supports the staggering armored companion. A smug man taunts the hero about fearing death. The wounded figure collapses, lying still on the ground. A cautious person proposes delaying the test for later. The caped leader orders a bounty on the armored man. Two figures sit together at a sunlit table, quietly sharing a calm breakfast. A thoughtful member asks if they will abandon the hero. The elder senses trouble beneath the surface but chooses to stay composed and observant for now. A plotter explains killing the royal target and survivors. The mastermind responds with a sinister smirk, exuding confidence as tension escalates. The younger man accepts the challenge with a confident smirk as the older figure observes from behind the desk. Two armored sentries maintain a vigilant watch outside the dimly lit prison cell. The solitary figure sits hunched on the grimy cell floor, lost in silent despair. The swordsman braces himself, expecting an imminent decisive moment. A supporter rests a reassuring hand on the other. A woman staggers from sudden pain, clutching her head. The assertive woman raises a severed head to display victory. The girl grins, mocks, and declares she is taking over. An energetic girl breaks the fourth wall to start recapping. The group plans to infiltrate Evergreen by luring the Prime Minister. The group plans to enter enemy territory using a sacrificial bait. The strategist realizes only an extraordinary bait can make the plan work. A solitary figure huddles in the corner of a dark cell, their chances of survival in this harsh place uncertain. The planner suggests hiring an infiltration expert to impersonate the prince. A confident woman steps forward, claiming she is that infiltration specialist. Outside the cell, irritated guards endure mocking taunts from within. Suddenly, a woman emerges through purple energy, declaring she was the imprisoned one. The dark-haired mage smirks amid swirling power, giving a final threatening goodbye. Meanwhile, two armored watchers flinch as a dark portal erupts from the ground. A commander orders his aide to report a crucial discovery about the disguised girl. Someone urgently demands to know where the real royal heir is. A shaken onlooker clenches their fists, struggling to contain rising anger. A distressed girl begs her older sibling to come back. A worried attendant fears the weakened prince in the hallway might be exposed. A gloved guard grabs another's shoulder, abruptly stopping them. The silver-haired bodyguard checks the startled prince and reassures him. Observing her downcast gaze, an ally realizes the exhausted girl overexerted herself today. While a knight stalled the official, the young heir secretly watched the mercenaries. Later, two determined visitors reach the palace gate and hail the nearby mercenary. Inside, two armored guards block a corridor, thrusting spears at the approaching person. One young woman finally asks her companion a pressing question. Suddenly, the pair braces as red magical energy erupts nearby. Two armored guards mock and taunt a small approaching figure. The inquisitive figure engages two friendly guards in conversation, while a calm observer quietly monitors the exchange nearby. Afterward, the cheerful ally praises the scout for completing reconnaissance smoothly. The leader marches through the corridor to confront the 100 mercenaries. The castle quickly fell because an insider betrayed them. A group returns to the castle under cover of night, risking exposure to assess the enemy's military capabilities. A strategist notes their 30 must fight 130 knights and mercenaries. An outmatched warrior is swiftly defeated in front of onlookers. Amid the burning fortress, a swordsman prepares to lure mercenaries into ambush. A squad of armored soldiers charges to retake the castle. A subordinate reports all preparations finished and the wagon ready. The armored leader confirms the carriage is ready and praises the work. Attacking soldiers destroy remaining carriages to cause chaos and delay pursuit. An elder taps his shoulder, saying his skills exceed a mere knight. Outside, two allies wait quietly, prepared for the coming signal. The white-haired man smirks after hearing the royal prisoner escaped. The leader rallies the group, and the others respond with eager agreement as their team activity begins. The anxious attendant urgently urges the prince to join the knights without delay. The tearful girl pledges to repay the favor many times over, her gratitude overflowing. A crying girl gets a consoling pat from someone. The calm figure says repaying twice is enough. A stunned onlooker watches as the young noble's power suddenly surges. The mentor stands over the youth, declaring he can endure anything as power surges. An enraged girl grabs another's hair, demanding her clothes back. The smug figure flaunts the magical clothes while another sulks in the background. An older woman rushes to hug her freed sibling. The boastful girl grins, claiming her recent victory was effortless. The energetic woman urges her companion to leave at once, eager to confront the mercenary leader. A long-haired leader orders the other to stay put, startling them. The strategist proposes using himself and his uneasy companion as bait for mercenaries. A defiant fighter denies the insult and disputes the cursed sword's bond. The figure channels turbulent emotions through a surge of shadowy energy enveloping their hand. The sinister blade throbs with dark power, implying a hidden evil. A terrified girl hides her face, unable to move. The speaker accuses the hesitant fighter of fearing to hurt others. The shaken warrior wavers, doubting her own courage. A trembling being questions their purpose if rejected as a magic sword. Finally, the mentor reassures her, saying only she can fill a special role. Someone urges another to protect the person only they can save. A girl is asked directly about her relationship with the boy. The critical observer leans in with a smirk, dismissing the other's bold claims. With a playful grin, the amused ally agrees to assist, asserting authority over her companion. The confident leader entrusts a crucial task to his companion outside the village. The resolute pair seals their alliance with a firm fist bump, ready to face the next challenge together. Two figures stand tensely as a horse-drawn wagon rapidly disappears down the village street. Soon, light rain begins falling over the surrounding forest. Rain pours relentlessly from the dark sky, signaling the start of a somber downpour. A solitary figure stands in the rain, visibly anxious as she urges another to stay safe. She pauses in the rain as a troubling realization dawns. Meanwhile, a follower shouts while chasing a cloaked figure through heavy rain. Four intruders advance cautiously toward the looming prison cell gate. An older official reels after hearing news of a prison escape. The enraged superior grabs his subordinate and demands an explanation for the breach. He coldly insists on a clear, logical explanation for everything. Two nervous guards freeze, half raising their hands in uncertainty. A shocked guard realizes the prince was a decoy and shouts the truth. The decoy vanished in a flash, teleporting away. Finally, someone wonders if the champion and warriors returned to Evergreen with secret motives. One official attempts to take control of the situation, but the other sharply challenges their authority over the missing prince. On the street, the young man realizes he failed to protect the child. An elder confronts the ruler, demanding their roles be clarified. The assertive figure towers over the silver-haired opponent, firmly rejecting any subordination and stating his allegiance as a mercenary. The cautious figure issues a stern warning, urging the other not to risk damaging their relationship. The elderly figure nervously raises his hands and apologizes under pressure. Afterward, a commanding voice promises a generous reward for enduring the ordeal. A confident figure smirks and approves the proposed decision. A suited man gives the armored pair a tense, pointed farewell. Suddenly, a blinding force hurtles through the empty park. A worried aide questions the leader's choice to abandon the old man. An armored fighter mocks the weakened ruler and dismisses his protests. The mastermind announces the success of turning the nation into a puppet state and commands the search for the missing heir. A subordinate bursts in, urgently delivering a critical message to the squad leader. A soaked messenger reports that the hero's carriage has just departed the castle. An interrogator learns the target moved east, while the Shadow Knight and Prince remain missing. Later, two trackers push through the rain, following the lone carriage suspiciously. A sinister challenger accepts a duel, smirking in the rain. An enraged man clenches his fists as green energy erupts around him. In the pouring rain, the anxious subordinate asks for instructions while the commanding figure urgently orders the group to be assembled. Outside at night, the anxious subordinate hesitantly questions how many members to bring, while the weary superior responds with a sigh. The leader, surrounded by swirling green energy and glowing eyes, demands the group be brought forward. A lone fighter hovers before a clock tower, gripping his sword. The swordsman waits in the pouring rain as a formidable adversary approaches. The silver-haired opponent glares through the rain, accusing the newcomer of tardiness. A smug man confronts a cloaked watcher, complaining about the unreasonable summons. The silver-haired fighter demands why so many spectators were gathered in this ring. A lone swordsman steps forward, declaring he will kill their famed champion. In response, a confident foe advances, backed by a crowd of cloaked allies. The wary man and his boasting rival trade words, probing each other's resolve. The strategist exposes the enemy's plan to use a decoy and seize the castle with hidden forces. An old ruler on the throne declares everyone present will die. A defiant fighter stands surrounded by armed enemies threatening to kill him. A suited swordsman raises his blade and issues a final ultimatum. A menacing foe smirks in the rain and boldly threatens the opposition. The same smirking man mocks winning by tactics alone, defying the odds. The swordsman braces for battle, alerting the enemy that they now face two opponents. Then three challengers step out, exposing the startled man's empty bluff. A desperate swordsman, sweating heavily, shouts for help. Finally, the swordsman channels power through his eye, activating a deadly ability. An energy blast hits the stone wall, shattering embedded faces. Meanwhile, a figure stands as radiant energy erupts, activating a powerful ability. A man is stabbed through the chest by a sword in the rain. The wounded man stares at the crystal blade lodged in his chest. Two cloaked attackers stand over him as a bloody sword falls. Soon after, the cloaked pair stop as they hear of the captain's defeat. Later, three hooded figures face off in the village, magic sparking between them. One smirking fighter declares there are 99 opponents. The blue-haired warrior advances through rain and armored enemies, ignoring their shouts. The lone warrior wipes sweat from his brow and braces himself, sword at the ready for the imminent clash. He unleashes a blue sword slash, driving the attack forward. The warrior releases a surge of energy, staring straight ahead. He channels crackling power into his fist, preparing a heavy blow. A colossal surge of golden energy erupts, obliterating rocks and debris in a blinding flash. The swordsman cuts through armored foes, rapidly thinning their ranks. He swiftly kills two more enemies, further reducing their numbers. Suddenly, a towering energy-cloaked figure appears in the vision, radiating power. The pair rush through the rain, alarmed by their foes' erratic movements. Two armored warriors charge together through the rain, launching a combined attack. Finally, a shocked man calls out as he realizes something crucial. The warrior cuts down armored enemies with swift strikes. A battered survivor staggers, searching for the unseen attack source. Both figures freeze in the rain, eyes wide as a colossal dark sphere materializes above them. Soon, sunlight breaks through clouds, marking the world's new beginning. Rain falls from the dark sky, hinting at danger. A dangerous force intensifies as it absorbs surrounding mana. Falling raindrops instantly freeze, covering the ground in unnatural ice. An enchanted blade suddenly flares with crackling energy. Blinding energy erupts as a transformation violently begins. Suddenly, glowing blades rain down on soldiers, wounding several. A deadly rain of spears crashes down, overwhelming anyone beneath. Meanwhile, a resolute man recalls key advice, unfazed by being outnumbered. A determined fighter channels ambient energy through his sword. A young woman staggers back as a glowing slash wounds her. Armored troops are ambushed by glowing beams and forced to retreat. Blinding energy blasts slam into the street as terrified survivors scatter. A startled man sprawls as a lethal strike slices past him. A fighter's clenched fist crackles with green energy, about to unleash power. The wounded warrior's arm crackles with green energy he struggles to control. Finally, a battered fighter is blasted by green energy and staggers back. The protagonist recoils as a surge of pain and shock courses through him. Then a gloved figure opens the door and enters the darkness. A wounded person staggers toward a building, seeking safety. The strategist sees the group is too injured to move. Suddenly, the swordsman unleashes his hidden power in a blinding surge. Anxious and out of breath, the fugitive ducks into a shadowy room, intent on slipping away once the danger has passed. The observer flinches after seeing how severe the wounds are. A vigilant swordswoman swiftly draws her blade, confronting the shadowy figure who emerges without warning. Soon, the leader announces he survived, shocking the witness. One fighter explains his wound missed vital organs as another stares, shocked. The leader beckons the injured ally to come closer for treatment. The nervous subordinate anxiously awaits the superior's evaluation while standing under his confident gaze. The tormentor states his opponent's arm is now permanently useless. An enraged woman silently vows revenge against her hated enemy. Someone harshly declares that a powerless soldier is worthless. Finally, the protagonist grabs the stone object with renewed resolve. An attacker holds a terrified girl at knife point, who cries for help. The advancing enemy threatens to kill his foe and steal their power. At once, a glowing attacker grips the panicked girl's neck. A woman gasps for air while an enemy tightens his glowing chokehold. He collapses, overwhelmed by corrupt green energy. A surge of green energy warps the man's body as he struggles against its overwhelming force. The resolute figure clenches his collar, bracing himself for the formidable challenge posed by the Supreme Five. He realizes he misjudged his foe as green energy swirls. Defeated underlings are absorbed by green energy, completing the scheme. A resolute figure channels swirling green energy, preparing to unleash a powerful ability. Someone urgently spots a figure on the rooftop. As the rain ceases, the fierce assailant charges forward with sword drawn, launching an aggressive attack at the defender. The defender blocks the heavy strike, holding his ground. An onlooker notes the barrage scatters armored foes but lacks range to finish. The swordsman parries with both blades, still confidently smiling. Steel crashes as the stronger fighter drives both armored enemies back. He prepares to fight each remaining opponent one-on-one. An armored soldier recoils at a glowing gem as an ally watches. The swordsman taunts his enemies, standing ready to continue fighting. Two nervous sentinels steel themselves and urge each other to attack their opponent, hoping to end the conflict quickly. A lone fighter releases energy, forming a shining shield against danger. The swordsman gathers power and releases a devastating blade technique. A sudden surge of ice erupts, trapping the group behind a magical barrier. Afterward, the lone swordsman surveys the ice-littered field, confirming the last foe's defeat. A lone person sits outside, feeling the cold. The anxious attendant rushes to check on the weary swordsman, concern evident in her voice. A shivering girl apologizes for the cold. Her friend reassures her. Later, the blue-haired girl blushes as the taller one pats her head. The taller companion apologizes while gently patting the other's head. The blue-haired girl grips her ally's hand, vowing to protect her. The grip tightens as the glowing sword's power suddenly intensifies. A subtle droplet forms on the sword's tip, betraying the chill in the air. A glowing snowflake appears in the night sky. Outside, a quiet observer pauses, doubting the other's resolve. The leader explains the final mission steps before returning to the palace. The devoted companion admits there is nothing she wants more than to stay nearby, while the attentive figure mentions hearing about a vast national park in Evergreen. Afterward, the leader suggests visiting a lakeside village together. Three companions stand together, taking in the sunset as they unwind in peaceful silence. One reserved ally admits he wants to see that famous sunset together. Suddenly, the blue-haired girl shouts a warning. An off-guard fighter is impaled by a huge green energy blast. The protagonist staggers back, reacting to the unexpected attack. Two opponents' swords collide with explosive force as their battle intensifies. The white-haired swordsman recoils as a supposedly dead enemy reappears. At last, the confident rival issues a final challenge, ending their conflict. The enraged swordsman threatens to kill, brandishing a green-charged blade. At the war encampment's frontline, tension erupts as tempers flare over the ongoing territorial dispute. The captive strains against bonds, asking if punishment is just for one village. The anxious man defends his choice, insisting it protected allies from danger. The accuser demands to know if the other feels any guilt for their actions as tension rises under the fading light. Soon, a herald announces a high-ranking knight's arrival. An outraged witness condemns the massacre of unarmed civilians outside battle. The accuser looms over the captive, revealing his cruel nickname. A cold planner reveals he will kill multiple victims. Then, he admits killing everyone to spare them loneliness. The observer suddenly freezes, realizing something critical. The scientist declares the subject's loss of control a failed experiment. The authoritative figure sternly reprimands the knight for reckless behavior despite past achievements. The stern officer delivers a death sentence to the accused war criminal. A mocking foe laughs loudly, taunting the opponent. Bound to a table, the knight undergoes a forced national experiment. Furious, he confronts them about being discarded as the war ends. The captive struggles against the glowing restraints as they begin to break under his surging energy. He dashes forward, releasing a burst of electricity. The white-haired man raises a golden cross, demanding an answer. The swordsman quickly draws his blade, preparing to fight. The suited man is slashed down, collapsing in blood. The stern figure coldly rejects the notion of ever accepting the other as a disciple. Their commander orders a wounded captive quietly executed in the camp. Three figures in uniform carry an unconscious captive toward a looming pit as the snow-covered ground glows under the fading sunset. The exhausted traveler wipes his forehead in relief as the pair finally reach their destination at sunset. A wary guard questions the masked man's sudden movement. Suddenly, an electrified hand grabs someone, shocking everyone. The battered fighter erupts with green energy and rises to counterattack. The bloodied survivor grips his sword, surveying the surrounding carnage. The battered man briefly rests in the warm, peaceful sunlight. At dawn, the lone warrior walks off, choosing life as a mercenary. A surge of razor-sharp ice shards bursts upward, filling the air with freezing mist. Two determined fighters clash swords with explosive force, green energy swirling around them. The pale onlooker recoils in shock, struggling to comprehend how the wounded figure survived a fatal blow. The figure fixates on the radiant weapon, realizing it is the infamous demonic sword stolen from a former mentor. The two swordsmen clash again, releasing another powerful energy surge. One fighter drives forward, forcing the other into desperate defense. Finally, the charged blades clash as the attacker lunges and the defender braces. Steel meets steel as the aggressor drives forward, forcing the defender to hold her ground under the relentless assault. Nearby, the swordsman stops abruptly, blade raised to strike. The enraged man wipes blood, vowing revenge on his foe. The empowered enemy confronts the cloaked foe, demanding an explanation for his right hand regeneration. The resolute fighter draws a glowing sword, releasing its power. The challenger grips the charged blade, unleashing power and taunting the opponent. After monster blood injection, the armored host gains life force drain abilities. Soon, his right hand can steal others' life force. The cornered figure struggles desperately as a crushing grip tightens around their neck. The life force absorption process is explained as crucial later. A determined figure channels crackling green energy into a clenched fist, unleashing a surge of power. Elsewhere, a necromancer raises armored corpses, marching them forward in green light. The planner panics upon realizing the enemy's power exceeds mere regeneration. The injured man grasps his glowing chest, intrigued by lingering demonic energy. A stern observer condemns another's reckless indulgence enabled by demonic sword immunity. The crazed man declares he'll slay his foe and seize the ice sword. Ignoring the risk of madness, the swordsman prepares to unleash the demonic blade. The protagonist reels as the true purpose of the artifact is revealed, while ominous energy surges behind him. Fearing she'd hurt others, she withdrew completely from society. Finally, she turns away in tears, overwhelmed by sorrow. Born a demonic sword, she never had a normal life. The anxious woman reaches out toward the somber man, but he turns away in silence. The protector erupts with power, demanding if the girl was only a weapon. Meanwhile, an onlooker begs the raging warrior not to lose control. One figure urges a desperate retreat, while the other refuses to back down despite the danger. The man calms her with a reassuring hand as energy crackles. Standing in the street, the tearful girl admits how much someone precious means to her. The swordsman draws his blade, charging it with crackling power to fight. Another warrior channels energy into his sword, gripping the hilt tightly. He unleashes a technique, cutting down foes to provoke a stronger enemy. The fighter gathers crackling energy, preparing to release his full power. The white-haired swordswoman braces for a last-ditch defense as her opponent readies his weapon, waiting for her mana to run out before striking. Blades collide in a fierce struggle as each fighter tries to gain the upper hand, but one clearly aims to prolong the battle. Soon, a charged warrior steps forward, ready to confront the threat. With no other options, the man steels himself to make a desperate move. A radiant energy blade erupts, overwhelming everything in its path. The fighter descends, unleashing a devastating twin strike of crackling power. The anxious figure clenches his fist as blue energy crackles, bracing for an imminent threat. A fierce swordsman releases a dragon-shaped slash, sending destructive energy forward. At the center, he erupts with power, scattering masks as allies stand ready. The fighter charges energy, preparing a massive attack. A colossal blast slams down, obliterating the ground. The wounded man staggers forward, barely remaining standing. Suddenly, the wounded man freezes, struck by a realization. The attacker swings his glowing sword downward at him. A colossal blast erupts, leveling an entire city block. Then a violent gust rips through, scattering debris everywhere. The wounded man doubles over as blood bursts from him. The glowing swordsman calmly acknowledges his foe's skill. The wounded challenger taunts the dying enemy while supporting himself. In the shadows, a defiant survivor smirks beneath flickering green light. The onlooker is stunned as the enemy restores their body without a trace of injury. The exhausted survivor slumps over his weapon, barely remaining conscious. The other swordsman also hesitated, unable to act without caution. The battered swordsman, gripped by fear and disbelief, questions the terrifying power of his opponent. Now, the challenger endures the very strike that once killed the ruler. The wounded man drops to his knees, clutching his bloody sword. The killer senses this opponent is unlike any previous target. The masked fighter smiles weakly, realizing fear grips him for once. Finally, the swordsman readies himself, locking eyes with his bloodied foe. A kneeling warrior grips his sword, ready to fight. The defiant man scoffs, dismissing his weakened opponent's challenge. Though wounded, the lone fighter refuses to surrender. The swordsman charges forward, sword raised to attack. The swordsman hesitates mid-swing, glancing toward a new distraction. The tense fighter glares ahead, bracing for an attack. Suddenly, a gloved fighter grabs an enemy wrist, stopping the draw. The man stiffens as he processes the shocking news. The warrior raises his sword, shouting that only strength decides survival. Then, the frightened commander orders his zombie troops to attack. The enraged leader orders his forces to kill and seize the cursed sword. Soon, armored undead surge into the square, charging forward. The wounded swordsman staggers as a worried girl begs him to endure. Now, the injured fighter steadies himself, preparing to face the horde. The wounded man startles as his companion suddenly hugs him from behind. A nearby watcher realizes the situation's gravity, his eye widening. His subordinate clings to him, begging forgiveness for failing to protect him. A gloved ally pats her head, saying she doesn't need to apologize. Later, the injured leader assures her the responsibility is his alone. A shadowy attacker slays armored enemies using flying green shards. The wounded fighter grips his glowing blade, preparing to fight. The resolute figure rallies his companion and braces for a final stand against the encroaching shadows. He angrily protests being excluded from the final decision. A shadowed foe smirks and displays a gleaming necklace. Suddenly, a leader crashes down, unleashing purple energy shockwaves. A calm figure appears within swirling purple energy. The commander gathers dark energy, readying a contemptuous strike. Meanwhile, the wounded one looks up as another offers a hand. The victor grabs the beaten foe's face and condemns the worsening chaos. The resolute fighter steps forward, crackling energy surrounding him. Later, an ally softly reassures the injured fighter during their reunion. A bloodied attacker grabs her face, demanding why she left the palace. The furious girl erupts in frustration, shouting as flames blaze behind her. An enraged fighter bites her wounded enemy while a bystander yells, A stern mentor scolds the injured warrior as their companion watches. A confused patient sits as someone offers a glowing crystal nearby. Then, a legendary staff materializes, floating and radiating power. A stern girl gives a glowing hairpin, keeping her promise as another watches. A defiant woman points and claims she has her own reasons. Afterward, a battered survivor recovers while his cheerful friend smiles behind him. Woman gives a final ultimatum, forcing him to choose. The commanding figure extends a hand and offers a deal that promises the power to take revenge against everyone responsible. The silver-haired man refuses to become her servant. The woman smirks and teases her opponent, acknowledging their stubborn persistence despite their weakness. The adversary smirks and mocks her challenger with open contempt. The protagonist smirks confidently, delivering a sharp retort despite the dirt smeared across his face. Finally, two rivals clasp hands in a grudging alliance. Two fighters struggle over the glowing artifact, either releasing it. A formidable presence vows to bestow her power upon the one in need. Soon, a purple-clad commander appears, declaring the warrior of punishment. Bathed in a radiant purple light, one figure kneels and pledges unwavering loyalty to the other. A massive vortex of dark energy erupts, filling the area with a menacing force. The alert swordsman braces himself as he and his group witness a swirling surge of ominous purple energy gathering overhead. The anxious observer stares upward as the last traces of purple illumination fade into darkness. A surge of energy erupts from the sword as a powerful attack is unleashed. The resolute warrior reaches to seize the cursed glowing sword. Crackling power erupts from his eye, awakening forbidden strength. The swordsman stands amid dark energy, preparing a full release. The calm observer focuses intently, urging the companion to sense the surge of energy swirling in the air. The restrained man admits he has lived harshly and alone. A young woman stands in an unfamiliar, warming embrace. The swordsman reveals he can hear her thoughts through their bond. The smirking man openly mocks his opponent. Meanwhile, the green-eyed possessor vows to subdue the humanized sword. He unleashes shadow power, declaring the challenger will die. The swordsman draws his glowing blade, displaying overwhelming power. Then the leader charges, with crackling allies rushing behind. The solemn figure calls out to his allies, breaking the tense silence. The swordsman charges ahead and unleashes a devastating energy-infused slash. Suddenly, armored foes are snared as huge ice spikes erupt. The wielder spins a destructive attack, completely shattering the enemy. A startled fighter staggers back as swirling shadows engulf him. The challenger steps forward in the chilly square, confidently declaring the terms of the confrontation. The resolute figure prepares to unleash a surge of power amidst swirling energy and looming crystals. A fierce attacker fires a violet blast, hurling the enemy back. Multiple rare swords materialize, each radiating distinct power. Text explains the demonic blade of resentment has a unique ability. The figure hoists a colossal glowing sword amid crackling energy. A figure channels immense energy as a glowing sigil erupts with intense purple light. The lone figure's eyes narrow as sinister purple energy crackles across his face. A powerful ability is revealed that allows for instant regeneration of any wound. A fighter leaps upward, blasting debris with the jump. Then the swordsman lunges and unleashes a glowing slash at his foe. The injured warrior releases a desperate burst of purple energy. Meanwhile, a spatial attack tears through the area, distorting everything. The wielder easily cuts with the glowing weapon, realizing his strength. Meanwhile, a creature's blow shatters a tree, revealing widespread destruction. A radiant blade slices stone pillars, scattering shards through the forest. Even decapitated, the monster instantly regenerates its neck with energy. Then a revelation links the masked figure's powers to everything happening. The boastful figure flaunts her newfound power while her companion listens with a mix of intrigue and caution. The wry man brushes off the clinging girl's request for praise while the watchful companion glances back with curiosity. A worried girl calls for help about someone's strange behavior. A panicked man is pinned down by gloved restrainers. A cruel enemy mocks the beaten group, asserting complete control. A powerful force summons its target amid a sudden burst of energy. Two fighters unleash swirling green energy that engulfs shadowy foes. A desperate donor sacrifices all remaining power and flesh. An enraged attacker tears into the enemy as an ally assists. A shadowy figure demands an unending struggle as tension fills the air. A fighter erupts with dark red energy, shocking onlookers. He unleashes a wave of energy, knocking down nearby enemies. Elsewhere, crazed fighters with glowing eyes charge forward to attack. Their leader rushes through the mist, followers with glowing eyes behind. The confident figure taunts the adversary while urging his ally to keep fighting. The enthusiastic ally quickly affirms her support as they stride forward together. The leader and the confident ally surge forward together while their quiet companion follows close behind. A swordsman raises crossed blades, preparing to fight. Suddenly, another combatant explodes with energy, rattling the battlefield. He fires a huge energy blast that hits an opponent and shakes everything. The same fighter releases dark energy while raising a glowing blade. The wielder of the glowing weapon crackles with energy and challenges his opponent to a fight to the death. The swordsman surges forward and releases a devastating, green energy-infused strike. Blades crash together in a surge of energy as the two opponents meet head-on. He follows with a swift slash that sends energy flying. The swordswoman unleashes a powerful, sweeping attack as energy bursts through the air. A massive sword swing lands, spraying blood across the ground. The protagonist narrows his gaze, steeling himself for the next decisive move. A group of youths surrounds a silver-haired loner, closing in. The cloaked fighter stands unfazed while bloody blades strike him. Three tense allies huddle, one gripping a sword. The unstable fighter unleashes a surge of dark energy, fully embracing the chaos of battle. The lone attacker slashes through the crowd, scattering blood and ice shards. Soon, a lone fighter is overwhelmed by a surrounding mob. A tense standoff escalates, each side determined to continue until someone concedes. The swordsman delivers a lethal slash to one enemy while seizing another by the head. Then hope vanishes as they finally understand their impending deaths. A lone man stands cornered by grasping hands beside a clock tower. His severe wounds close instantly, revealing unnatural regeneration. The swordsman drives a surge of purple energy downward in a fierce attack. The cycle of death repeated endlessly. The massacre proceeds unchecked, with victims unable to resist. At last, a final declaration announces that the conflict is over. A crystalline hand drives its blade into the man's face, sending blood spraying. Meanwhile, an unyielding fighter issues an ultimatum as blue energy crackles. A cunning mage summons jagged ice crystals around him. A bloody prisoner, bound in ice, taunts his unseen captor. The victor smirks, clearly asserting dominance after the fight. The wounded man remains restrained, calling his lost luck and boasting of sacrifices. Finally, the swordsman surveys the fallen enemies scattered around him. A wounded man has a blade torn from his shoulder. A green-charged man appears behind a woman, making her recoil. A crucial revelation about a warrior's bloodline and 2 demonic swords shakes the atmosphere. The lightning-clad fighter mocks his foe, calling their power meaningless. Then, the hero erupts with power, lashing out in defiance. A solitary warrior regrets never feeling pride in his life. A hooded scout surveys the area, preparing for an imminent fight. However, a family's curse of weak mana and short lives is exposed. 2 prisoners stand back to back, chained in a vast starry void. A white-haired captive snaps angrily at the other's cluelessness. An outraged fighter confronts the authority, demanding their right to judge lives. A wounded man strains to speak as ice rapidly engulfs him. Soon, a determined swordsman charges forward, ready to change the outcome. The challenger calls out to her opponent as they prepare to clash on the fractured ground. An armored warrior activates a vision skill, drawing swirling dark energy. A lone attacker releases a blinding energy surge in a devastating strike. Then, a body crystallizes as blinding light engulfs the surroundings. An overmatched wielder is condemned for using power far beyond merit. Meanwhile, a grim warning threatens the listener with becoming a monster. A fierce figure unleashes a blinding burst of golden energy, overwhelming everything in its path. Blinding energy slams into him, hurling his body backward. A colossal purple blast hits the wall, shattering it. Purple energy erupts from below, blasting stone into the air. The lone figure braces himself as energy slashes tear through the mist and shattered ground. The swordsman grips his glowing blade, ready to fight. 2 hands dart forward and seize the man's cloak. A silent man stands still while 2 worried allies approach. The leader gently rests a hand on each companion's head, offering silent reassurance as both look up at him. The survivor looks ahead with a faint, accepting smile. At the crater's center, he unleashes power, sending smoke outward. In the chaos, an elder challenges the advancing guards. The enraged elder storms forward, declaring his claim to rule. A heavy sword scrapes along the floor, throwing sparks. A familiar voice breaks the silence, addressing the master. Nearby, a swordsman faces an armored enemy as a watcher observes. The youth thrusts the sword, demanding the truth about it. An old man angrily condemns the cloaked figure before everyone. The blonde youth defends his father's name, rejecting charges of tyranny. The defiant figure passionately defends his father's lifelong struggle to protect Evergreen against those around him. Finally, the young man raises his sword, refusing the demanded burden. The blonde warrior brings her sword crashing down with fierce determination. Another fighter grabs the bloody blade barehanded, stopping her. A startled figure recoils as a massive blade plunges toward her from above. A man lifts a bloody sword, remarking on a child's hardened eyes. His ally quickly backs up the gray-haired man's claim. The solemn figure pleads with her tense companion to avoid staining his hands with blood. Then a bloodied sword falls to the ground, ending the clash. After defeat, someone collapses, wondering helplessly what to do. In a radiant hall, the exhausted sovereign is acknowledged with a final gesture of parting as 2 hands slowly reach toward each other. A taller companion hugs the crying girl in quiet comfort. The blonde girl falls, sobbing uncontrollably on the floor. Nearby, a lone fighter stands over defeated armor, shielding the frightened girl. News spreads that the Evergreen Palace has been successfully reclaimed. Later, a lone figure sits up in bed, recalling recent chaos. The person suddenly notices their long-standing facial scar is gone. The silver-haired woman checks a mirror, shocked her wound fully disappeared. The silver-haired watcher hears movement from the bed and looks over. Carefully, a hand lifts the blanket and reveals the sleeping woman. A timid companion peeks from behind the curtain to greet the swordsman at dawn. The leader drapes a cloak over his 2 companions, shielding them beneath a glowing, star-filled sky. An observer notices that both people have changed significantly. A furious man glares, struggling to hold back his rage. An annoyed person orders the others to sleep in their own beds. The group has a quiet picnic together by the lake. Someone watches worriedly as another person keeps eating large portions. A wary woman turns, startled by a silent onlooker nearby. The protagonist pauses outside at sunset, offering a gentle smile against the mountain backdrop. The mysterious woman delivers a knowing, sinister smile as the tension in the room intensifies. A battered man lifts his chin and smirks despite his condition. A usually composed man blushes in surprise. An embarrassed girl turns away to avoid the other person's gaze. 2 figures stand back to back in tense silence as sunlight bathes the quiet village. An attentive person hands over a napkin, telling the other to eat neatly. A stubborn patient pushes away help, insisting on standing alone. A wounded person bends in pain while a companion silently prepares to help. At the same time, a quiet girl suddenly starts attracting attention. The startled man flinches as another person pokes his shoulder with a fork carrying a cherry tomato. A silver-haired girl kneels and offers an apple to the armored person. Someone has been acting unusually attached lately. Finally, a cheerful girl feeds an embarrassed swordsman as another quietly watches. The flustered girl slaps the surprised young man across the face with a stake. Then an older figure hits the girl for wasting food. The stern figure firmly scolds the embarrassed girl, patting her head as she winces in discomfort. Another figure turns to them and announces an upcoming reveal. The quiet lake glows softly under the night sky, setting a peaceful atmosphere. The excitable one points at the sky, exclaiming about the moon while 2 others watch her from behind. 2 figures stand together beneath the quiet night sky, sharing a rare moment of closeness. Meanwhile, the silver-haired one looks up and realizes something important. The pair sits as one says their savior dreamed of a restaurant in Evergreen. They share memories of a mentor who shaped both their lives. One admits having a weaker bond than the other, and they fall silent. The woman quietly admits she is unsure about the other's true nature. A cloaked man flips his garment aside as someone watches. The young woman quietly asks for more information about a mysterious figure from the past. The observer fixates intently, voicing a strong desire to understand the one reflected in their gaze. The silver-haired one stands alone under the night sky, thinking. A calm presence offers reassurance beneath the serene, starlit sky. 3 figures watch as the lake suddenly begins to emit an intense, mysterious glow. A radiant sphere drops into the glowing surface, sending ripples outward. Finally, a blazing surge of energy rockets through the night sky. Purple light bursts overhead, illuminating the night sky. Fireworks explode above the lake, lighting the distant mountains. The man explains that any message can be sent skyward. Meanwhile, fireworks burst overhead, prompting a brief moment of reflection. One woman smirks confidently while her companion gasps in surprise at the sudden turn of events. Colorful fireworks burst overhead as several heartfelt messages of gratitude fill the sky. The victorious woman raises her arms while her companion stares, astonished. On a balcony, a cloaked figure surveys the sleeping city. Below, soldiers celebrate while a lone observer watches the glowing city. A lone swordsman wonders if his battles have ever brought fulfillment. A solitary figure contemplates the transactional nature of every relationship encountered. A wounded survivor insists he killed only in self-defense. Later, a weary fighter sits by the lake, dwelling on a life of battles. Two figures stand side by side, quietly watching the fireworks as emotion flickers across one of their faces. The protagonist closes his eyes and lets out a quiet chuckle, radiating calm confidence. Three companions stand by the river, watching fireworks under the full moon. Someone considers the benefits of fully adapting to a warrior's life. A grand, ornate room filled with bookshelves and decorative paneling reveals the location as a prestigious weapons store in the kingdom. A tired advisor reports new problems to the seated leader. An elder carefully examines the document just handed to him. The white-haired man reads about a crushed rebellion, massacre, and unexplained fire. The official reports that 100 elite warriors were lost in a single incident. Then the glowing figure turns back and quietly speaks an unknown name. The leader privately doubts why elite mercenaries were assigned to a minor mission. The elder grows suspicious, silently worrying about his absent associate. He remembers confronting the man about tax probes involving the warrior of punishment. The next day, that man returned completely changed. The silver-haired man submits a document, while his quiet partner watches. The reserved businessman unexpectedly launches his own company. A hooded broker takes a bribe after bankrupting rivals to control the market. With explosive growth, the business dominated the continent as wealth surged all around. The father shakily reads of his son's unexpected success. That night, two masked kidnappers grab a girl and drag her away. The captured girl is guarded by two armed men as their operation expands. One worker reveals the dealership is actually an international crime syndicate. A gathered group of villains appears, signaling a rising threat. Two elders admit the young heir's strength has already escaped their control. An anxious advisor warns the boss that the company is near collapse. Suddenly, two suited elders recoil as a strike swings toward them. An imposing man confronts them, exposing a traitor's secret plot. The assertive figure challenges the companion while they stride together, demanding honesty face to face. The smug aristocrat confronts his servant with a sinister grin as his silent companion observes. A startled servant reacts to someone suddenly appearing. The accuser confronts the defensive man, while an observer watches the tense exchange from behind. Angrily, an older man blames the strategist for trapping them. A red-eyed commander orders his squad to kill all rivals. A bold youth confronts his stunned elder in the suite. A defiant captive is suddenly grabbed by an unseen captor. An agitated elder confronts the heir about Evergreen's disaster. In response, the heir shoves him aside, calling it a business test. Two older men abandon their scheme to use a puppet state for war after their original plan fails. The leader sits and says the revolt still warned the world. Three armored soldiers view the ruined city and its burning peace emblem. Meanwhile, nations marshal their armies, preparing for the coming war. A gloved strategist places a shield marker on the map. A commander steps forward, raising a red gold artifact to assert control. Bitter exiles plan revenge using their former kingdom as the stage. A man in an armchair confirms the truth, shocking the others. A confident foe stands before flames, issuing a final warning. A global conflict looms on the horizon. Both elders recoil in alarm as a sudden disturbance interrupts their work. Meanwhile, the red-haired woman smirks, anticipating the coming chaos. An enraged man slams his fist, rattling the room. Two men argue fiercely over the risks and rewards of committing traceable crimes. A sly merchant taunts his elder, prioritizing profit over fear. The older man admits using dubious methods to maintain their business. Consequently, the situation escalates beyond control, creating urgent tension. The elder explodes, delivering a harsh verbal reprimand. A well-dressed elder steps forward and asserts control. Soon, the senior announces the seated man's removal from management. The defeated elder lowers his head and accepts the decision. The cautious man shuts his eyes as the intense woman stands close behind him, her hand pressing firmly onto his shoulder. A young subordinate raises his hand, accepting the elder's command. A stern negotiator leans forward, grudgingly accepting the opponent's terms. Suddenly, a giant spiked mace smashes into the chamber, stopping everything. A white-haired leader justifies killing a threat as a stronger foe appears. The desperate elder pleads as an armored attacker raises his weapon. A massive spiked weapon hurtles through the air with force. Later, a lone black hat drifts in dust, implying a hidden survivor. A hooded killer crushes a man's skull with one strike. An older figure staggers back, clutching his wounded face. Nearby, the hooded attacker raises a bloodied spiked mace. The swordsman strikes, his glowing blade ripping through the enemy. As chaos erupts, a woman stands behind a seated leader. A defeated enemy lies trapped as the victors move in. The elder recoils in panic at the sudden plea, visibly shaken by the overwhelming responsibility. The older man glares down, accusing the other of monstrosity. The resolute figure's eyes blaze with fierce determination as he prepares to unleash his hidden power. The composed son orders guards to escort his exhausted father away. A desperate woman screams as guards drag a pale-haired youth. The older figure confronts the younger with urgent concern, demanding answers. The captive is led by two guards to a grand doorway. The red-haired woman leans over a fallen ally, shouting. The silver-haired merchant boasts about making a weapon dealer legendary. The young man laments his unrecognized efforts while resting on her lap. Alone, a figure stands silently, preparing for coming trials. The driven fighter crouches, vowing to remove the obstacle ahead. Suddenly, a stern warning cuts through the tense silence. A confident woman tells her ally more chances will come. In council, a shrewd advisor offers calculated guidance to listeners. The man remains calm and confident as a dominant figure presses a high heel beneath his chin, enticing him with the promise of both revenge and prestige. The assertive woman steps forward, urging her companion to trust her and follow her lead. Someone loudly swears allegiance, heightening the tense standoff. Several figures stride purposefully into the shadowy dungeon corridor, their footsteps echoing off the cold stone walls. An imprisoned elder broods over the irreversible consequences of past decisions. With a piercing glare through the cell bars, the stern visitor warns the prisoner that past restraint should not be mistaken for mercy. Outside, a blood-stained guillotine under the moon awaits imminent execution. The captive explains that interrogation and punishment will follow a formal trial. The assertive figure confronts her target and demands a full confession. A ruling elder demands to know how they obtained the demonic weapon. He presses further, demanding what was traded for military support. The battered prisoner clenches his fists, refusing to surrender. Two armored guards stand watch outside the stone cell. Suddenly, a grim man freezes as he realizes he was chosen. The desperate figure braces for rescue, convinced an ally will soon provide a way out. A mocking foe stands in flames, releasing terrifying power. Amid the blaze, an elder kneels before the red-haired attacker. Then, fiery energy engulfs armored soldiers, marking the assault's beginning. In darkness, a single name is spoken ominously. Finally, the woman stands amid flames, unleashing overwhelming power. The trembling elder drops to his knees, cowering before the blazing woman. The red-haired leader rebukes her subordinate for wasting resources and failing. An informant reports a powerful enemy has appeared, complicating everything. Then the woman turns away, dismissing the subordinate as no longer useful. The older man looks up, desperately asking if he will be granted another chance. Someone pleads desperately for assistance to escape. Meanwhile, a warrior steadies herself, preparing to face the coming fight. A determined fighter clenches his fist, vowing to succeed next time. A lone survivor stands in the blaze, staring at the destruction. The mage thrusts out her arm, hurling a torrent of flames. A fiery ally reaches for the elder, summoning flames to escape. Flames erupt through the dungeon, spreading chaos everywhere. The older figure summons fiery energy to begin a daring escape. From the inferno, a blazing woman appears, her body unstable. A burst of flames suddenly engulfs the dungeon, signaling immediate danger. A panicked figure shouts for water amid the burning ruins. The lone survivor staggers through flames, still refusing to accept defeat. Someone cries out in frustration as reality defies their expectations. A massive surge of fire erupts, engulfing everything nearby. Later, a confident magician says the evergreen problem is handled while casually casting. A kneeling man asks her mood. She calmly confirms. The woman glances back with a confident smile, acknowledging their setback while expressing optimism about the new possibilities ahead. A gloved ally pats his head, making him look up. A commanding voice orders him to sense a lurking presence. A dark figure smirks as an ominous aura intensifies, hinting at dangerous ambitions fueled by forbidden desires. The pursuer corners his target, eyes wild with determination as he mocks any attempt to escape. Three ceremonial authorities step forward, their presence instantly dominating everyone. The smug caster releases crackling energy as his eyes blaze. The confident speaker expresses satisfaction about living in a world driven by ambition, while the other listens closely in the dimly lit library. The anxious retainer urges the resolute noblewoman to devise a strategy for gathering power greater than their rivals. A gloved companion grips the swordsman's shoulder, drawing his guarded gaze. Suddenly, a glowing magic circle appears, heralding immense power. A schemer cryptically mentions relics called the crystals of disaster. A scholar explains the demonic swords, the crystals, were forged with her. A red-haired being hesitates, simplifying thoughts into human language. One girl points toward the water while her companion watches attentively from the riverbank at dusk. Then someone raises the topic of siblings, steering the discussion. After resting at the park, the group reaches the royal palace. As guards haul boxes through the ornate hall, a determined leader and two wary companions make their way forward in the aftermath of the rebellion. Three figures move through a crowded corridor as workers hurry past, engrossed in their tasks. Work overwhelms them because there are too few people. All known supporters of the rebellion are quickly executed. Several robed people are cornered by enemies pointing blades at them. With the ringleader lost to the flames, the group's fate takes a dire turn. Meanwhile, dark energy engulfs a collapsing corridor. The situation remains unresolved as uncertainty lingers in the aftermath of chaos. A determined warrior pushes through the chaos toward the guarded throne. The determined figure steps into the grand hall and demands his quest reward from the overseer. The woman on the throne greets the approaching knight to begin their audience. The reserved figure quietly assesses the situation, while lost in thought in the ornate room. The shy onlooker blushes as her companion points excitedly at the fireworks bursting overhead. The relieved admirer smiles after hearing her efforts were appreciated. In the hall, one figure bows, thanking the others for their heroism. Nearby, a silver-haired ally bows, accepting the gift's significance. An assertive adventurer demands fair payment as her nervous partner denies cheating. The observer gently highlights a familiar phrase often repeated by them. The protagonist quietly vows to repay the favor with double the effort. Later, a lone fighter eyes the dragon's hoard, remembering the promised reward. The victor stands on piled gold, claiming the hoard as two companions watch. Finally, a cautious guest explains the need for excavation to the guarded ruler. Today, a messenger reports the expert received the letter. A determined man strides decisively into view. Soon after, the group enters Evergreen, beginning their next phase. The bearded man smiles, showing his firm resolve. A cheerful woman greets an old acquaintance as she enters the bright, ornate hall. A silver-haired guest politely greets the ruler on the throne. The bearded leader boisterously welcomes them with two allies. He slaps the younger man's back, noting his missing scar. Next, two new allies are presented as the host beckons them forward. The pair introduce themselves as nobles of a famed dwarven house. The newcomer steps forward and introduces himself with a composed smile. Someone prepares to start a conversation in the empty space. Then the protagonist steps forward, revealing he knows about the letter. The reflective figure silently recalls numerous intriguing tales from the past. A resolute man braces himself for the coming events. A dragon fang sword is revealed, radiating ominous power. Soon, a perilous excavation of the dragon's lair is proposed. The steadfast figure turns and sharply scans the decorated room. He presents a business proposal deciding the dwarves' fate. A voice interrupts the silence to announce an important revelation before addressing the main topic. A concealed fortress emerges amid the snowy, mist-filled mountains. Elsewhere, a strained voice warns of trouble in Kaban. A robed figure approaches a blinding light ahead. Since the queen's coronation, a new army has formed. Now a walled city appears, marking arrival at the capital. From the palace steps, a commanding figure delivers a pivotal speech to the assembled citizens, signaling a crucial turning point. The speaker solemnly introduces his father to the listener. The sovereign stands in silent contemplation, bathed in a mystical glow. An elf woman honors a fallen hero who died for the nation. Afterward, the group hears a warning about enemies threatening everything they protect. A strong voice begins an important address to the assembled crowd. The leader urges everyone in the room to join forces as the others listen intently. The determined leader rallies the assembly, proclaiming the kingdom's resolve to take up arms against their foes. Amid flames, a commander urges warriors to die fighting as monsters approach. A resolute fighter leads assembled beasts preparing to seize victory. Later, a commander declares starvation will end throughout the kingdom. A confident man smirks, showing complete self-assurance. Soon, a determined speaker proclaims a plan to restore the city. The crowd erupts in cheers celebrating the monarch's rule. Bathed in golden light before the towering doors, the woman stands resolute as her true intentions are quietly scrutinized by the two figures nearby. The true situation involves more than just the spread of Kaban. A crucial decision is made, fixing the group's only path forward. A determined woman confronts the elf, insisting only she can stop him. Then a loud decree proclaims that only the innocent may deliver punishment. The man's eyes narrow as he quickly turns toward the sudden commotion. Nearby, someone begs desperately for a loved one to come back. A flustered girl hides her face while calling out, shocking a nearby observer. The anxious man recoils in alarm, confiding his fear about the woman's dangerous obsession. The critic harshly condemns the woman's rigid approach outside an ornate building. The young ruler listens skeptically while a guest questions obsessing over national power. The cautious ruler raises a troubling suspicion about someone betraying their own people to traffickers. The calm figure quietly reflects, a gentle smile softening her features beneath the starry sky. The determined leader reveals a ruthless scheme to send their allies into war. A stern planner reveals a secret escape plan, leaving the silver-haired listener stunned. The group clarifies they are here not only to excavate the dragon but also to pursue a promising business opportunity. The assertive leader outlines a plan for the group's resettlement after their escape. A strategist proposes exploiting the royal succession chaos by targeting the arms industry. A strategic map shows ruined towns around one surviving city, all marked as conquered. A major arms supplier has left the region, leaving only abandoned crates and debris. Finally, a forceful broker urges an anxious craftsman to exploit the booming arms market. An axe and a sword clash in midair, sparking tension as the confrontation escalates. Meanwhile, a strategist plans to counter weapon best by arming Evergreen with dwarf weapons. The ruler announces their neutral nation will concede another's claim. Later, an enraged man vows revenge while his three allies listen. An armored captive broods over having been betrayed by his parents. The fighter channels his rage, gathering dangerous energy. The inquisitive elf questions her companion about securing local partners to overcome the challenges of starting a business in a human nation. A crown leader reassures everyone, easing the group's worries. The speaker highlights the queen's wisdom and attentiveness with a resolute air. The assertive figure promises to travel to Nutemian and seek help for the unsettled man. Afterward, the armored warrior considers migration plans and readies to face the next foe. A wary observer accuses the other of hiding true motives. A determined fighter declares a personal vendetta against the weapon master. A grim resolve settles as someone swears to return kindness doubly and vengeance tenfold. A bearded man realizes they are being used to hunt another target. Soon, two figures clasp hands, sealing a firm alliance. The diplomat firmly shakes hands with the imposing figure as the regal observer on the throne watches the new alliance begin. A new guild called the Steel Alliance is founded by the dwarves. Finally, the trio faces an armored group in the plaza. A woman in a red beret quietly watches her companion depart. The lone strategist silently resolves to complete unfinished business in one region while allies begin their excavation elsewhere. A bold woman calls out to the startled young ruler as another figure watches the tense encounter unfold. The dominant figure asserts control over the situation, declaring authority over the other. The confident woman urges the surprised man to take care of his health as they stand together in the elegant garden. Then the supporter smiles and insists he will become a great king. The leader stands before a grand building, promising unwavering support to his followers. The assertive woman signals approval and demands a lavish banquet worthy of royalty. The confident man grins at sunset, while his two companions react with lively enthusiasm in response to the playful exchange. The young man bows, vowing to follow the path before him. The white-haired enemy taunts her foe, telling them to handle their own leader first. At sunset, the cloaked figure turns and formally addresses a distinguished man. Nearby, a quiet figure stands eyes closed while a confident onlooker smiles behind him. The impatient leader orders everyone to move faster or be left behind. Two allies share a brief supportive moment, exchanging reassuring smiles. Everyone longs for a calm and peaceful existence. The leader strides ahead while the others rush after him, not wanting abandonment. Once filled with defiance, the cursed blade now waits on destiny's edge. The cheerful girl hugs the other tightly, overjoyed by their embrace. The white-haired woman gazes up softly while holding the other close. Meanwhile, the cursed blade stays sealed in isolation, weighed down by grief. A new, unseen force announces its presence. The protagonist pauses, silently reflecting on recent events. The trio walks together, heading toward a safer new life. A renewed sense of determination fills the speaker as the dream finally feels within reach. Elsewhere, three explorers examine a jagged chasm, one lighting darkness. One explorer asks about the legend tying the red dragon's tooth to a demonic sword. Skeptical, he descends deeper, doubting a hero's weapon could be demonic. Determined, another climber quickly rappels down the rope into darkness. Someone silently wonders if that trusted person would ever lie. Then, the leader moves into the tunnel, lantern raised, and the party follows. A wary figure raises a glowing lantern toward the darkness, bracing for what might be revealed. Suddenly, the bearded chief raises his lantern, signaling everyone to brace for trouble. A dire warning makes them realize their actions could unleash worldwide disaster. The leader steps forward to confront the monstrous jaws as two companions watch anxiously from behind. The observer notices a frail dragon sprawled among the rocks, questioning its weakened appearance. The wary group exchanges uneasy glances as one of them urges everyone to leave, sensing imminent danger. An armored woman declares she will exploit the dragon's remains for herself. At that moment, a malevolent presence bursts forth, its gaze radiating overwhelming power. Two startled guards spot a hidden intruder and react with alarm. A suspicious watcher confronts the newcomers, accusing them of being grave robbers. The armored warrior identifies the group as dwarves. Suddenly, something huge crashes down, flinging debris everywhere. The attacker fires a powerful energy blast, forcing both enemies to guard. Meanwhile, he steadies himself and prepares for the incoming clash. The shocked onlooker recoils, unable to believe what he sees. A startled man points as a golden armored swordswoman appears before him. Then the armored figure steps forward and commands the dwarves' attention. One dwarf asks the group who a certain man is.